हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो इसका आज मैं सेकंड पार्ट लेके आ चुका हूँ, तो स्टार्ट करते हैं।
Chapter 21, Joyriding. As soon as the words fell, ripples in the void gently spread a ring of soft light, and a warm, translucent, pure white cloud-stepped Fuguang carriage appeared out of thin air, hovering beside the sea-covering wandering dragon boat. The carriage body, crafted from 10,000-year warm jade, flowed with a soft light like the rising morning sun. The star spirit crystals embedded all over it lit up one after another, and silver blue starlight wrapped around the carriage body. Its retractable wings trembled slightly, giving it an effortless, ethereal aura. But in the eyes of Qian Zunzong, who was obsessed with extreme speed, this was no mere jade carriage of the immortal realm. It was clearly a unique, top-tier, divine-grade supercar unmatched on sea, land, and air in the Douluo Continent. Everyone get in, I'll take you for a spin. Qian Zunzong's figure flashed as he took the driver's seat first. Although Shen Yi did not know what this was, he followed closely behind. Chief guest Mo Hengchuan, who was still huffing and puffing with anger, grew curious upon seeing this, and subsequently turned into a stream of light to enter the carriage. Yu Guan and Gui Mei, who were still paralyzed on the grass in shock, had not yet reacted before they were pulled directly into the jade carriage by a gentle surge of spirit power. The scissor-style jade doors slowly closed, and the galaxy fluorites on the ceiling lit up, enveloping the entire cabin in gentle starlight. Qian Zunzong sat on the driver's jade seat. Although Qian Zunzong was still a bit short, the spirit tool was very considerate, adjusting and raising all the controls so that even though he was only 6 years old, he could still drive. Even without a driver's license. Tapping his fingertips lightly on the steering wheel in front of him and the familiar handbrake, his eyes were filled with excitement. To my audience, this extreme speed journey is about to begin. Please fasten your seatbelts, hold on tight, and off we go. In the next second, all the star spirit crystals in the carriage erupted with dazzling starlight simultaneously. The cloud-stepped Fuguang carriage was like a white meteor, instantly breaking through the airflow over the lake. In the blink of an eye, it left the vicinity of Shangyan Villa, racing across the endless, open, and lush Qingchuan plains. The extreme speed of 300 km per hour tore through the low-altitude airflow, but the constant temperature spirit-purifying formation inside the carriage ran at full capacity, shutting out all wild winds and bumps. The cabin remained warm and quiet, without the slightest sense of turbulence. Only the expressions of the other 4 passengers differed like night and day. Chief guest Mo Hengchuan leaned lazily against the soft velvet cushion by the window, slowly swaying his plain folding fan. His fingertips tapped the windowsill from time to time as his calm gaze watched the dense forests, hills, and wildflowers receding rapidly outside, everything stretched into streaks of light and afterimages under the extreme speed. Yet, his state of mind remained peaceful. He even used the flowing breeze to comprehend the rhythm of heaven and earth, his expression remaining as calm as a deep well throughout, completely unaffected by the high-speed travel, his elegant, scholarly immortal demeanor not diminishing in the slightest. Shen Yi stood close to the side. At first, he could still maintain his footing calmly. However, as Qian Zunzong executed consecutive S-curves and 360-degree spins on the spot, causing the carriage body to tilt sharply from side to side, the color drained from his face, turning a faint pale green. His fingertips gripped the jade handrail beside him tightly, and his stomach churned violently. With spirit power far deeper than ordinary people, he could only forcefully suppress the waves of dizziness and nausea. His lips were tightly pressed together as he uttered not a word, silently circulating his spirit power to soothe the discomfort in his head, enduring quietly throughout without making any panic sounds. But the chrysanthemum and ghost duo beside him had already completely discarded all dignity, their mental states collapsing entirely. Pull the handbrake, steer. Qian Zunzong operated the controls skillfully. The first extreme lateral drift suddenly commenced, and the carriage body violently tilted nearly 45 degrees to the left. The star tracks on the ground pulled out a long silver blue band of light, and a feeling of weightlessness instantly swept through the entire vehicle. Yu Guan's throat tightened as a piercing scream escaped his mouth. His long eyelashes trembled wildly, all color draining from his face. In a panic, he tightly hugged Gui Mei's neck, clinging to him completely, not daring to let go even a bit. Ah, young master, spare us. It's too fast. It's going to flip. We're going to fly out. Yu Guan's voice cracked, his screams sharp and ear-piercing. He squeezed his eyes shut, not daring to look at the rapidly receding scenery outside the window under any circumstances, his entire body shaking uncontrollably. Gui Mei was not doing any better. Cold sweat soaked his black clothes, making the fabric on his back stick completely to his skin. He wrapped his arms tightly around Yu Guan's waist, and the two of them clung to each other in a tight ball, unable to separate, as he roared in terror. If I had known the young master's toy was this crazy, I would have preferred to stay at the villa and take a punishment from the master rather than get on this thing and suffer. Help. Qian Zunzong's playful nature was fully aroused, and he had no intention of slowing down. He proceeded to perform a series of fancy maneuvers, including steep slope sprints, sideways low-altitude gliding, and consecutive chain drifts. The pure white jade carriage traced gorgeous, dazzling star tracks across the plains, looking incredibly cool. Looking at the two people screaming and hugging each other in the back seat, the smile on the corners of his mouth grew even wider. Don't worry, the best is yet to come. Here we go. As his voice fell, the cloud-stepped Fuguang carriage turned around and headed straight for the magnificent Kanglin River ahead. The bottom thrusters instantly switched to water travel mode, and the jade wheels transformed into wide floating boards, stepping stably on the surging river water as it sped forward, splitting the waves. The turbulent river water was forced apart by the hard carriage body into two massive waves of water, throwing a mist that slapped against the windows, instantly blurring their vision. Ah, we're falling into the river. The two of them were scared out of their wits as the jade carriage plunged headfirst into the river without warning, instantly diving dozens of jong deep to the riverbed. The exclusive water-repelling and pressure-resisting formation was fully activated, shutting out the freezing river water and intense water pressure. Outside the window, schools of river fish scattered in panic, and the mottled light and shadows at the dark bottom of the river added a touch of unknown dread. Help. Yu Guan and Gui Mei screamed until their voices were hoarse. They hugged each other even tighter, burying their heads completely into the soft ice fox fur cushions, covering their ears tightly, not even daring to take a single deep breath. In the next second, the jade carriage broke out of the water, its broad wings fully unfolding as the body violently pulled up vertically, breaking through the river's mist and charging straight into the sea of clouds 100 jong high, as the extreme sensation of high-altitude weightlessness struck once again. Billowing white clouds flowed right beside them, and the gale swept past the wings. From the open viewing terrace, the soft clouds were within arm's reach, and the vast sky of 10,000 li was visible in its entirety, offering a panoramic view of the magnificent scenery. Qian Zunzong even controlled the jade carriage to perform a high-altitude dive and sharp turn, thrillingly brushing past layers of cloud banks, sending the thrill level straight to the max. Chief guest Mo Hengchuan raised his hand to take a sip of the clear tea prepared in the carriage, looked at the grand sight of the sea of clouds, and nodded slightly in praise, his tone calm and indifferent. This object integrates spirit tool formations with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, traveling stably on land, water, and air. It is perfect for observing the clouds and comprehending the Tao. It is indeed a rare treasure. His heart was as calm as water throughout. Even during the high-speed high-altitude dive, his expression did not show a single ripple of emotion. Shen Yi's dizziness doubled from the high-altitude dive, his face turning as pale as paper. He simply closed his eyes completely, concentrating on circulating his spirit power to adjust his breathing, forcing himself to ignore all the shaking of the carriage body as he silently endured this wild ride in the sky. Meanwhile, Yu Guan and Gui Mei could no longer make any screaming sounds, leaving only intermittent sobs and groans. They hugged each other tightly from beginning to end, not daring to move an inch. From the extreme drifting on land and breaking waves on the river to diving deep underwater and plunging from the high-altitude skies, screams pierced through the entire journey. Their minds were completely broken by the torture of extreme speed, and they never wanted to go anywhere near this immortal jade carriage again in their lives. Looking at the extremely wretched state of the two, Qian Zunzong laughed out loud and controlled the jade carriage to descend slowly and steadily. How is it? Is my new ride thrilling enough? The jade carriage landed smoothly, and the scissor doors slowly opened. Yu Guan and Gui Mei scrambled and tumbled out of the carriage, their legs so weak that they collapsed directly onto the grass. Their entire bodies were limp and their limbs numb as they greedily took deep gulps of the fresh air on the ground. The looks they cast at the cloud-stepped Fuguang carriage were full of fear and resistance, and a psychological shadow had formed in the depths of their eyes. Qian Zunzong jumped down from the jade carriage, patted the carriage body, and smiled with a face full of satisfaction. How is it? Is the experience of my exclusive three-way divine carriage dialed straight to the max? Chief guest Mo Hengchuan stepped out of the carriage slowly, lightly swaying his folding fan as he smiled. Our lord's playful heart remains undiminished, but it has truly been hard on these two little fellows. Shen Yi supported himself against the carriage body to stand steady, taking a long time to suppress his dizziness before shaking his head helplessly. Bletch. Blarg. Only the chrysanthemum and ghost duo lay on the ground, vomiting continuously and waving their hands in unison, not wanting to say a single word. Today's joyride would become a nightmare they would never forget for the rest of their lives. Chapter 22. Dad, I'm here to find something to do. The cloud-stepped Fuguang carriage parked on the training grounds of Shanyan Villa. Qian Zunzong turned it into a ring and wore it on his finger. Zhu and Gui took a whole hour to finally stop feeling nauseous. From then on, whenever they saw that lustrous white jade carriage, they would subconsciously walk around it, absolutely refusing to go for a joyride with Qian Zunzong again. For the next few days, Qian Zunzong fell into a state of complete and utter boredom. His idle cultivation ran automatically, and his spirit power steadily rose every single moment. He didn't need to meditate or hone his spirit abilities. The Yu Hengxie crystal beast snuggled in his arms all day, munching on spiritual fruits, while Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan spent his days guiding Zhu and Gui in reading and cultivating. Shen Yi led the Imperial Guards in processing intelligence from various regions. Shen Wanson and He Shen were outside expanding their business empire, and the 300 adjudication knights dutifully guarded the villa. In this massive Shanyan villa, there was actually not a single thing that could pique even a fraction of his interest. Lying on the flowing cloud soft couch in Juyun residence, Qian Zunzong tossed and turned. Xiao Jing, nestled in his arms, had its fur thoroughly ruffled by his rubbing, letting out aggrieved, soft whimpers. So boring. I'm sick of fishing. My joyriding gave my two subordinates psychological trauma, and I've looked at every single view in the villa 100 times over. Even the fish at the bottom of the galaxy waterfall can recognize me now. He stuffed Xiao Jing into his robe, flipped himself up, and an idea popped into his head. Staying in the villa was a pure waste of time. He might as well go to the Supreme Pontiff Palace to find Qian Daoliu and get some work to do. At least it would pass the time. Let's go, let's find the old man and get a job. After quickly tidying his robes, Qian Zunzong called Shen Yi to accompany him, driving the cloud-stepped Fuguang carriage straight toward the Supreme Pontiff Palace in the center of Spirit City. Inside the inner hall of the Supreme Pontiff Palace, sandalwood incense curled upward, and a long, gilded table was piled high with thick stacks of memorials and files submitted from various regions. Qian Daoliu, dressed in the gold-patterned robe of the Supreme Pontiff, held a spiritual ink jade brush between his fingers. With a slight frown, he was reviewing and annotating the documents submitted by spirit masters from all over word by word. His expression was solemn, presenting the picture of a majestic Supreme Pontiff. Seated to the side, Qian Zunji was supposed to be helping sort through the memorials. However, he had been dragged by Qian Daoliu to handle temple affairs until the middle of the night. At this moment, his head was nodding up and down, his eyelids too heavy to lift. Propping his arm on the table with his chin resting in his palm, his breathing was slow and long. Already half asleep, drool was almost dripping onto the files. The heavy doors of the hall were guarded by two spirit Douluo guards, and ordinary people would never dare to rashly disturb the Supreme Pontiff at work. But how could Qian Zunzong care about rules? Walking to the entrance, he raised his foot, gathered his strength, and with a loud clang, kicked open the gilded, carved hall doors. The doors slammed violently against the walls on both sides, causing the glass lanterns hanging inside the hall to sway wildly. Dad, brother, I'm here to find something to do. The crisp, bright voice of the youth echoed throughout the entire hall. Qian Daoliu's brush tip trembled violently, and a large blotch of thick black ink spread across the memorial in his hand, completely ruining a perfectly good document. His body stiffened as he slowly raised his head, several dark lines instantly appearing on his originally calm and majestic face. Beside him, Qian Zunji was scared out of his wits. His head jerked up, and he slid right off his chair, his butt slamming heavily onto the cold white jade floor tiles. His back of the head hit the floor with a soft thud. Rubbing his head groggily, his eyes were blank. What's wrong? Is someone from the Elder Hall here to check our homework? Qian Zunzong, can you show some manners? The Supreme Pontiff Palace is a crucial place for handling the affairs of spirit masters across the entire continent. Kicking the door open like this, where are your manners? Qian Daoliu threw the ruined draft aside, set down his jade brush, and scolded him crossly. Qian Zunzong didn't care at all. He strode over to the long table, pulled over a chair, and sat down. The Yu Hengxie crystal beast poked its head out of his shirt, curiously sizing up the piles of documents on the table. Dad, I'm so idle at Shanyan Villa that I'm itching for action. My cultivation is almost at level 40, and I have nothing to do every day besides fishing and walking my beast. If I stay idle any longer, I'll go crazy from boredom. Give me some work to do. Qian Zunji got up while rubbing the back of his head, patted the dust off his robes, and grumbled helplessly. Little brother, others risk their lives just to get some peace and quiet, yet you're the only one actively looking for work. You really are one of a kind in this world. Lying around and taking it easy is comfortable, sure, but it gets boring after a while. You've got to find something to pass the time. Qian Zunzong casually picked up the topmost memorial, opened the cover, and scanned the contents at a glance. After reading it, he froze on the spot, his lips twitching. Noticing his strange expression, Qian Daoliu casually asked, "What does the memorial say?" Qian Zunzong held up the document and read it aloud with a laugh. To His Holiness the Supreme Pontiff, a report from the manager of the Spirit Sub-Hall in Qingqi town of the western border. Long ago, a 3-ring spirit elder in our town keeps a 100-year-old ground pig spirit beast at home. This beast digs up the neighbors' vegetable gardens every day at dawn, eating dozens of spiritual plants. The neighbors have been arguing for half a month to no avail. We humbly request the Supreme Pontiff to issue a decree to regulate domestic low-level spirit beasts, along with a compensation plan. As soon as he finished speaking, Qian Zunji burst out laughing on the spot, while Qian Daliu propped his head in his hand, looking thoroughly exhausted. Even trivial matters like this have to be reported to the Supreme Pontiff Palace. The local sub-halls can handle it themselves. Why do I need to personally sign off on it? Qian Daliu took up his brush, wrote an annotation at the end of the document, ordering the local manager to mediate the matter themselves, compensate for the loss of the spiritual plants, and strictly control domestic spirit beasts. Qian Zunzong grew intrigued and opened several memorials in succession. The more he read, the more ridiculous he found them, reading them out one after another. A memorial from Fengsha City in the northern border. A joint petition from the owners of Spirit Master taverns in the city states that a spirit saint drinks without moderation, and every time he gets drunk, he releases his spirit pressure, shattering the tavern's tables and chairs. The shop owners dare not step forward to demand compensation, so they beg the Supreme Pontiff to issue regulations restricting spirit masters of spirit saint level and above from drinking outside. A memorial from Nanhei Fishing Village. Fishermen spirit masters are catching light-scale fish, but a 1,000-year-old water python spirit beast on the shore steals their catch every day. The fishermen dare not fight back and request the Supreme Pontiff Palace to dispatch spirit masters to guard the riverbanks. And this one, a petition from a teacher at a suburban academy. After awakening their spirits, lower-grade children run around everywhere, destroying flower beds and chasing and biting the poultry of ordinary citizens. They humbly request the Supreme Pontiff to issue a document on disciplining children. Case after case, file after file, they were all trivial, hilarious, and absurd matters from various places. On the massive table, among the thousands of memorials, the vast majority were insignificant matters of this kind. Documents truly concerning sect conflicts, abnormal spirit beast movements, or territorial disputes were few and far between. Qian Zunji, who had been drowsy earlier, was now completely awake. Holding the files, he laughed so hard he couldn't stand up straight, occasionally pulling out a bizarre memorial to hand to Qian Zunzong as the two brothers teased each other. Ahaha, this is hilarious. Your Holiness the Supreme Pontiff, she got married, but unfortunately, the groom isn't me. This one is even more bizarre. Has Your Holiness the Supreme Pontiff ever married? I have a daughter, aged 88. Ha ha ha. Quote. Qian Daliu had patiently annotated them one by one at first, but after dealing with a pile of trivial matters for half an hour straight, the veins on his temples throbbed, and his patience was completely exhausted. You two, stop just laughing. Come over and lend a hand, let's review them together. Qian Daliu rubbed his throbbing temples and pushed a medium-sized stack of files between the two of them. Qian Zunzong had originally come to look for work on his own accord, but now, looking at the mountain-like pile of memorials, his regrets instantly turned his face green. However, since the words had already left his mouth, he could only brace himself and pick up a jade brush. Qian Zunji had a bitter face, wailing as he sorted through the memorials. I originally just wanted to take a quick nap on the table, only to be startled awake by you kicking the door open for no reason. Now I even have to work overtime with you. Little brother, you really are my dear brother. The three of them divided the labor. Qian Daliu handled documents related to major sects and borders, Qian Zunji sorted and categorized ordinary memorials, and Qian Zunzong was responsible for annotating the trivial matters of the common folk. Chapter 23, Seeking an Errand. At first, Qian Zunzong found it novel, but after reviewing documents for 2 consecutive hours, his wrists ached, his eyes felt strained, and the Yuheng Xie crystal beast in his arms had fallen asleep on the table. He picked up a new memorial, the content of which was even more absurd. A spirit master from the eastern region Medicinal Valley was cultivating century-old medicinal herbs, but a neighboring spirit master's fire-type spirit was baking the medicinal field with high temperatures during daily cultivation, causing the loss of a large batch of herbs. The two parties were deadlocked and had sent a memorial over thousands of miles, requesting the Supreme Pontiff to adjudicate. For such a small matter, can't the two of them negotiate privately? Must they run all the way to Spirit Hall to submit a memorial? Qian Zunzong put down his brush, sighed deeply, slumped in his chair, and completely lost his sense of novelty. Qian Daliu glanced at him, saw through his thoughts, and said indifferently, who was just clamoring for work earlier. Now you find it dull. I thought it would be something major, like reorganizing a sector patrolling a city. Who knew it would all be trivial matters like neighborly squabbles or spirit beasts stealing vegetables? It's extremely boring, even more dull than fishing at the villa. Qian Zunzong waved his hand, his face full of disdain. Beside him, Qian Zunji chimed in repeatedly, exactly. Dealing with these miscellaneous tasks every day has me almost balding. Whoever loves this job as Supreme Pontiff can have it. I just want to return to Luokan Pavilion for seclusion. Watching his two sons acting so lazy, Qian Daliu was both annoyed and amused. After a moment of contemplation, a suitable errand came to mind, one that could occupy Qian Zunzong's time without trapping him in the palace to review memorials, while also aligning with the current renovation plans of Spirit Hall. He put down the jade brush in his hand and said slowly, since you find reviewing documents in the palace dull, I will arrange a field assignment for you. Qian Zunzong straightened up instantly, his eyes lighting up. What mission? Patrolling the 7 great sects, or heading to the far north to survey spirit beasts? Neither. Qian Daliu shook his head and explained, Spirit Hall has many supporting mimetic cultivation grounds under its jurisdiction. The cultivation secret realms, spirit gathering valleys, and elemental cultivation platforms of various branch halls and affiliated academies have been eroded by the spirit power of spirit masters for years. The formations and spiritual materials have suffered severe wear and tear, the spirit gathering effects of many sites have been greatly reduced, and some floors and protective formation walls have cracked and been damaged. Your task is to take full responsibility for the renovation, reconstruction, and upgrading of all mimetic cultivation environments at Wahan Academy in Spirit City. Qian Zunzong was slightly stunned. The errand didn't sound dangerous, but it was trivial and complicated. He asked, what exactly does it entail? First, personally go to all sites awaiting repair for on-site inspection, record every damaged location, the extent of formation wear, and the quantity of missing spiritual materials, then compile a complete inspection file and submit it to the Supreme Pontiff Palace for filing. Second, coordinate with the exclusive engineering department of Spirit Hall to manage craftsmen, materials, and construction schedules, and finalize the reconstruction plans for each site. Collect and melt down old, discarded spiritual materials for reuse, and apply for new spirit gathering ores and light pattern formation plates through the engineering department. Third, supervise the entire renovation process, ensuring that the mimetic formations are laid according to standards and that the spirit gathering effects are restored or even exceed their original levels. Upon completion, conduct inspections one by one, issue inspection documents, and personally verify and sign off on all accounts, material lists, and craftsman remunerations. Qian Daliu paused and added, the manager of the engineering department is an 8-ring spirit Douluo with thousands of craftsmen under his command, most of whom are proficient in formations, architecture, spiritual materials, and forging. If you have any disagreements regarding material allocation or construction scheduling, discuss them directly with him. If you cannot make up your mind, come back to the Supreme Pontiff Palace to find me. The entire renovation project has a relaxed schedule and only needs to be completed within 6 months, which is enough for you to kill plenty of leisure time. It won't be as dull as reviewing memorials, and you can walk around and relax. Qian Zunji listened from the side, secretly rejoicing. This errand was complicated and energy-consuming, perfect for dumping onto his bored younger brother, and he finally wouldn't have to work overtime to deal with trivial matters. After listening, Qian Zunzong felt a complex mix of emotions. He had hoped for an impressive field mission, but it turned out to be supervising construction, coordinating with the engineering department to reconcile accounts, and surveying sites. It sounded incredibly tedious, but since he had been the one to ask for work, he had no way to refuse now. Dad, can't you change it to a lighter task? Qian Zunzong attempted to bargain. Qian Daoliu crossed his arms over his chest, assuming the dignified manner of the Supreme Pontiff. You were the one who broke into the Supreme Pontiff Palace asking for an errand. Now that the task is arranged, you are being picky. Either accept this renovation coordination task or stay here and review memorials with me and your elder brother every day for the next 6 months. Choose one. Thinking of the mountain of bizarre memorials he had just seen, Qian Zunzong shivered and immediately raised his hands in surrender. I choose to renovate the mimetic grounds. I'll coordinate with the engineering department. I'll do the site surveys, supervision, and accounting. Beside him, Qian Zunji held back his laughter until his shoulders shook uncontrollably. Fearing he would be grabbed by Qian Daoliu to share the task, he could only lower his head and pretend to organize files. Seeing his surrender, a subtle, imperceptible smile tugged at the corners of Qian Daoliu's mouth. He casually took out an exclusive coordination token from his storage spirit tool and pushed it toward Qian Zunzong. This is the chief renovation token. With this token, all personnel in spirit halls, branch halls, and the engineering department must cooperate with your work. You can set off early tomorrow morning. First, go to the engineering department in the east of the city to coordinate with the manager, receive the material list and craftsman roster, and then go to each mimetic cultivation ground one by one for on-site inspection. Qian Zunzong picked up the cold, gilded token and tucked it into his robes. The Yuheng Xie crystal beast in his arms poked its little head out and nuzzled his neck, as if comforting him. Fine, at least I can leave the Supreme Pontiff Palace and won't have to look at memorials about neighborly squabbles every day. That counts as a good thing. He stood up, stretched widely, and looked at Qian Daoliu. All right, I'll go to the engineering department to coordinate tomorrow, and I'll send people back to the Supreme Pontiff Palace periodically to report on the follow-up inspection and renovation progress. Qian Daoliu nodded and waved his hand, signaling that he could leave. Qian Zunzong turned to leave. Just as he reached the palace door, Qian Daoliu's instruction came from behind. Remember, do not be casual or lax when coordinating with the engineering department. You must carefully verify the accounts for spiritual materials. There must be no shortages or instances of embezzlement. If anything goes wrong, you will still have to return to review memorials every day as punishment. Got it. Qian Zunzong waved his hand, lifted his foot lightly, and this time, not daring to kick the door again, he pushed the palace door open gently and walked out. The palace returned to silence. Qian Zunji finally couldn't help but burst into laughter. Father, you really have a way. You sent this restless brat off to supervise construction work. Now no one will be breaking into the Supreme Pontiff Palace to cause trouble every day. Looking at the files, which were now more than half gone, Qian Daoliu let out a long sigh of relief and picked up his jade brush again, his eyes filled with relief. This child is energetic and cannot sit still. If I don't find him some complicated, trivial matters to temper his temperament, who knows what kind of trouble he might cause in the future. This renovation task requires running around and coordinating with people, which is just right to temper his restless and playful nature. Outside the window, Qian Zunzong stood beside the cloud-step Fuguang carriage, holding the Yuheng Xie crystal beast, and sighed helplessly as he gazed at the stretches of Spirit Hall's affiliated cultivation valleys in the distance. He had wanted to find a dashing errand to pass the boredom, but in the end, he had become a chief construction site supervisor, and he would have to deal with the engineering department, reconcile accounts, and conduct surveys every day. For the next 6 months, he was afraid he would no longer be able to peacefully lie around, fish, or stroll through the mountains. Chapter 24, Heading to Wahan Academy, signing in again. Just as dawn was breaking, a wave of despair and resentment drifted out of Juyun residence in Chang'an Villa. Qian Zunzong was slumped on the large icebox fur couch, his eyelids feeling as heavy as if they were welded shut. Xiao Jing was squished into a ball beneath him, its little paw scratching at his chin as it let out a pitiful whimper. Don't rush me, let me sleep for another half hour. That pile of bizarre memorials from the Supreme Pontiff Palace nearly ruined my hands from writing last night. Just thinking about those ridiculous documents made Qian Zunzong's head throb. A 100-year-old groundhog digging up a neighbor's spiritual vegetable garden, a spirit saint getting drunk and smashing a tavern's tables and chairs, our lower-grade spirit children chasing and biting farmers' poultry. Qian Daoliu had given him a direct choice. Either spend the whole day at the Wahan Main Academy acting as a contractor to inspect the construction sites, or sit in the Grand Hall every day for the next 6 months to mediate disputes between neighboring spirit masters. Choosing the lesser of two evils, the construction site at least allowed him to go out and slack off, which was far better than staying indoors to deal with trivial domestic squabbles. Shenyi had long been waiting outside with 10 imperial guards. They all kept a low profile, stealthily following behind so as not to steal their young master's spotlight. As for Gui Mei and Yu Guan, they had been caught slacking off yesterday by Mo Heng and were punished with copying the words of the sages 500 times. Right now, they were probably crying while riding by the galaxy waterfall. The world was wonderfully quiet, and his ears were finally spared from the torment of their voices. Qian Zunzong casually threw on a loose gold-patterned brocade robe, stuffed his pockets with spiritual fruits, and stepped onto the cloud-step Fuguang carriage while holding the sleepy Xiao Jing. Compared to Qian Daoliu's old-fashioned carriage that would rattle one's buttocks to pieces, this three-terrain jade carriage was practically a mobile luxury bedroom. Slumping onto the soft lounge chair, he casually picked up the inspection list sent by the engineering department, his face sinking the more he read. The shallow layer worn jade tiles were completely cracked, the mid-layer secret realm's earth veins had grown crooked, and the spiritual energy of the arrays in the Holy Light Valley was depleted. Over a dozen cultivation grounds were practically in need of hazardous building renovation. It turned out he was just a temporary general contractor for the Spirit Hall today. Speeding along smoothly, the Wahan Main Academy, spanning 10,000 acres, soon came into view. The vermilion gates stood 10 jong high, and the two seraphim stone statues at the entrance looked incredibly majestic. However, the students on the plaza completely ruined the solemn atmosphere. On the martial arts arena, the youth sparring showed no restraint, with shockwaves flying everywhere and the clamor audible from far away. As the cloud-step Fuguang carriage landed steadily, 2 5-ring Spirit King guards immediately stepped forward, preparing to strictly interrogate the outsiders with stern faces. Qian Zunzong didn't bother to waste words. Shenyi flashed the angel token, and a golden angelic holy light burst forth. The second young master is present. Why have you not bowed? Hearing this, the 2 guards instantly bent their waists 90 degrees. Greetings, second young master. No need for formalities. Notify the engineering department's accompanying team to gather here, and call the academy's instructors in charge of the mimic cultivation environments to accompany us on the inspection. As soon as he finished speaking, a large crowd of people in work clothes rushed over from the side of the plaza. It was a 6-ring Spirit Emperor foreman from the Spirit Hall's engineering department, followed by over 20 artisans. Each held a soul tool notebook, fully equipped with ink, brushes, and measurement tools, a veritable professional construction inspection dream team. The foreman led the entire team in a neat bow. The entire first team of the engineering department's inspection team awaits the chief's orders. Qian Zunzong waved his hand. Disperse along the entire line. Mark every single array crack and point of depleted spiritual energy with absolute precision. If even one is missed, no one eats dinner tonight. The artisans instantly braced themselves, holding up their jade tablets in readiness. Xiaojing poked its head out from his arms, looking around curiously, its soft fur swaying. Passing students wanted to come over and pet it, but seeing the row of uniformed artisans, they chickened out on the spot and only dared to peek from afar. The group walked inward along the main path. The spirit-gathering light elms on both sides of the road looked ethereal, but they were actually pure ornaments. The guiding instructor complained. Alas, young master, although they look golden and glittering on the surface, their roots underneath have long been drained dry. The students get absolutely no channeling effect from walking past them. They are nice to look at but completely useless. Qian Zunzong squatted down, sending a wisp of adjudication holy light into the ground, clearly revealing the withered spiritual root networks underneath. Record everything thoroughly, dig them up and replace them with high-quality spiritual plants, and repave a chain of spirit-gathering arrays underground. If it still looks like this the next time I come, the engineering department manager will be renovated along with these trees. The nearby artisan scribbled furiously to record the details, not daring to slack off even a bit. The first stop was the shallow layer enlightenment spirit-gathering ground. Regardless of attribute, the entire warm jade ground was crisscrossed with cracks, and the spirit-gathering runes had faded to the point of being almost invisible. The thin natural energy dissipated faster than flowing water. Several lower-grade youths sat cross-legged, their little faces flushed red from straining, looking as if they were in a breath-holding contest. The people from the engineering department immediately dispersed, dividing the work to measure the damaged areas and test the residual energy. Their notebooks were densely packed with calculated figures. Xiaojing hopped down from his arms to wander around. Once its innate purification domain unfurled, the turbid air in the area was instantly cleared. The suffocating youths had just felt comfortable for half a second when they turned and saw the crowd of recording artisans, instantly sitting up straight and not daring to make a fuss. The second location was the mid-layer earth vein, specifically for earth attribute spirit elders to cultivate. Upon entering the cave, a gust of cool, turbid air blew in. The earth vein's diversion runes had grown completely crooked, and the barrier protecting against turbidity was utterly ruined. In the entire cave, only a small area near the entrance had sufficient spiritual energy, making the students' meditation look like a scramble for prime real estate. The academy's dean rushed over, his face filled with helplessness as an 89th rank titled Douluo. The foreman led his men into every corner of the cave, registering the damaged rock walls, shifted earth veins, and ruined arrays. Just the estimated materials filled 3 whole pages. Qian Zunzong casually finalized the renovation plan, which the engineering staff recorded in real time without the slightest delay. They went straight to the academy's trump-card cultivation ground, Holy Light Valley. Surrounded by mountains on all sides, it should have had a continuous flow of sun and moon holy light. Now, however, several large holes were torn in the sky above, the array runes at the bottom of the valley were dim and lusterless, and the spiritual energy was as thin as watered-down spiritual tea. Quite a few genius students were already packing their bags, preparing to leave and find another place to cultivate. Seriously, so many mimic cultivation facilities are unusable now, and no one is even repairing them. Could my dad be an incompetent ruler? Qian Zunzong walked alone to the center of the valley. Looking around at the ruined environment, his heart stirred, and he silently called out to the system, sign in at Wuhan Academy. Ding, detected that the host is at Wuhan Academy. Sign in successful. Cool down for this location, 1 year. Sign in reward, complete top-tier Spirit Master Academy Foundation Generation Authority. Explanation, construct an academy with a single click on any open land on the continent. A complete set of cultivation secret realms, a giant martial arts arena, a library, Arab garden, a forging workshop, a soul tool academy, and staff quarters will be automatically generated. It comes with its own circulating spirit-gathering earth veins, arrays, spiritual materials, and supporting artisans all in one go, allowing you to start running the school immediately. Qian Zunzong almost burst out laughing on the spot. Previously, he had been planning to build an academy for his own faction, and he had been having a headache over a mountain of troubles like clearing mountains, finding spiritual veins, and recruiting spirit masters. Now, he had obtained a top-tier, fully equipped academy for free. It was practically a slacker's welfare package dropped from the heavens. In the future, the Imperial Guards could filter orphan geniuses or other talents, the Adjudication Knights would handle security, the duo of Yu Guan and Gui Mei could focus on further training, and Shen Wanson and Yishen would set up supporting trading firms. A complete closed-loop faction would be formed directly, and he would no longer have to depend on the Spirit Hall for everything. It was absolutely amazing. Young Master, the Holy Light Valley is the most difficult to repair. The consumption of high-grade light attribute spiritual materials is extremely large, and ordinary artisans cannot repair the core array runes, the foreman reported as he stepped forward holding a thick stack of documents, his brow furrowed. Qian Zunzong forced down his ecstasy and put on the air of a steady contractor, record everything in the files. I will allocate the top-tier spiritual materials and resources, and then request the elders of the hall to personally carve the runes again. Once completed, the spirit gathering effect must be doubled. The artisans immediately revised the renovation plan, frantically adding to the estimated material consumption. All 4 core mimic cultivation grounds had been inspected, and the jade recording tablets of the 20-odd people from the engineering department were packed full. The foreman collected and packed them all, intending to take them back to the workshop to compile a complete construction plan. Xiaojing lay quietly by the table nibbling on a spiritual fruit, behaving well and not causing any trouble. After the meal, they only made a brief stop at the Western Spirit Lake, simply finalizing the renovation plans for several small, peripheral cultivation platforms. The students by the lake were fishing or meditating individually, without disturbing the inspection team. Leaning against the corridor railing, Qian Zunzong pondered the location for the new academy. He planned to find a paradise far away from the 2 great empires, nestled against mountains and rivers, build a city, generate his exclusive academy with a single click, appoint Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan as the dean, and act as a hands-off boss himself. As the setting sun slowly descended, all inspection tasks were successfully completed. The engineering department team departed first with a massive amount of records to prepare the materials. Qian Zunzong bid farewell to the academy's management and boarded the cloud-step Fuguang carriage while holding the drowsy, dozing Xiaojing. As the jade carriage soared into the air, Qian Zunzong looked down at the massive Wuhan Academy below. He had originally thought this would be a tedious and painful construction site inspection, but he hadn't expected to easily snag the construction rights for a complete, top-tier academy. This field trip today was an absolute steal. Chapter 25. Speaking of reasoning, I'll reason with him. Exactly 5 days had passed since the completion of Wuhan Academy's inspection. Every day when he had nothing to do, Qian Zunzong would glance at the academy's construction site, only to find his brow twitching wildly and his anger flaring up. The construction site was still a complete mess. The floor tiles were cracked like spiderwebs, the spirit gathering array was completely dead, and weeds on the ground had grown half a person tall. Let alone starting repairs, the engineering department hadn't even sent a single broom. It turned out all his busy work on the inspection records was a complete waste of effort. The engineering department simply slacked off and lay flat on the spot, letting everything go in one ear and out the other, completely treating the Supreme Pontiff's orders as wind past their ears. Beneath the corridors of Shangyan Villa, a warm breeze blew gently. Qian Zunzong slumped on a white jade lounge chair, holding the soft Yuheng crystal beast in his arms and stroking the little beast's snow white fur with his fingertips. His originally pleasant mood of slacking off was completely ruined by the construction site slacking. Ridiculous. The approvals are done, the blueprints are submitted, and both the money and authority have been fully granted, yet the engineering department is just playing dead. Qian Zunzong rolled his eyes and couldn't help but complain, are employees so arrogant these days? Taking a salary from Spirit Hall, slacking off, drinking, and not doing any work, yet they dare to stall this young master's project. Standing solemnly nearby in black robes, Shen Yi bowed and stepped forward, handing over a scroll of secret reports from the Imperial Guards. His tone carried a hint of sarcasm. My lord, the Imperial Guards have cleared up the situation. Supervisor Su Jian of the engineering department is intentionally stalling the construction schedule. Qian Zunzong opened the secret report and scanned it rapidly, finding it more and more amusing the more he read. On the surface, the reason was high-sounding. The department's stock of century-old spiritual plants was critically low, insufficient to support the repair of the array, so they requested a temporary delay of the construction schedule. The actual truth was straightforward and hilarious. While the engineering department indeed had very few top-grade spirit-gathering spiritual plants, they could still produce them. However, they were all Supervisor Su Jian's beloved treasures that he had nurtured for half his life, and he couldn't bear to use them up. To put it bluntly, he was just protecting his own flowers and plants. He would rather stop work on the entire construction site than touch a single one of his treasures, venting his personal temper on public duties and intentionally making things difficult for the young master. Incredible, slacking off at work, wasting public funds, and daring to stall my project just for a few pots of green plants. Qian Zunzong sneered, the laziness in his eyes completely fading, replaced by an aura that made it clear he was not to be messed with. Does he think Spirit Hall is his own backyard? A public project, and he's still dividing it into yours and mine. Shen Yi took the opportunity to twist the knife, delivering precise intelligence. What's even more ridiculous is that this man has been absent from work for 5 days. Right now, he is in a top-tier private room at Wangyu Pavilion in the city, feasting on meat, drinking, and bragging with his subordinates, completely ignoring the construction site's survival. The construction site is waiting in full swing for work, while the supervisor is drinking and bragging in a private room. Qian Zunzong stood up, gently placed the little Xie crystal beast on the lounge chair, and cracked his wrists with a crisp sound, a gentle smile on his face. Fine, since he doesn't have time to come to the construction site to coordinate the work, I will pay him a personal visit. A friendly heart-to-heart talk to reason with him properly. Shen Yi, summon Gui Mei and Yu Guan to accompany me to Wangyu Pavilion. Shen Yi replied expressionlessly, understood, accompanying the young master to pay a visit and reason with him. Both of them knew very well in their hearts. The reasoning the young master spoke of was basically reasoning with his fists. At the same time, inside the Supreme Pontiff Palace, sandalwood incense curled upward, and the atmosphere was filled with helplessness and a touch of naivety. Qian Daliu stared at the black and white work stoppage application on the table, holding his forehead with a face full of worry, looking just like a big boss given a headache by a disobedient employee. Nearby, Qian Zunji sat on the side with his legs crossed, cracking melon seeds and complaining wildly, his face full of gossip enjoying expressions. Dad, this Supervisor Su Jian is simply a parasite of Spirit Hall. Relying on his ability to nurture spiritual plants and understand arrays, he slacks off every day, repeatedly stalling the project's progress, having absolutely no respect for the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Why not just lock him up in a dark room and punish him severely? Qian Daliu let out a helpless sigh, his face filled with a saint's dilemma, perfectly illustrating what it meant for a powerhouse to have his hands and feet bound by his own gentlemanly principles. How could I not want to? But as a descendant of the angel god and the Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall, I must act uprightly and with a righteous cause. Supervisor Su Jian is only hoarding materials, and materials are indeed scarce, and slacking off, which isn't extremely serious. He's just slacking off, drinking, and lying flat. He hasn't colluded with the enemy or rebelled, so there is no concrete major crime. If I rashly move against him, many in the hall will surely gossip, saying I cannot tolerate meritorious officials. If word gets out, it will damage the reputation of our angel lineage. If Qian Zunzong were here and heard his father's words, he would definitely complain, what a fucking hypocrite. Qian Zunji, indeed. This old fox has precisely grasped my weakness of cherishing my reputation and being unwilling to punish meritorious officials without cause. That is why he dares to lie flat and slack off so unscrupulously, holding the entire engineering department hostage. At this point, a motherly look of gratification instantly lit up in Qian Daliu's eyes, and he even began to picture it in his mind, saying with absolute certainty. However, Zunzong is clever and transparent. Though young, he is mature and steady. When he goes to find Supervisor Su Jian later, he will surely reason with him gently, appealing to his emotions and logic. He will settle the trouble without even lifting a finger, keeping things decent and thorough, perfectly preserving the face of Spirit Hall. Hearing this, the melon seeds in Qian Zunji's mouth sprayed all over the floor. His shoulders shook violently as he held back his laughter to the point of internal injury, complaining wildly in his heart. Mature and steady, reasoning gently, decent and thorough. Expecting my brother to sit down and have a nice chat about rules is less likely than expecting the clear sky hammer to turn into a marshmallow. But he didn't dare shatter his father's beautiful fantasy. He could only bow his head and try hard to suppress his laughter, silently dedicating the song, Coldness, to Supervisor Su Jian in Wangyu Pavilion, along with a pig head package. Wangyu Pavilion, the top floor heaven room number 1. Inside the private room, the aroma of wine and meat filled the air, with a table fully laden with delicacies. 4 engineering department officials were clinking glasses, their faces flushed red from drinking, and their boasting almost blew the roof off. In the seat of honor, Supervisor Su Jian was flushed red from drinking, his head held high with his nostrils almost pointing to the sky. With a face full of disdain, he wildly disparaged the young master, becoming more and more arrogant as he spoke. Just a 6-year-old toddler. He was just lucky to be born as the second young master of the Qian family. Does he really think he can cover the sky with one hand? His hair hasn't even fully grown, yet he dares to interfere in the affairs of our engineering department. Those spiritual plants of mine are my life's blood, which I have nurtured as treasures for decades, watering and caring for them every day, even more attentively than raising my own son. Using them to repair the academy grounds is a complete waste of talent and resources. I'm intentionally stopping work and slacking off. His Holiness the Supreme Pontiff cherishes his reputation and won't dare to touch me. Can a mere brat of a young master eat me alive? The 3 sycophantic subordinates beside him flattered him wildly, their praises flying everywhere. Supervisor, you are mighty. The young master is young and ignorant, he doesn't understand the hardships of cultivating spiritual plants at all. We'll just keep slacking off and drinking. Anyway, no one above dares to punish us. Everyone was boasting so much that they completely lost track of themselves, not hearing the footsteps gradually approaching outside the door at all. They had no idea that the 6-year-old toddler they spoke of had already arrived at their doorstep with a reasoning package. The next second. Boom. A deafening roar shook the heavens and earth as the entire thick solid wood door was violently kicked to pieces. Wood chips splattered everywhere, door fragments slammed directly onto the wall, and all the wine and food on the table were sent flying, spilling all over the floor. The noisy private room fell into an instant, dead silence. Everyone's drinking actions froze midair as they stared at the doorway in utter bewilderment. Qian Zunzong stood with his hands behind his back, his youthful posture lazy yet exuding an overbearing aura. Behind him, Shen Yi, Gui Mei, and Yu Guan stood in a single file, instantly maximizing the sense of oppression. Who dares to be so bold as to barge into my private room? Supervisor Su Jian's face darkened as he slapped the table and stood up, his spirit power instantly surging as he barked with fierce looks but inner weakness. Just as his voice fell, Shen Yi's eyes turned cold. Light erupted beneath his feet as 9 spirit rings emerged. The terrifying spirit power of a titled Douluo instantly sealed off the entire private room, forming a closed cage. The 4 people in the private room instantly went stiff, their spirit power completely locked down. It felt as though their entire bodies had been poured with cement, they couldn't move a single inch, and even opening their mouths to speak was a struggle. Supervisor Su Jian, who had been arrogant and domineering just a second ago, turned pale in an instant. His pride shattered on the spot, and his pupils contracted wildly. A titled Douluo is a personal bodyguard. This young master's entourage is simply too terrifying. Without giving him the slightest chance to beg for mercy, Qian Zunzong's figure flashed, leaving an afterimage as his speed peaked, and a clean, decisive flying kick landed precisely on Supervisor Su Jian's chest. PFF. Supervisor Su Jian spat out a mouthful of stale wine mixed with blood. He flew backward like a broken kite, crashing heavily into the wall behind him. The wall cracked with dense, spiderweb-like fractures. He curled up on the ground in excruciating chest pain, feeling as though several of his bones had broken. Taking a salary while slacking off, hoarding public materials, and defying orders from the hall. You indeed have quite some nerve. Qian Zunzong walked up to him slowly, looking down at the fallen Supervisor Su Jian, his tone flat and irritating. I originally planned to reason with you properly, but unfortunately, you wouldn't listen. So, we can only switch to another method of communication. With that, Qian Zunzong raised his foot, took off his shoe, aimed the sole at Supervisor Su Jian's swollen cheek, and slapped him again and again. Crisp, loud slapping sounds echoed through the private room. Motherfucker, how dare you stall my project? Smack smack smack. Fuck your. Smack smack smack. The sole of the shoe flew rapidly. The sound was crisp and stress-relieving, bringing immense satisfaction. Supervisor Su Jian tried to act tough at first, but after a few slaps from the shoe, his defense was completely shattered. Both cheeks quickly swelled up like steamed buns, blood dripped from the corners of his mouth, and his eyes were beaten so swollen they narrowed into slits. His originally neat facial features were completely deformed, turning him into a literal pighead, utterly wretched. His spirit power had been sealed by Shen Yi, so even if he wanted to resist, he couldn't. Young master, I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again. I'll start work immediately. I'll hand over all the spiritual plants. Please stop hitting me. Supervisor Su Jian wept and sniveled, kowtowing and begging for mercy. His previous arrogance had been completely slapped away by the shoe sole, and he regretted his actions to his very core. Seeing their supervisor being beaten publicly, the 3 subordinates nearby were both panicked and furious. Gritting their teeth against the pressure of a titled Douluo, they braced themselves to step forward and save him. But the moment they took half a step forward, the 2 underworld mood makers immediately blocked their path, maximizing both the sense of oppression and hilarity. Yu Guan instantly retracted his gentle, beautiful smile. He casually grabbed 2 bottles of fine wine from the table, smashed them with 2 loud clangs, and held the sharp glass shards. With his orchid finger curled, his sarcasm level was maxed out. Oh my, do you handsome brothers want to step up and help? What's the matter? Are you envious of your supervisor's happily acquired limited edition pig face? Would you like me to kindly give you all the same makeup, with free shipping included? Black mist billowed around Gui Mei. With a poker face and eerie lines, his hoarse voice rang out coldly. Don't move. Move an inch, and you won't be going home tonight. You'll stay right here in Manhua Pavilion as permanent decorations. One effeminate, one cold, the ultimate contrast. Coupled with Shen Yi standing motionless, his titled Douluo death aura with 9 rings suppressing the entire scene, the 3 subordinates' legs turned to jelly on the spot. They froze in place, not daring to budge even half a step. What a joke. Stepping up meant getting beaten up together. Who would want their perfectly fine face to be turned into a pig head? The entire room was dead silent, save for Supervisor Su Jian's intermittent groans of pain. Until half an incense stick's worth of time had passed. Qian Zunzong withdrew his foot, calmly wiped the dust off the sole of his shoe, and looked at Supervisor Su Jian, who looked like a pig head on the ground, his tone blunt and overbearing. Before dawn, all hoarded spiritual plants must be transported to the Academy's construction site. All craftsmen must report for duty on time and work through the night. If there is any further delay or hoarding, I won't bother the Supreme Pontiff. I will directly cripple all of your spirit power and throw you into the mines to dig rocks for the rest of your life. Do you understand? Understood. This subordinate will comply 100%. I wouldn't dare to be negligent in the slightest. Supervisor Su Jian nodded frantically while sprawling on the ground, terrified of receiving another blow from the shoe sole. Qian Zunzong didn't bother to spare another glance at this bunch of slackers. He waved his hand and turned around. Let's go. The group departed in a cool and elegant manner, leaving behind a complete mess in the private room. The remaining 4 were still in shock, no longer having the slightest desire to drink or brag. Chapter 26, Complaining Before the Throne, coming with shoe in hand. Not long after the incident at Wanyu Pavilion, the messenger guard returned to the Supreme Pontiff Palace with a complex expression to report the situation of the battle. Reporting to the Supreme Pontiff, after the second young master arrived at Wanyu Pavilion, he directly kicked open the private room door. The second young master personally took action, bringing guards to beat Supervisor Su Jian severely. The other party's face was severely swollen, and his original appearance could no longer be recognized at all. Throughout the whole process, he did not speak a word of reason. As his voice fell, the main hall became instantly silent. Qian Daliu's hand, holding the white jade wolf hairbrush, suddenly stiffened. The tip of the brush snapped with a crack, and ink splashed all over the table. He sat blankly on the Supreme Pontiff's throne, his eyes hollow, his face cracking, and the beautiful fantasy of a gentlemanly communication in his heart shattered into dust. The friendly negotiation, the logical reasoning, and the decent conclusion he had imagined in his head did not happen at all. His own son's entire approach was, don't listen to reason, don't talk about human sentiment, kick if they don't submit, and slap if they are stubborn. Beside him, Qian Zunji could no longer hold it in. He directly slapped the armrest of the throne and laughed out loud, laughing until he was swaying back and forth and tears were about to come out. Ha 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 ha, I told you. Dad, you still didn't believe me. Expecting my younger brother to listen to reason is 10,000 times harder than getting me to quit slacking off and honestly inherit the position of Supreme Pontiff. Qian Daliu was silent for a full half-minute. Looking at the broken brush and ink stains on the table, he sighed deeply while holding his forehead, looking helpless and ready to give up. Forget it, forget it. Although it was violent and rude, the curative effect is excellent. At the very least, he felt satisfied. He felt satisfied. From today on, Qian Zunzong is the Spirit Hall's top enforcer, I said so. ... The beating with the soul of a shoe at Wenyu Pavilion completely shattered the arrogance in Supervisor Su Jian's bones. However, this submission was never a sincere repentance, rather, it was because of the pressure from the titled Douluo behind Qian Zunzong, causing him to temporarily bow his head and yield. Tossing and turning all night without sleep, half of Supervisor Su Jian's cheek was highly swollen, his lips were broken and bruised, and his entire face remained hideous and ugly. Lying in bed at night, the more he thought about it, the more aggrieved he felt. He was the supervisor of the Spirit Hall's engineering department, holding command over thousands of craftsmen, proficient in formation repair and spiritual plant cultivation. He had served in the Spirit Hall for nearly 50 years, having worked hard and made significant contributions. Usually, even the major elders had to give him some face. Yet now, he had been kicked and injured by a 6-year-old child in public and slapped in the face with the sole of a shoe. He had never suffered such a great humiliation in his life. Coupled with the hard take over the rare spiritual plants he had treasured for half his life, which had to be handed over in their entirety for the construction site repairs, the resentment in Supervisor Su Jian's heart completely overwhelmed his fear. He was certain of one thing: the Supreme Pontiff Qian Daliu cherished his reputation and valued rules and decency in his actions. He would absolutely not tolerate a junior committing violence within the Supreme Pontiff Palace, nor would he watch idly as a meritorious official under his command was wantonly beaten and had his spirit power crippled. Last night, he had been ambushed by Qian Zunzong and had his spirit power locked by a titled Douluo, leaving him unable to resist. But today, with the Supreme Pontiff presiding over the main hall, Qian Zunzong would certainly not dare to be presumptuous. Having made up his mind, Supervisor Su Jian endured the soreness all over his body. After daybreak the next day, without even applying medicine to his wounds, he dragged his disheveled and miserable body straight to the central Supreme Pontiff Palace. He did not follow the order from last night to assemble the craftsmen to start work, nor did he transport even half a stock of his privately stored spiritual plants to the academy construction site. He slacked off to the end, hoping only to rely on the Supreme Pontiff to back him up, seek justice, and in turn, charge Qian Zunzong with the crime of bullying the weak and offending his superiors. ... Inside the Supreme Pontiff Palace, sandalwood incense curled, as solemn and quiet as usual. Qian Daliu sat upright on the supreme throne of the Supreme Pontiff, dressed in a golden sacred robe, full of majesty. He held a spiritual ink jade brush in his fingertips, bowing his head to calmly review the case files reported from various places, his expression indifferent and dignified. Qian Zunji sat bored on a side seat, supporting his chin with one hand, his eyelids half drooped as he slacked off and daydreamed. After hearing the guards report on the farce at Wenyu Pavilion yesterday, he was still secretly chuckling in his heart, waiting to see the subsequent show. Just at this moment, the sound of guards blocking someone came from outside the hall, followed immediately by a weak and aggrieved wail that resounded through the main hall. Supreme Pontiff, save me! I implore the Supreme Pontiff to uphold justice for his subordinate. The palace door was carefully pushed open a crack, and Supervisor Su Jian, with a bruised nose and swollen face, walking unsteadily, hunched his body as he walked into the main hall. His knees went soft, and he knelt heavily directly on the white jade floor tiles in the center of the hall, his forehead pressed hard against the ground, looking like he had suffered a great grievance. When he raised his head, his highly swollen cheeks on both sides were particularly eye-catching, dried blood stains at the corners of his mouth were clearly visible, his originally neat bun was messy and disheveled, and his clothes were wrinkled and torn, looking incredibly miserable. Qian Daliu's brush tip paused. He raised his eyes and glanced at him indifferently. He saw the injuries on the other party at a glance and understood instantly, but his face remained calm as he feigned confusion and spoke. Supervisor Su Jian, why are you in such a miserable state? What has happened? Seeing the Supreme Pontiff's gentle attitude, Supervisor Su Jian was overjoyed, knowing he had bet correctly. He immediately burst into tears, crying and wailing with snot and tears. Supreme Pontiff, this subordinate has been wronged. Yesterday, the second young master broke into Wenyu Pavilion without reason, regardless of right or wrong, ordered a titled Douluo elder to lock the spirit power of my group, and then personally beat the subordinate, humiliating me in public. This subordinate was only following procedures, reporting that the spiritual plant inventory was insufficient to postpone the construction schedule, fulfilling my duties diligently, and never had any intention of disobedience. But the second young master, relying on his noble status, wantonly bullied the subordinate and even threatened to cripple my spirit power and banish me to the mines for lifelong hard labor. This subordinate has been loyal to the Spirit Hall all my life, and half of my life's hard work has been spent on the engineering department and formation repairs. Even if there is no credit, there is still hard work. I beg the Supreme Pontiff to investigate clearly, severely punish the second young master for his act of bullying the weak, and return justice to the subordinate. The more he spoke, the more excited he became, his voice choked with sobs. He deliberately magnified his grievances and never mentioned his own passive work, private hoarding of public spiritual plants, or his behind-the-scenes mockery of the young master and disregard for the hall rules. He only wanted Qian Daliu to favor him and severely punish Qian Zunzong. Beside him, Qian Zunji's eyelids twitched wildly as he listened, secretly slandering, "You still have the nerve to feel aggrieved. It was clearly you who slacked off and stalled the project first. Getting beaten is not unjust at all. Now you still want to be the first to complain and frame the victim." Qian Daliu's expression was calm. He put down the jade brush in his hand, appearing as if he was about to ask for details, just when Supervisor Su Jian thought he was about to get justice. Boom. A deafening loud noise exploded. The heavy door of the Supreme Pontiff Palace was violently kicked open again by someone, shaking the entire hall slightly. The young man's lazy voice, carrying a hint of hostility, swept through the entire Supreme Pontiff Palace along with the gale. "Justice, I'd like to see who dares to distort the facts and stir up trouble in front of my dad." Qian Zunzong walked into the main hall with his hands behind his back, carrying the Yuheng Xie crystal beast on his shoulder. In his right hand, he was holding the shoe he had just used, the patterns on the sole clearly visible. One look and it was obvious it had just been used not long ago. It was obvious that he had just received intelligence from the Imperial Guards, learning that Supervisor Su Jian had not come to resume work but had instead run over to file a complaint. He had brought the weapon of the crime directly and charged all the way to the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Chapter 27, Double Beatdown. Quickly say thank you to me. Seeing Qian Zunzong standing at the door holding a shoe sole, exuding a freezing aura, Supervisor Su Jian, who was kneeling on the ground, shuddered violently. His face instantly turned as pale as paper, his previous grievances and confidence mostly vanishing in an instant as he instinctively shrank back. How did he get here so quickly? Qian Daoliu looked at his youngest son who had barged in. The corners of his eyes twitched slightly. He was already used to this in his heart, but on the surface, he still maintained the majesty of the Supreme Pontiff and spoke in a deep voice. Zonger, do not cause trouble. You must not behave presumptuously in the main hall. Although he spoke words of restraint, Qian Daoliu sat motionless on his throne the entire time. He even lowered his head slowly and picked up his memorials again, as if concentrating on official business, completely pretending not to hear the commotion below and closing his eyes to play dead. At the same time, an imperceptible, extremely condensed wisp of pale gold spirit power slipped silently from his sleeve. Like a gentle breeze sweeping across the floor, it instantly sealed all the spirit power meridians inside Supervisor Su Jian's body. This completely cut off any possibility of Supervisor Su Jian defending himself or circulating his spirit power for self-protection. Since this old fellow insisted on filing a complaint to cause trouble, he might as well go with the flow and let his son vent his anger. After all, the other party was in the wrong first, so he deserved to be beaten. Just as the spirit power was sealed, the chase below instantly began. You still dare to run to the Supreme Pontiff Palace to complain? Have you not had enough of last night's lesson? Qian Zunzong's eyes turned cold. Holding the shoe sole, he quickly stepped forward. Without a word, he raised his hand and delivered a barrage of slaps, the shoe sole landing precisely on Supervisor Su Jian's other intact cheek. The crisp slapping sounds were exceptionally jarring within the solemn and quiet Supreme Pontiff Palace. Supervisor Su Jian convulsed with pain. He wanted to circulate his spirit power to dodge and resist, but found that the spirit power in his body was completely stagnant, unable to be mobilized even a bit. He was left at the mercy of others like an ordinary person, and instantly cried out in despair. Your Holiness the Supreme Pontiff, help, quickly stop the second young master. Qian Daoliu turned a deaf ear. The speed at which he lowered his head to review the memorials even quickened a bit, wishing he could bury his head in the files. Operating on the principle of, out of sight, out of mind, he completely slacked off and ignored it. Seeing that Supervisor Su Jian was about to be hit again, Qian Zunji, who was nearby, immediately stood up. He quickly stepped forward, pretending to be flustered, while shouting loudly to stop them, fully playing the role of a good older brother. Brother, stop, you must absolutely not fight in the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Let's talk things out, don't be impulsive. Looking at Qian Zunji who stepped forward to stop the fight, a glimmer of hope ignited in Supervisor Su Jian's eyes, thinking that someone was finally pulling them apart and he could escape this ordeal. But in the next second, Qian Zunji rushed close. He seemingly reached out to grab Qian Zunzong's wrist, but in reality, he quietly stepped forward and stomped hard on Supervisor Su Jian's hem, preventing him from retreating or dodging even a bit. Oops. Immediately after, taking advantage of the gap while turning sideways to block, he thrust his elbow hard, precisely striking Supervisor Su Jian's ribs, and landed another hidden heavy punch on his back. Arg. Don't fight, let's talk things out. Bang. Every punch and kick landed squarely on Supervisor Su Jian's body. Yet, the angles were so tricky that it looked entirely as if he had hit him by accident, without showing the slightest flaw of failing to stop the fight. The two brothers cooperated with tacit understanding. One slapped with the shoe sole from the front, while the other secretly dealt blows from the side. Attacking from both front and back, they trapped Supervisor Su Jian firmly in place, leaving him with absolutely nowhere to run. Supervisor Su Jian's tears and snot flowed from the pain, and his bones felt as if they were falling apart. He cried out in a breakdown. Eldest young master, aren't you here to stop the fight? Why are you beating me too? Hearing this, Qian Zunji blinked in mock surprise. Then, with a friendly look, he bent down, leaned close to Supervisor Su Jian's ear, and lowered his voice, speaking in a sincere yet cruel tone, perfectly executing a move to add insult to injury. I'm actually helping you here, don't you know how to be grateful? If I hadn't stepped on you, my brother's next shoe slap would have hit your eye. I blocked the fatal damage and even helped absorb some of the force for you. Instead of thanking me, you're complaining about me. Hurry up, say, thank you, eldest young master, to me, or else I won't stop my brother anymore. After hearing these words, Supervisor Su Jian almost spat out a mouthful of old blood, his heart utterly collapsed. This was called helping. This was clearly the two brothers teaming up to gang up on him. And they were even forcing him to say thank you. How could there be such an absurd thing in this world? But with his spirit power sealed, he was firmly controlled by the two of them, leaving him with absolutely no room to resist. He could only endure the sharp pain, choked with emotion as he spoke aggrievedly. Thank you, eldest young master. Hearing this thank you, Qian Zunji nodded in satisfaction. Only then did he pretend to have finally pulled back Qian Zunzong's arm, shouting loudly. Alright, brother, calm down, any more beating will kill him, stop quickly. Qian Zunzong stopped his actions in response. Holding the shoe sole, he stared down coldly at Supervisor Su Jian, who was lying on the ground on his last breath, without a trace of pity in his eyes. Last night, I already gave you a chance to resume work and hand over the spiritual plants before dawn. It was you who ignored the order, refused to execute it, and turned around to come to the palace to make a false accusation first. I said before, if there's even a bit of delay or a bit of withholding, I will directly destroy your spirit power and throw you into the mines to dig stones for the rest of your life. I always keep my word. As his voice fell, an extremely pure wisp of golden divine flame of judgment ignited on Qian Zunzong's fingertips. The holy and overbearing energy instantly enveloped Supervisor Su Jian's entire body. No, your holiness, save me. Supervisor Su Jian's face was deathly pale as he frantically cried out to Qian Daoliu on the throne for help. Only at this moment did Qian Daoliu finally put down his memorials. He got up in mock haste, wanting to stop it, but his movements were leisurely, deliberately a beat too slow. By the time he took a step, the golden divine flame had already surged into Supervisor Su Jian's dantian, instantly tearing apart all of his spirit power origin and completely destroying his spirit foundation. Ah! A shrill, desperate scream echoed through the hall. Supervisor Su Jian's eyes rolled back, and the strength in his entire body was instantly drained. He was completely reduced to an ordinary person without a shred of spirit power, slumping to the ground, no longer having any power to resist. Qian Daoliu sighed in mock helplessness, waved his hand, and ordered the guards outside the hall. Someone, drag Supervisor Su Jian down and send him to the mines for hard labor. The guards immediately stepped forward and dragged the limp, unconscious Supervisor Su Jian directly out of the Supreme Pontiff Palace, like dragging a dead dog. The hall finally returned to silence. Qian Daoliu looked at the empty floor of the hall, shook his head helplessly, and looked at his two sons. With a look of regret on his face, he sighed softly. Zonger, you are still too impulsive in your actions. Supervisor Su Jian is proficient in spiritual plant cultivation and formation repair, making him an irreplaceable talent in the engineering department. Now that you have destroyed his spirit power, there will be no one to take over the subsequent repairs of the Wahan Academy's mimic cultivation environment, the blending of high-level spiritual plants, and the re-engraving of formations. The construction period can only be delayed again, which is no small trouble. You should have waited until he finished his work before destroying him. Qian Zunji, who was nearby, also instantly retracted his smile as realization dawned on him. That was right, Supervisor Su Jian was the only one in the engineering department who was proficient in repairing high-level spirit gathering arrays and maintaining rare spiritual plants. Now that he was ruined, there was absolutely no one left to use on the construction site. But the moment Qian Daliu finished speaking, Qian Zunzong directly raised his hand to stop his next words, a calm and confident smile playing on the corners of his lips. Delayed, no need. Qian Zunzong spoke calmly, his eyes full of confidence. The mere repair of the mimic cultivation environment and the vacancy in spiritual plants and formations are not difficult tasks for me at all. Without Supervisor Su Jian, not only will the project not be delayed, but it can actually be completed ahead of schedule. Qian Daliu was slightly taken aback and looked at Qian Zunzong in confusion. You have a solution. Re-engraving top-tier spirit gathering arrays, repairing depleted ley lines, and providing exclusive spiritual plants adapted to the cultivation grounds are not things that can be replaced by just finding a few craftsmen. Qian Zunzong smiled without saying a word, looked at Qian Daliu, and spoke calmly. Don't worry Tilda, just leave this matter to me. By the way, now that Supervisor Su Jian is ruined, you can deal with his subordinates as you see fit, Dad. I'm leaving Tilda. After saying this, Qian Zunzong picked up Xiao Jing, turned around, and left the hall. Looking at the back of his youngest son leaving, Qian Daliu laughed and scolded, Stinky brat, you're actually ordering your dad around now. A smile of satisfaction appeared on Qian Daliu's lips again. After a moment, he spoke. Those who were associated with Supervisor Su Jian that day, no need to investigate, ruin them all and exile them. Yes, Your Holiness. Chapter 28, Spirit Plant Base, Top-Tier Array Master. Walking out of the solemn and majestic Supreme Pontiff Palace, the warm sunlight spilled onto his body. Qian Zunzong casually tossed aside the shoes in his hands and brushed off the non-existent dust. In his arms, the Yuheng Xie crystal beast, Xiao Jing, lazily rubbed against his neck and let out a tiny yawn. The iconic scene from earlier in the Great Hall, where the two brothers engaged in a mixed doubles beatdown while Qian Daliu secretly went easy on them and watched the show, had completely concluded. Supervisor Su Jian, whose spirit power had been crippled, had already been dragged off to the mines by guards. He would spend the rest of his life repenting while hauling stones in the dark, sunless mining tunnels, completely bidding farewell to the sea of spirit plants he had treasured for half his life. Qian Zunzong looked up at the clear sky, a faint smile playing on his lips. To be honest, dealing with Supervisor Su Jian was never a spur-of-the-moment decision. Passive aggression, contempt for the sect's rules, privately mocking the young master, and treating public resources as his own private property, every single one of these was a concrete transgression, and getting beaten was purely deserved. However, Qian Daliu's final words had enlightened him. Although Supervisor Su Jian had terrible character and was extremely selfish, one had to admit that he was a one-of-a-kind top talent in the Spirit Hall engineering department. His mastery of high-grade spirit gathering array engraving and rare spirit plant cultivation techniques was unmatched throughout the entire Spirit Hall engineering department. Now that he had been crippled, the construction site was completely leaderless. The craftsmen had plenty of strength but no one understood high-grade array layout or spirit plant ratios, and the renovation project was on the verge of coming to a complete standstill. Young master, where shall we go next? Shen Yi appeared from invisibility and asked in a low voice, bowing. His black clothes stirred without wind, and his aura was steady and piercing. Qian Zunzong tucked his hands into his sleeves and spoke nonchalantly. Let's go take a look at the spirit plant cultivation base. I want to see for myself what quality those spirit plants that Supervisor Su Jian treated as treasures really are, and whether it's truly as he said, that the inventory is tight and he couldn't produce the top-tier spirit plants needed for the Academy's renovations. He had always been a reasonable person. Beating someone was one thing, but facts still needed to be verified. If what Supervisor Su Jian said was true and top-tier spirit plants were indeed scarce in the sect's public treasury, then at most, the man was just too selfish and lazy, which didn't amount to deceiving his superiors. But if this guy was full of lies, hoarding massive amounts of spirit plants, and deliberately stalling the project, then crippling his spirit power just now would have been getting off lightly. Understood. Shen Yi nodded. The group boarded the cloud-step Fuguang carriage. The translucent white jade carriage rose into the air, avoiding the crowds in the city, and arrived at the mountain-encircled spirit plant base on the west side of Spirit City a moment later. This valley leaned against mountains and bordered a spring, with the underground naturally gathering thin, bright spirit energy. It was a secret valley specifically designated by Spirit Hall for the engineering department to cultivate spirit plants for training grounds. Usually, it was managed entirely by Supervisor Su Jian alone, with unauthorized personnel forbidden from entering. It was essentially Supervisor Su Jian's private backyard. Pushing open the barrier gate of the valley, what met their eyes were patches of mid to low-grade spirit plants growing decently well. Pale white spiritual light flickered, covering the entire terraced field. However, looking around, one could hardly see a few top-tier light attribute spirit plants capable of supporting the operation of a high-grade spirit gathering array. Qian Zunzong walked slowly along the spirit plant fields, occasionally letting a wisp of judgment holy light overflow from his fingertips to probe the grade of the spirit plants. The more he looked, the more he understood. Inside 3 sealed greenhouses deep in the valley, there were only 3,000-year spirit plants and 2 dew condensing flowers, that was all. These spirit plants could barely support the restoration of ordinary mid-grade training grounds. To restore the severely damaged Saint Light Valley at Wahan Academy or to reshape the top-tier chain spirit gathering arrays, this was completely a drop in the bucket, not even enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. Fine, the old guy didn't lie. Qian Zunzong spread his hands and admitted frankly, combined with the public treasury and his private cultivation base, the reserve of top-tier spirit plants is indeed severely insufficient. If it were anyone else, trying to make a meal with such scarce ingredients would indeed be difficult. But not lying didn't mean he was innocent. The lack of spirit plants was an objective difficulty, but he had treated scarce resources as his own private property, deliberately stalled the project, publicly defied the young master's orders, and wantonly mocked the Supreme Pontiff behind his back. Every single one of these was a capital offense. Getting beaten was not unjust at all. Xiao Jing jumped down from his arms and hopped around the spirit plant fields. Its purification domain quietly spread out, dispersing the small amount of turbid energy in the fields, causing the surrounding spirit plants to instantly grow a bit more vigorously. Qian Zunzong looked around the spirit-rich valley and said in his heart. System, sign in. Ding, detected that the host has arrived at the exclusive spirit plant cultivation secret valley. Sign in successful. Reward, 1 top-tier array master. This location cannot be signed in again. As the system prompt faded, a faint cyan ripple of array patterns appeared in the void in the center of the valley. A middle-aged man wearing a plain, cloud-patterned robe with a resolute face slowly stepped out from the void array gate. He held an ancient-looking brush that was translucent white all over and carved with fine cloud patterns. His eyes and brows were gentle, and layers of defensive array patterns swirled around him at all times. With every move, thousands of array patterns flowed spontaneously, and his aura was heavy and majestic, far surpassing that of Supervisor Su Jian, who had just been crippled. After landing, he did not hesitate in the slightest and bowed directly. Subordinate Ji Yu Jian greets the master. The next second, a complete character panel appeared directly before Qian Zunzong's eyes. Name, Ji Yu Jian. Age, 80, Spirit, Cloud Pattern Array Condensing Brush, Level, 96, Super Douluo, Title, Ancient Array, Spirit Ring, 2 yellow, 2 purple, 5 black, Spirit Bone, full set of 6 Spirit Bones, Evaluation, Proficient in top-tier arrays, the ceiling of Spirit Plant Cultivation, Loyalty, Infinity. After reading the panel, Qian Zunzong almost laughed out loud on the spot. Comforting, totally comforting. Previously, Supervisor Su Jian was a half-baked array master and a half-baked spirit plant cultivator, with a foul temper and a mastery of slacking off. Now, the system had directly sent an all-around top-tier bigwig, a level 96 Super Douluo, skilled in both arrays and spirit plants, with maxed-out loyalty, who was obedient, didn't talk back, didn't hoard secrets, and didn't slack off. By comparison, Supervisor Su Jian was practically just a weed in the field. Rise. Qian Zunzong raised his hand, and a gentle spirit power lifted Ji Yu Jian up. His tone was casual. Get up and take a look at this valley, then accompany me to review the damage data for the Wahan Academy Mimicry Training Grounds. Come up with a complete renovation and upgrade plan as soon as possible. Understood, my lord. Ji Yu Jian stood up, held the cloud pattern array condensing brush, and tapped the void lightly. Countless cyan array patterns flew out, instantly covering the entire spirit plant valley. In just 10 breaths, the grade of all spirit plants in the valley, the direction of the earth veins, the spirit energy concentration, and soil depletion were all clear at a glance. All the data was automatically compiled into a clear document that floated in midair. Immediately after, Shenyi handed over all the damaged documents for the academy grounds that the engineering department had previously surveyed. Ji Yu Jian lowered his head and quickly flipped through them, his brush tip lightly sketching in the void, and exquisite array drafts took shape at lightning speed. A renovation plan that would take others 10 days or half a month to sort out was completed by this array grandmaster in just half an hour. He closed the document and bowed to report. My lord, I have already drafted a complete upgrade plan. First, for the shallow enlightenment spirit gathering grounds, discard the original old and incomplete array patterns and replace them with a third-grade chain spirit gathering array, increasing spirit energy gathering efficiency by 100%. Second, for the mid-layer earth vein training caves, rechannel the underground bright spirit energy and reinforce the rock wall protective arrays, completely solving the problem of damp, turbid energy inside the caves. Third, for the core Saint Light Valley, dismantle the damaged sky screen, engrave the heavenly light convergence array, and pair it with a two-way spirit plant circulation network. Once completed, the spirit energy concentration of the entire valley can exceed its original level by 3 times, becoming a top-tier light attribute training secret realm on the continent. The plan was clear and logical, the upgrade level was maxed out, and it even additionally optimized the safety protection arrays and spirit energy stabilization arrays, comprehensively addressing all the defects of the original training grounds. The details were simply perfect. Shenyi, standing to the side, couldn't help but marvel inwardly after reading the plan. If this plan were implemented, the Wahan Academy training grounds would be completely transformed. Supervisor Su Jian couldn't have made such a perfect plan even if he worked for a lifetime. However, after finishing the full plan, Ji Yu Jian frowned, looking troubled, and bowed helplessly. My lord, the plan is flawless, and I can lead the craftsmen to complete all array engravings and site modifications within 3 days, but we are currently facing a fatal problem. Qian Zunzong tucked his hands into his sleeves, looking calm. Speak, what problem? Insufficient spirit plants. Ji Yu Jian sighed, pointing to the few top-tier spirit plants in the valley, and said helplessly. The Heavenly Light Convergence Array and the Chain Spirit Gathering Array both require high-grade spirit plants as array eyes to provide energy and maintain long-term operation of the arrays. Currently, the entire valley plus the public treasury has less than 50% of the required top-tier spirit plants. I have the top-tier array laying methods, and the craftsmen under my command are all ready at any time, but without spirit plants to serve as array eyes, it is no different from trying to cook without rice. If we force the use of low-grade spirit plants as substitutes, the arrays will completely collapse in at most half a year, and then we will have to redo the work, wasting manpower and resources. It was just as the saying went, even a clever housewife cannot cook without rice. Even if his array skills were heaven-defying, without sufficient energy carriers, he still couldn't do the job. After hearing Ji Yu Jian's concerns, Shenyi also looked grave. He had no solution for this either. Top-tier light attribute spirit plants on the continent grew slowly and were extremely scarce. It was impossible to collect them in large batches in a short time. However, looking at Qian Zunzong, he remained calm from beginning to end, with not a trace of worry on his face. Instead, he was leisurely stroking Xiao Jing in his arms, a smile of confidence hanging on his lips. Is that it? He thought it was some massive problem, but it turned out to be just a lack of spirit plants. Watching his master's indifferent appearance, Ji Yu Jian couldn't help but ask in confusion. My lord, the current shortage of spirit plants is huge. How should this be resolved? Qian Zunzong stretched, held Xiao Jing, turned, and looked in the direction of the sunset forest. He spoke nonchalantly, his tone relaxed and confident. It's just a lack of spirit plants, what a big deal. You just need to make all the construction preparations, draw up all the array blueprints, settle the craftsman team, and wait with peace of mind to start work. As for the source of the spirit plants, I have a plan. I know where there are mountains and plains filled with inexhaustible top-tier spirit plants. As his voice fell, he didn't specify the exact location, and a trace of cunning light flashed in his eyes. Let alone making up for the shortage, even if he had to upgrade all the training grounds in the entire spirit city 10 times over, he could easily gather a massive amount of top-tier spirit plants. Although Ji Yu Jian was curious about the source, he knew that his master had his own discretion, so he immediately bowed and accepted the order. Subordinate obeys. I will immediately return to prepare all construction blueprints, reorganize the craftsman team, and wait for the master's spirit plants to arrive at any time to start work immediately. Qian Zunzong nodded, looked at the entire spirit plant valley before him, and chuckled lightly. Crippling a slacking, lazy supervisor Su Jian in exchange for a loyal, all-around, top-tier spirit plant grandmaster. This wave was a huge profit. As for the shortage of spirit plants, it was merely a matter of lifting a finger. Next, it was time to go stock up. Chapter 29, Sunset Forest, a treasure land for check-in. 2 days later, at Shanyan Villa. My lord, the team of craftsmen has been fully reorganized, and the formation blueprints can be completed overnight. However, regarding the spiritual plants, I am truly at a loss, Ji Yu Jian reported with a bow and a deep voice, his tone full of helplessness. Qian Zunzong held the soft Yuheng Xie crystal beast in his arms, his fingertips gently stroking the little beast's snowy fur. There was not a trace of worry on his face, instead, he smiled calmly. Others did not know where to find the spiritual plants, but as a transmigrator, he knew clearly. The treasure land in the entire Douluo continent that was least lacking in top-tier mortal herb spiritual plants was currently unoccupied, quietly hidden in the depths of the sunset forest. There, immortal herbs were everywhere, and spiritual energy overflowed. The spiritual plants needed for the mere repair of the formation were but a drop in the ocean, enough to be taken at will. No matter, everyone, follow me on this expedition. Qian Zunzong waved his hand, his tone carefree. Shen Yi, Gui Mei, and Yu Guan will accompany me. Ji Yu Zhen Yan, you shall come along as well. I will take you to collect true treasures of heaven and earth to fill all the gaps in our spiritual plants. As soon as these words were spoken, the few immediately bowed and accepted the order. Shen Yi stood ready to protect his master at any moment. Gui Mei was surrounded by black mist, his figure illusionary and ethereal, carrying an underworld aura. Only Yu Guan's eyes lit up, his face full of curiosity, and he couldn't help but ask softly, "Young master, does our Douluo continent really have a secret realm capable of producing high-level spiritual plants in batches?" This subordinate has traveled to many places on the continent and has never heard of such a treasure land. In his understanding, high-level spiritual plants were inherently scarce and rare. Obtaining even one was a massive stroke of luck, let alone supplying the repair and upgrade of an entire training ground in batches. It was simply inconceivable. Qian Zunzong smiled mysteriously without giving much explanation. "Once you go, you will know. That place is the only immortal paradise in the entire continent." The group said no more and stepped onto the cloud-step Fuguang carriage together. The gleaming white divine carriage rose into the air, breaking through the flowing clouds, leaving behind the complex hustle and bustle of the city, and sped towards the sunset forest in the southwest at full speed. The sunset forest was vast and boundless, with lush and verdant vegetation. Compared to the dangerously unpredictable Stardew Great Forest, most of the spirit beasts here were gentle in nature, and the number of high-level fierce beasts was scarce. Rarely did any titled Douluo-level powerhouses set foot here on a daily basis. At this moment in the sunset forest, this peerless immortal land, the ice and fire Yin-Yang Well, had not yet been occupied by Dugubo. It remained hidden in the deep mountains and secluded valleys, unknown to anyone, unsearched by anyone, quietly nurturing endless treasures of heaven and earth. The cloud-step Fuguang carriage traveled steadily over the dense forest. Relying on the clear memories of the original work in his mind, Qian Zunzong accurately locked onto the location, guiding the way precisely without the slightest deviation. About half an hour later, the spiritual energy of the forest beneath them changed drastically. The originally gentle and peaceful forest spiritual energy became extremely polarized here. One half was dry and hot like a raging prairie fire, the air scalding, the other half was biting cold like ice, with bone-chilling winds. The two extreme auras of ice and fire intertwined, forming a unique aura of heaven and earth that was extremely eye-catching. This is the place. Qian Zunzong raised his hand to signal for a landing. The cloud-step Fuguang carriage slowly descended and retracted its divine carriage form. As soon as the group stepped into this area, they instantly noticed its extraordinary nature. What rich polarized spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Ji Yu Zhen Yan's eyes brightened slightly as he held his cloud-patterned array-forming pen, tapping the void to quickly survey the earth's veins. The earth's veins here are a convergence of yin and yang, a fusion of ice and fire. This is a treasure land with an extreme spiritual vein that is hard to encounter in 10 million years. The spiritual plants nurtured here must be of a grade far exceeding ordinary types on the continent. Shen Yi's gaze was sharp, his spirit power surging slightly around him as he vigilantly scanned the surroundings. "Young master, the spiritual energy here is fluctuating violently. There is a high probability that high-level spirit beasts are entrenched here. Everyone, be on guard." Before his voice had even faded, the grass and trees on the ground suddenly trembled wildly. Hiss! A sharp, ear-piercing snake hiss echoed through the secluded valley, shaking the leaves until they wrestled down and causing the gravel on the ground to bounce. The dense grass in the forest suddenly exploded, and a thick, ink green giant python body shot into the sky. Her scales reflected a grim light and were covered with strange poisonous patterns. Her huge snake pupils were narrowed into slits, revealing a brutal and bloodthirsty ferocity, and her cold snake tongue flickered continuously. A thick, fishy, and poisonous aura instantly swept across the entire scene. It was a datura snake, but this was by no means an ordinary 100-year or 1,000-year datura snake. Her body was as thick as a water vat, and she was surrounded by 6 energy rings of varying depths. Her pressure was heavy and domineering. She was clearly a datura snake king with a cultivation base reaching 60,000 years. 60,000 years of cultivation was infinitely approaching the peak of 10,000 years. Her venom was intense and domineering. A single mouthful of venom was enough to corrode the physical body of a spirit Douluo. If ordinary spirit saints or spirit Douluos encountered her, their only fate would be death. A mere beast dares to block our path. Shen Yi's expression was indifferent. He did not move a single step. 9 spirit rings instantly rose and swirled around him, a brilliant black halo enveloping his body. The terrifying pressure of a level 96 titled Douluo exploded, firmly locking down all of the datura snake king's evasion space. Before the Snake King could launch an attack, Shen Yi condensed an extremely refined beam of pitch-black spirit power at his fingertips. It was as fast as thunder breaking through the air, accurately piercing through her vital 7-inch point. Poochie, blood gushed out, the hard snake scales shattered like paper, and the domineering spirit power instantly destroyed her original meridians and poison core. The datura Snake King's massive body twitched violently a few times before it slammed heavily onto the ground. After struggling for a moment, she completely lost her vitality, and a pitch-black, shining 60,000-year spirit ring slowly hovered above the corpse. The whole process took only an instant. A 60,000-year fierce beast was killed in seconds by Shen Yi with a casual move, leaving her with no power to fight back. Cleanup complete. Shen Yi withdrew his power and bowed, his expression remaining steady as ever. Qian Zunzong nodded slightly and spoke faintly, "Enter the valley." The group walked through the dense forest barrier and stepped into the deep secluded valley. The next instant, a peerless immortal scene suddenly came into view, causing everyone present to stop in their tracks, lost in a daze. In the center of the valley, 2 hot and cold springs gushed endlessly. The 2 extreme energies of ice and fire did not conflict but coexisted and merged, turning into a sky full of spiritual mist that nourished the entire valley. On the ground, dense patches of peerless immortal herb medicinal plants grew wantonly, lush and dripping with green, surrounded by spiritual light. Wangchuan Chushui Du, yearning heartbroken red, octagonal mysterious ice grass, Lieguo Xingjiaoshu, 9-rank purple Ganoderma, nether spirit orchid. Countless top-tier immortal herbs that only existed in ancient records and had long been extinct on the continent were visible everywhere here, growing in patches. Each plant was surrounded by rich heaven and earth spiritual energy, its medicinal power pure and thick. Any single plant placed in the outside world could cause major sects to fight frantically for it. Ji Yu Zhen was knowledgeable and proficient in spiritual plant formations. At this moment, he couldn't help but be shaken, exclaiming repeatedly, "They are all immortal herbs with extreme attributes, every single one can serve as the core eye of a high-level formation. With this valley, let alone repairing and upgrading the Academy's training ground, even if we were to rebuild 10 top-tier secret realms, the spiritual plants would be more than enough." Shen Yi's eyes flickered, his eyes full of shock, yet he remained steady and restrained, only silently guarding Qian Zunzong's side. Gui Mei's expression was plain. He didn't have much obsession with spiritual plants and immortal herbs and just stood quietly watching. Only Yu Guan, who was to the side, completely lost control. The originally gentle, refined, and elegant Yu Guan instantly threw away all his demeanor. His eyes were wide open, staring fixedly at the immortal herbs everywhere. In his pupils, there was nothing left but the sky full of medicinal herbs, shining to the extreme. His whole body was trembling, his breathing was rapid, and his hands and feet were shaking uncontrollably. Immortal herbs, they are all lost, peerless immortal herbs. Yu Guan screamed, his voice becoming sharp and distorted because he was too excited. His usually elegant orchid fingers were completely deformed, his hands waving wildly, wishing he could immediately throw himself into the medicinal field. Yearning heartbroken red, the supreme immortal herb from legends that can reshape the divine soul and consolidate the foundation. And the octagonal mysterious ice grass and Liehuo Xingjiaoshu. These two extreme immortal herbs growing together are hard to find in 1,000 years. He stumbled and ran all the way to the edge of the medicinal field, but he didn't dare to touch them rashly for fear of damaging the herbs in the slightest. He could only squat on the ground, holding his cheeks with both hands, his face full of obsession and madness. His eyes were as gentle as if he were looking at a peerless treasure, cherishing them even more than his own life spirit. Woo, I have lived for over 20 years and have never seen an immortal herb of such a grade. Today, I can actually see so many at once. Yu Guan's eyes were red, and he was so excited he was about to shed tears. He was in a state of extreme, fanatical excitement, muttering non-stop, too perfect. The growth, spiritual energy, and medicinal power of every plant are in the most top-tier state. Not a single flaw, not a bit of loss. This is the true essence of heaven and earth. One moment he was carefully leaning in to observe the flower petal patterns, the next he was holding his breath to feel the spiritual energy of the herbs, and then he was giggling madly at the patches of immortal herbs. He looked both crazy and cute, completely subverting everyone's perception of him. Gui Mei turned his head to look at Yu Guan, who had lost his composure to the extreme, his mouth twitching wildly. He couldn't help but retort, Chrysanthemum Guan, restrain yourself. Can you keep your composure? You're like a child who has never seen the world. You don't understand at all. Yu Guan turned his head sharply, his face full of excitement and a bit of disdain. How can someone like you, who deals with black mist all day, understand the beauty of spiritual plants and immortal herbs? These treasures everywhere are what I have sought all my life. Don't talk about losing composure. Even if I were allowed to stay here and guard them for a lifetime, I would be willing. Watching him in this state of madness for love, Qian Zunzong couldn't help but laugh. In the original work, Yu Guan was already fond of flowers and immortal herbs, so it was only natural for him to lose control and go mad upon seeing the only immortal herb valley in the entire continent. He no longer paid attention to the noisy Yu Guan and silently recited the system command in his heart. System, sign in at the ice and fire Yin Yang well. This place was a top-tier treasure land of the Douluo Continent, and the source of spiritual energy was extremely pure, so it would inevitably trigger a top-grade sign in reward. Ding, detected that the host is at the ice and fire Yin Yang well, sign in successful. Obtained the Yaoguan Spirit Void Pool. This location cannot be signed into again. Yaoguan Spirit Void Pool, a top-tier paradise treasure land that rivals, and in some attributes even surpasses, the ice and fire Yin Yang well. It gathers the spiritual charm of heavenly light and condenses the essence of heaven and earth. It can autonomously produce high-level spiritual plants, nourish the divine soul and physical body, and purify the source of spirit power. Characteristic, no fixed location. The host can place it in any area at will, and it can be stored and moved at any time. Portable and invincible. Bonus effect, the growth speed of spiritual plants within the pool area is increased by 100 times, and the efficiency of spirit power cultivation is increased by several times. It can neutralize all attributes and is compatible with all spirits and all spirit masters. The system prompt faded, and a gentle, soft white light surged into Qian Zunzong's body. A crystal clear pool hard mark engraved with endless spiritual patterns quietly fell into his consciousness, and the Yaoguan Spirit Void Pool was completely under his control. Qian Zunzong's eyes instantly burst with brilliant light, and his heart was filled with endless joy. Too strong, this Yaoguan Spirit Void Pool not only had heaven-defying effects that rivaled the ice and fire Yin Yang well, but the most outrageous thing was that it could be placed at will and stored freely. The ice and fire Yin Yang well was fixed in the sunset forest and could not be moved, while the Yaoguan Spirit Void Pool was a mobile version of a peerless paradise. In the future, whether it was placed in Shangyan Villa or a newly built exclusive academy, it could become an eternal top-tier cultivation holy land, continuously producing high-level spiritual plants and thoroughly solving all resource problems for engineering repairs and faction cultivation. I've hit the jackpot. Qian Zunzong sighed inwardly. Originally, he just wanted to pluck some spiritual plants from the ice and fire Yin Yang well for an emergency, but he didn't expect to get a portable top-tier spiritual land for free. This time, he had made a huge profit. Beside him, Yu Guan was still crazily obsessed with the immortal herbs everywhere, muttering to himself, immersed in his own world of flowers and plants, completely unaware that his young master had already obtained a heaven-defying treasure even more precious than the entire ice and fire Yin Yang well. Chapter 30. Absorbing immortal herbs, the miserable Qian Zunji. Looking at the peerless immortal herbs covering the mountains and plains, overflowing with spiritual light, Qian Zunzong suppressed the ecstasy in his heart. He turned to look at Jiyu Zhenyanyan, who was still immersed in shock, and slowly began to arrange the important tasks. Stop spacing out, get to work. Select a batch of spirit plants with the best quality and attributes suitable for the formation. Prioritize filling all the gaps in the Academy's simulated cultivation grounds. Remember to select more top-tier goods that can serve as formation cores. Let's push the venue to the top configuration immediately. Jiyu Zhenyanyan instantly snapped back to reality. He quickly collected his thoughts and held his cloud-patterned array condensing brush, tapping gently into the void. Pale cyan formation patterns swept across the entire herb field, precisely selecting several spirit plants of excellent quality. Each one was thick with spiritual energy and had full roots. Any single one could crush the treasures cultivated in the outside world for hundreds of thousands of years. My lord, this batch of spirit plants is sufficient to support the operation of 3 sets of interlocking spirit gathering arrays, with even more to spare. There is no need to worry about subsequent venue maintenance or the continuous supply of spiritual energy. Jiyu Zhenyanyan quickly gathered and categorized the spirit plants with skillful and efficient movements. Qian Zunzong nodded slightly and waved his hand, fully displaying his wealthy nature. Don't rush, pick a few more immortal herbs suitable for everyone. Since everyone has traveled all this way to protect me, they deserve some benefits. As soon as these words were spoken, the people present instantly perked up. Holy *T. Yu Guan's eyes widened larger than copper bells. He had been crazed by the immortal herbs everywhere just a moment ago, but now he transformed into an exclusive quality inspector for picking goods. He rubbed his hands and eagerly stepped forward, afraid that someone else would snatch the immortal herb he had his eye on. After all, when it came to flowers and immortal plants, he considered himself third, no one dared to claim second. Because there was still Jiyu Zhenyanyan above him, the latter smiled but didn't say much. With Yu Guan's precise assistance, the immortal herbs were soon selected and categorized. The nether spirit orchid, suitable for Gui Mei, could nourish sinister spirit power, stabilize his spirit foundation, and improve his concealment and killing abilities. The strange velvet heaven connecting chrysanthemum, suitable for Yu Guan, could allow him to replenish his spirit origin and forge an indestructible body. Shen Yi, as a titled Douluo of killing, chose a blazing sun immortal peony to neutralize baleful aura and consolidate his foundation. Without a word, the three of them sat cross-legged on the spot and absorbed the medicinal power of the immortal herbs. Pure and thick spiritual energy of heaven and earth instantly swept over their bodies, their cultivation aura climbed steadily, and their entire foundation underwent a rapid transformation. After settling his subordinates, Qian Zunzong did not forget his family group. He had Ji Yu Zhen Yunyan carefully select a few top-tier immortal herbs from the bottom of the pile, an archaic holy light lotus suitable for Grand Elder Qian Shichen, a sun-chasing divine fruit that matched Qian Dalu's attributes, and a red flame-blazed flower with dual ultimate attributes of light and fire, reserved specifically for Qian Zunji. He also selected suitable immortal herbs for the other 6 elders of the spirit hall. Ji Yu Zhen Yunyan found an herb that could increase the concentration of spirit power. As for him, setting up large-scale formations consumed a lot of spirit power. After doing all this, Qian Zunzong's gaze fell on the crystal clear, mist-shrouded autumn dew of looking through water not far away, a flash of brilliance crossing his eyes. This immortal herb was specifically for treating a weak divine soul and lack of mental force. It was a supreme treasure for enhancing divine consciousness. Currently, his physical body and spirit power far exceeded his peers, but his mental force was difficult to cultivate, so this was perfect for making up for it. Come on, time to eat grass. Qian Zunzong raised his hand and plucked the autumn dew of looking through water. It was slightly cool upon entering his mouth, and the warm, moist medicinal power instantly flowed down his throat through his entire body, pouring into his mind in an instant. A massive, pure energy of divine consciousness exploded, and his originally immature and weak mental force soared crazily as if riding a rocket. His divine consciousness, which had barely been at the spirit elder level, broke through the shackles all the way, spirit ancestor, spirit king, spirit emperor, and finally stabilized firmly at the spirit Douluo level. In an instant, the rustling of the wind in the entire valley, the traces of spirit beasts within 100 miles, and even the subtle flow of everyone's spirit power were all clearly reflected in his perception. The coverage of his divine consciousness surged dozens of times, and his mind became increasingly clear and transparent. Feeling the transformation of his divine soul, Qian Zunzong nodded with satisfaction. This wave was a huge profit, no loss at all. Subsequently, he composed his expression and ordered faintly to the air. All Imperial guards, hide yourselves, set up a barrier, and strictly guard the ice and fire Yin Yang well. Do not allow any living creature to trespass. From today on, this place is the exclusive immortal herb treasury of my spirit hall. If anyone enters without permission, there is no need to report, suppress them directly. Dozens of black-clad figures lay quietly in the shadows, their presence completely blending into the mountains and void, sealing off the entire valley layer by layer, secretive and majestic. Everything was arranged properly, everyone finished their cultivation, and their aura had all improved. Qian Zunzong put away the immortal herbs for his family and the elders, led the group onto the cloud-step Fuguang carriage, and set off back to Spirit City. Moving at lightning speed, in less than half an hour, the divine carriage landed steadily on the plaza of the spirit hall. Qian Zunzong dismissed everyone and had Ji Yu Zhen Yunyan immediately take the spirit plants to the construction site to prepare for repairs. He himself carried the 2 top-tier immortal herbs and walked slowly toward the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Inside the Supreme Pontiff Palace at this moment, Qian Daluo was having a headache facing the mountain of files, his brows locked tightly, his face full of despair. Reports from sects everywhere, resource allocation, personnel scheduling within the palace, and post-construction matters, a dense pile of official documents covered the entire table, making his scalp tingle. As a descendant of the angel god and the Supreme Pontiff of the Spirit Hall, his strength was peerless, but he particularly hated dealing with these trivial and complex worldly affairs. Facing a pile of official documents every day was physically and mentally exhausting. To the side, Qian Zunji was sitting with his legs crossed, cracking melon seeds, slacking off, and watching the show, finding it all very amusing. Seeing his old man's distressed look, he secretly stifled his laughter. Just as Qian Daluo was about to be driven crazy by the government affairs, a cheerful young voice rang out. Dad, big brother, look at the good stuff I brought back. Qian Zunzong strode into the main hall and raised his hand to reveal 2 top-tier immortal herbs radiating spiritual light and wrapped in immortal aura. The rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth instantly filled the entire Supreme Pontiff Palace. Qian Daluo and Qian Zunji looked up at the same time, their eyes instantly attracted by the immortal herbs, their faces full of surprise. They had lived for more than half their lives, and this was the first time they had seen treasures with such pure spiritual energy and such heaven-defying quality. What is this? Qian Daluo instantly put down the files in his hand, the fatigue in his eyes swept away, his eyes full of curiosity. Top-tier immortal herbs found in the secret realm of the Sunset Forest, specifically for treating cultivation stagnation and insufficient foundation. Qian Zunzong generously handed over the sun-chasing divine fruit. Dad, this sun-chasing divine fruit is for you. It will consolidate your foundation and help push through your cultivation realm. Then he tossed the red flame-blazed flower to Qian Zunji. Big brother, this one is yours. It has dual ultimate attributes of light and fire, perfectly matching your seraphim spirit. Absorb it well, it's a sure profit. I've already absorbed mine, don't worry. The 2 of them had long been itching with desire from the massive spiritual energy of the immortal herbs. Upon hearing that Qian Zunzong had already absorbed his, they didn't say a word, sat cross-legged on the spot, and closed their eyes to refine the medicinal power. In an instant, 2 extremely pure torrents of spiritual energy swept through the main hall. Golden and red light intertwined around Qian Zunji. The phantom of his originally pure white seraphim spirit appeared quietly, and layers of gilded holy fire ignited on the edges of its wings, shedding its original simplicity and adding a bit of domineering and scorching pressure. A moment later, a roaring sound exploded. Qian Zunji, originally a 12-year-old, level 42 spirit ancestor, saw his spirit power surge all the way, 43, 44, 45. He broke through steadily to the level 45 spirit ancestor realm. Even more stunningly, his spirit had completely completed its transformation, evolving from a seraphim into a seraph. The seraph spirit came with dual special effects, holy fire burning and light amplification. It was both offensive and defensive, with stronger pressure, could be called a crushing force within the same rank, and its future growth limit was directly doubled. The moment Qian Zunji opened his eyes, holy fire flowed around him, his aura was extremely powerful, and he felt like he was floating. He couldn't help but laugh up at the sky. Ha ha ha, I've broken through, and my spirit has evolved. From now on, I can be a monster genius too. In contrast, for Qian Daluo on the side, the scene was even more exaggerated. He had already been at the peak of level 97 for many years, only a thin shackle away from being a level 98 super Douluo, and his long-term accumulated foundation was incomparably thick. After the ultimate medicinal power of the sun-chasing divine fruit entered his body, it instantly washed over his meridians and bones, purifying his spirit power origin. Countless obscure realizations of the realm and cultivation principles became instantly clear. Massive spirit power surged and churned within his body, the 9 spirit rings around him vibrated violently, and the entire Supreme Pontiff Palace was shrouded in sacred golden light. Although he did not immediately break through to level 98, his state of mind, realizations, and foundation were all perfected. The shackles were completely loosened, and he was only a chance away from breaking through smoothly. His combat power had also soared by a significant margin. After a long while, Qian Daliu slowly opened his eyes, his gaze deep and majestic, his temperament becoming increasingly transcendent. He felt transparent and comfortable all over, and the cultivation bottleneck that had been accumulated for many years was swept away. He turned his head to look at Qian Zunji, who was still in ecstatic triumph, and then glanced at the mountain of government files on the table that made people's heads ache. A flash of inspiration instantly crossed his mind, and an incomparably wise idea was quietly born. His eldest son now had an evolved spirit and soaring cultivation, his talent had advanced by leaps and bounds, and he had already grown up. It was time to share his father's pressure. Qian Daliu coughed twice, instantly putting on the dignified air of a strict father and supreme pontiff. With a solemn expression, he said earnestly, Zunji, you now have an evolved spirit and greatly advanced cultivation. Your talent is already that of a top genius in the world, and your character and sense of responsibility should grow accordingly. Qian Zunji, who was immersed in the joy of becoming stronger, had his smile instantly freeze on his face. He felt a sudden, inexplicable panic in his heart, and had a vague, ominous premonition. Before he could open his mouth to decline, Qian Daliu waved his hand, his movements smooth and flowing, pushing the entire table full of files, official documents, and scheduling archives directly in front of Qian Zunji, piling them up completely. For many years, I have labored over the affairs of the Supreme Pontiff Palace, and I am physically and mentally exhausted. Now that a breakthrough in my realizations is imminent, I need to go into seclusion to stabilize my realm and break through to level 98. For these next few days, the daily government affairs, personnel scheduling, resource coordination, and liaison with various parties of the Spirit Hall will all be handed over to you to manage. You have outstanding talent and a steady character. You will surely be able to share the burden for your father and properly hold down the fort at the Spirit Hall. These words were spoken with great righteousness and high-sounding rhetoric, perfectly interpreting what it meant to focus on passing the buck and delegating power. Qian Zunji looked at the pile of official documents in front of him that could form a small mountain. The ecstasy on his face disappeared completely, his pupils shook, he was stunned on the spot, and he was on the verge of tears. Dad. So, my becoming stronger and having my spirit evolve was just so I could come back to work and deal with this mess. The joy of just breaking through to level 45 and evolving his spirit was instantly washed away by the sea of government affairs. The happiness dropped directly to zero, leaving only the crushing blow of having to work. Qian Daliu completely ignored his son's breakdown and nodded with a look of gratification, as if he saw his successor growing up sturdily. His tone was gentle but allowed no room for refusal. Father believes in you, work hard, and don't let your father's expectations down. Come on, you got this. After speaking, he turned and flicked his sleeves, leaving with a light step, feeling completely relaxed. He wished he could immediately grow wings and fly off to seclusion, escaping the sea of misery that was government affairs. Qian Zunzong, who had been watching the show the whole time, stood on the side, his shoulders shaking crazily from stifling his laughter, almost laughing out loud on the spot. As expected of you, my own father Qian Daliu, you really live by the philosophy that a son becoming stronger is just for the purpose of doing work. Once he's used, you pass the buck without any hesitation. In the large Supreme Pontiff Palace, only the pitiful Qian Zunji remained, facing the mess on the table all by himself, standing dull on the spot, his face full of despair. He looked at the bright sunshine outside the window, then looked at the tedious official documents in his hand, and tears almost fell on the spot. He had thought that his younger brother's talent was heaven-defying, and that he could completely slack off and wouldn't have to inherit the family business. But after going around in circles, the one who ended up working was still him. This wave of spirit evolution and level upgrade was purely winning a super job position, it was a total loss. Chapter 31, Heading to the Elder Hall, the elders go into seclusion. Watching Qian Daliu leave gracefully, leaving only himself to face a desk full of official documents with tears in his eyes, Qian Zunzong suppressed a smile. Carrying the remaining top-tier immortal medicinal herbs and holding the lazy and sleepy Xiao Jing, he turned and slowly left the Supreme Pontiff Palace. He was a bit tired, so he returned to Shangyan Villa to rest for the night. The next day, the number of immortal treasures harvested yesterday was vast. Besides the few portions left for Qian Daliu and Qian Zunji, the rest were all suited for the various elders of Spirit Hall. Grand Elder Qian Shichen and the other major elders were all the top combat power of Spirit Hall. Feeding resources to the powerhouses of one's own camp was definitely a win-win deal. It could build favor with the elders while also allowing these big shots to skyrocket and strengthen solidify the foundation of Spirit Hall. Why wouldn't he do it? Walking slowly along the way, passing through the layers of gilded halls of Spirit Hall, he soon arrived at the solemn and majestic Elder Hall. The Elder Hall was always quiet and sparsely populated, with only wisps of holy light lingering year-round. The statue of the angel god stood in the center of the main hall, emitting an ancient and distant sacred aura. At this moment inside the hall, Grand Elder Qian Shichen sat in the main seat, while the other 7 elders were lined up on both sides, either closing their eyes to rest or whispering about their cultivation insights. The atmosphere was solemn. Sensing someone stepping into the hall, everyone opened their eyes to look. Seeing it was Qian Zunzong, gentle smiles appeared on their faces. Zunzong is here. Grand Elder Qian Shichen's eyes softened as he looked at this grandson of his with heaven-defying talent, becoming more satisfied the more he looked. The other elders also nodded in greeting. Everyone deeply favored and valued this young master who had awakened a dual super god level spirit, possessed innate level 30 spirit power, and had even received the blessing of the angel god. Ha ha ha, Zunzong is here. Your spirit power is almost at the spirit ancestor level. Good, very good. Quote. Qian Zunzong stepped forward quickly. Without standing on ceremony, he directly raised his hand and waved it. Several top-tier immortal treasures, radiant with spiritual light and surrounded by celestial aura, appeared out of thin air, floating scattered throughout the main hall. The extremely rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth instantly swept across the entire Elder Hall. The milky white spiritual mist almost materialized, causing the spiritual energy in the originally gentle and solemn hall to instantly skyrocket several times over, filled with sacred, misty, and auspicious energy. These immortal treasures were all peerless treasures he had scavenged from the ice and fire yin-yang well. Each one could be considered a rare spiritual root even in the god realm, perfectly suited to different spirit attributes and capable of supplementing various cultivation shortcomings. He had long since categorized them in advance, precisely matching each elder's cultivation and spirit characteristics in the hall, with absolutely no waste. Qian Zunzong spoke with a smile, his voice clear and gentle. Grandfather, esteemed elder grandfathers, Zunzong went out to explore a secret realm this time and fortunately harvested a batch of top-tier immortal spiritual herbs. I have specially matched them to your spirits and brought them as a gift to express my feelings. As he finished speaking, he pointed his fingertips lightly. The floating immortal treasures flew out one by one, precisely landing in front of each elder. In front of Grand Elder Qian Shichen in the main seat, a golden primordial holy light god lotus floated steadily. Its lotus fragrance was mellow, purifying all things. It was most suitable for his sacred origin and could nourish his divine soul. The second elder, Xing, who possessed the Emperor's Spear Spirit, was fierce and specialized in offense. He received a 9-heaven star-breaking grasp, which had a cold green light and contained endless power to break boundaries. The third elder, Mo Yun, whose divine flute spirit was good at controlling music, manipulating qi, illusions, and attacking the mind, was matched with a clear rhyme concentrating Ganoderma, which was gentle and ethereal, capable of stabilizing the divine soul and breaking inner demons. The fourth elder, Chu Mingchen, whose violent rhinoceros spirit had a heavy body and immense strength but insufficient spirit power condensation, received a myriad-ton foundation solidifying flower, which could thicken spirit power, temper the muscles and bones, and make the body and spirit power complement each other. In front of the fifth elder, Gold Crocodile Douluo, was a crimson burning heaven golden dragon ginseng. It was extremely rigid and fierce, majestic and domineering, perfectly fitting his golden crocodile king ultimate power attack spirit, and could temper the body and solidify the foundation. The sixth elder, Feng Fuyao, whose hurricane dragon spirit was extremely swift and moved with the wind, received a flowing cloud-chasing moon immortal vine, which was light and agile, capable of amplifying speed mysteries, making movement techniques and offensives more perfect. The seventh elder, Jin Lun, whose sun and moon spirit complemented yin and yang and was capable of both offense and defense, received a yin-yang transformation fruit, which could harmonize yin and yang spirit power and balance the two poles of the spirit. Qian Zunzong's tone was casual, as if he were just taking out ordinary flowers and plants. However, everyone present was a top powerhouse who had lived for over 100 years, and their discernment was extremely sharp. Xing, Gold Crocodile, and the other elders swept their gazes across the immortal treasures filling the sky, their pupils shrinking in unison and their breathing stalling slightly. Every spiritual herb was dense with spiritual energy and had perfect patterns. They were all peerless immortal treasures extinct in the continent. Any one of them would make titled Douluos fight to the death, and they were priceless treasures in the outside world. Zunzong is too thoughtful. Such rare treasures are world-renowned, yet you have brought them all to give to us. This is truly too generous. The elders sighed repeatedly, feeling warm inside. In their view, this was just the pure filial piety of a child. Precious as they were, they just took it as a junior's gesture and didn't think too much about the heaven-defying effects, feeling that slowly refining them would be enough to nourish their foundations to some extent. Grand Elder Qian Shichen looked at the dazzling array of immortal treasures before him, his eyes full of gratification, and nodded gently. My grandson is sensible and thoughtful. Elder grandfathers, these immortal medicinal herbs cannot be kept for long. Absorb them now. Hearing this, everyone sat down with a smile, not wanting to disappoint the child's good intentions, and began to refine the medicinal power. Inside the main hall, layers of various spiritual lights instantly rose, gold, red, green, and the intertwined yin-yang holy light. The vast and immense attribute spiritual energy filled the entire hall, sacred, majestic, and full of strange phenomena. Initially, everyone looked calm, thinking it was just ordinary nourishment for cultivation, but after only a moment, everyone's expression changed drastically. After the originally gentle medicinal power entered their bodies, it instantly erupted. It was not shallow nourishment for the body and spirit power, but went straight to the origin, washing away meridian shackles, condensing the spirit foundation, and helping them comprehend the power of heaven and earth. The extremely pure medicinal power continuously broke down the obscure bottlenecks that had hindered them for many years. Countless sealed cultivation insights and realm mysteries instantly became clear. The spirit power lingering around their bodies skyrocketed wildly, and the spirit rings around their bodies pulsed and glowed uncontrollably. The first to be moved was Gold Crocodile Douluo. He held the burning heaven blood dragon ginseng, and the vast and domineering medicinal power entered his body, instantly washing through all his meridians. This veteran peak Douluo hadn't been at level 97 for many years, and his physical foundation was not yet very stable. At this moment, the extremely rigid and fierce medicinal power was crazily tempering his body and impacting his realm. His surrounding energy pulsed violently, and his pressure surged steadily. Immediately afterward, the second elder, Xing, the third elder, Mo Yun, and the others all changed color. Everyone clearly perceived that their own foundation was transforming. The cultivation bottlenecks that had been stuck for years were loosening, and the barriers were breaking one after another. Grand Elder Qian Shichen in the main seat felt it most deeply. The primordial holy light god lotus in his hand bloomed slowly, and the pure, sacred origin crazily nourished his divine soul and his seraphim spirit. As a super Douluo of Spirit Hall, his cultivation had long stood at the top of the continent. At this moment, with the medicinal power of the god lotus entering his body, it not only greatly increased his lifespan and repaired old hidden injuries but also allowed him to touch a higher semi-god barrier. His insights skyrocketed, and the angel holy light around him became increasingly vast and transcendent. In just a few breaths, the atmosphere of the entire elder hall changed completely. Everyone was immersed in extreme cultivation enlightenment, unable to extricate themselves. Grand Elder Qian Shichen was the first to open his eyes, his gaze deep and vast, and his aura became increasingly transcendent. He took a deep look at the immortal treasures filling the sky, then looked at Qian Zunzong, who was calmly eating a melon on the side, and ordered in a deep, quick voice. Everyone, go into seclusion immediately and stabilize your realms. After speaking, he didn't say anything more. Golden light swirled around him, and his figure instantly disappeared from the main hall, heading straight for the top floor seclusion chamber. The other 7 elders also recovered their senses, their faces full of shock and ecstasy. They could no longer care about pleasantries, hastily leaving behind a "thank you, Zunzong," before rising and rushing to their respective places of seclusion. In an instant, the elder hall, which had just been lively, became empty and deserted, with only the residual, vast spiritual energy flowing slowly. Qian Zunzong watched the scene of everyone going into seclusion and couldn't help but chuckle, not surprised at all. The peerless immortal treasures from the ice and fire yin-yang well were already top-tier natural spiritual essences of the Douluo Continent. Coupled with the spiritual energy blessing of the Yaoguang Lingshu pool, the medicinal power had long exceeded that of ordinary immortal treasures. It was normal for this group of veteran Douluos to gain some insights from this. However, it was unlikely that many would break through their realms. After all, they were all top powerhouses on the continent, and the immortal medicinal herbs had limited improvement for them. Being able to increase their combat power a bit was already very good. Go into seclusion well. The overall combat power of Spirit Hall is going to skyrocket again. Qian Zunzong stretched lazily, not disturbing everyone's seclusion and cultivation. Holding Xiaojing in his arms, he turned and stepped lightly out of the elder hall, closing the hall door as he left. After finishing the immortal treasure matters, he instantly fell back into a state of idleness. Qian Daliu was in seclusion, Grand Elder Qian Shichen and the elders were in seclusion, and Qian Zunji was trapped in the Supreme Pontiff Palace working on official documents. In the entire top level of Spirit Hall, he couldn't find a single person to chat or stroll with. Since I'm idle, I'll go out and stroll around Spirit City. Qian Zunzong said casually. Shen Yi, who was hidden in the shadows, appeared instantly, following closely behind him. Gui Mei and Yu Guan also quickly swept over, bowing and waiting for orders. Young master, the three bowed in unison, their auras steady, silently guarding him. Let's go, accompany me out of the city for a stroll and see the marketplace scenery of Spirit City. Chapter 32, The Slave Market, Heaven-Class Slaves. Let's go, accompany me for a stroll out of the city to see the local scenery of Spirit City. Qian Zunzong walked with his hands tucked into his sleeves, his pace leisurely as he led the three of them slowly out of the Spirit Hall Imperial City and stepped into the bustling main street of Spirit City. As the premier city of the Douluo Continent, Spirit City's prosperity was unrivaled in the world. Its streets were wide and clean, lined with shops on both sides, and the flow of people was endless. Spirit masters and commoners crisscrossed the streets, while the sounds of hawking and laughter rose and fell, creating a lively atmosphere. Qian Zunzong strolled along, browsing shops and tasting street snacks. The three people behind him provided close quarters protection the entire time, their frigid auras forcefully carving out an empty space amidst the bustling street. No one dared to approach casually, and passers-by respectfully stepped aside upon seeing them, not daring to cause any disturbance. Walking and stopping along the way, they arrived before they knew it at the most peculiar area in Spirit City, the slave market. It was noisy here, yet the atmosphere was oppressive, completely different from the lively prosperity outside. Countless cages were neatly arranged on both sides of the street, imprisoning all sorts of slaves, defeated spirit masters, down-and-out sect disciples, and convicted fallen ones, with varying levels of cultivation. This was the slave trading site established by the Spirit City authorities and was one of the largest slave markets on the Douluo Continent. Young master, this place is a mix of the good and the bad, and the miasma is quite heavy. Shall we find somewhere else to stroll? Yu Guan frowned slightly and spoke softly to persuade him. Qian Zunzong shook his head, a trace of curiosity flashing in his eyes. It's fine. Since we're already here, let's go in and take a look. Having lived 2 lifetimes, this was his first time seeing a slave market on the Douluo Continent. He was quite interested and simply stepped inside. Shen Yi, Gui Mei, and Yu Guan followed closely behind, firmly guarding all sides to block out the chaotic aura of the surroundings. When the slave market manager saw the visitor and the aura of the people around him, he realized the other party was no ordinary person. He hurried forward, bowing and scraping with the utmost respect. This humble one pays respects to the young master. No need for such formalities, I'm just looking around. Qian Zunzong waved his hand indifferently, his gaze sweeping casually over the surrounding cages. The manager eagerly led the way, constantly introducing the aptitude and cultivation of various slaves, strongly recommending those with the best cost-performance ratio. Qian Zunzong had originally only intended to browse, but then he thought that his Shanyan Villa and the newly built Wahan Academy would need hands to manage them in the future. Purchasing some loyal slaves to do the work would save him worry and effort, so he nodded, intending to select a group of people to take back. Take me to see the best slaves you have here. Yes, young master, please follow me. The manager was overjoyed upon hearing this and quickly led the way to the deepest part of the slave market, an exclusive area with the tightest security. Those imprisoned in this area were all heaven-class slaves with the highest aptitude and strongest foundations in the entire slave market. Even the weakest among them had once been powerful experts above the Spirit Emperor level, all of whom would be considered capable figures in the outside world, only having fallen to this state due to committing crimes. There were only a few people in this area, all of whom had upright figures and extraordinary bearing, but at this moment, they wore shackles and their spirit power was sealed, appearing somewhat disheveled. Reporting to the young master, these few heaven-class individuals were all top-tier experts, but they have all been reduced to cripples with their spirit power sealed, unable to cultivate, the manager quickly introduced. Especially the one in the very corner, he has a massive background. He is a fallen one who violated the hall rules decades ago and was a top-tier expert. According to records, he is a fallen one from Slaughter City. Not long after appearing, he became addicted to killing and was eventually crippled of his cultivation and had his spirit sealed by the Supreme Pontiff himself, demoted to a slave. Because he was personally dealt with by the Supreme Pontiff, his status is special. For so many years, no one has dared to buy him, nor has anyone dared to recruit him. The others were all people who caused trouble with him back then and were implicated and demoted to slaves. They have also had their cultivation completely destroyed and will never be free for the rest of their lives. Qian Zunzong looked in the direction of the manager's gaze and saw a man in black curled up in the corner of the cage. The man had an upright and slender figure. Even curled up on the ground, he could not hide his former upright character. His messy black hair was scattered, covering most of his face, making it impossible to see his expression. There was not a shred of aura fluctuation around him. He was like an ordinary mortal, with nothing special about him, dead and lonely. Oh, personally crippled by my father. That's interesting. Conversely, the few other slaves imprisoned alongside him, upon seeing the visitor, instantly seemed to have grasped at a final straw. A sense of extreme desire erupted in their eyes as they scrambled to the edge of the cage, shouting frantically. Young master, please take us in. Although this humble one's cultivation has been crippled, my experience remains, and I can serve the young master faithfully. Choose me. This humble one is loyal and devoted, and I swear to serve the young master until death. I will never betray you. Young master, we deeply know our faults and are willing to be slaves for life to repay the young master's grace in taking us in. Quote. The expressions of the few were frantic, their eyes full of the desire to survive, and their longing for freedom and power was completely exposed. Their gazes toward the man in black in the corner were filled with intense resentment and hostility. If not for this person, they would not have ended up with their families destroyed and reduced to slaves. The noisy pleas rose and fell, but only the man in black in the corner remained unmoved, still quietly curled up in place, his back slightly arched, showing no signs of struggle or sycophancy, as if everything in the outside world had nothing to do with him, numb and desperate. Qian Zunzong frowned slightly at the sight. He had seen those who feared death and clung to life, and those who curried favor, but he had rarely seen such a completely dead state. He stepped forward slowly and gently raised his hand. A wisp of golden holy light brushed aside the messy black hair on the man's forehead, revealing his eyes. Those were eyes filled with vicissitudes and loneliness. Decades of imprisonment and humiliation had long since smoothed away all his edges, yet deep within those dead eyes, a trace of almost imperceptible, never extinguished unyielding pride was hidden. Even in despair, there was still an unextinguished pride. A playful smile flashed in Qian Zunzong's eyes, and he instantly became interested. These slaves who were competing to beg were sycophantic and fickle-minded, even if taken in, they would be of little use. Instead, this man who had been crippled, imprisoned for decades, and still had his pride unbroken, was worth recruiting. The few slaves on the side saw Qian Zunzong paying attention to the man in the corner and became anxious, quickly speaking out to slander him. Young master. This person is a rebellious sinner. He has wild ambitions and must not be taken in. Please choose us. The noisy voices were annoying. Shen Yi's eyes turned cold, and the terrifying pressure of a 9-ring titled Douluo was suddenly released, instantly enveloping the entire cage area. Boom. The heavy pressure fell with a crash. The few slaves who were begging frantically were instantly suppressed, their bones creaking. Unable to stand, they all collapsed to the ground, their faces as pale as paper. They dared not make another sound, their eyes filled with extreme fear. The entire area fell into instant silence. Qian Zunzong ignored those who had collapsed to the ground and kept his gaze fixed on the man in black. His voice was calm but carried an unquestionable command. I am Qian Zunzong, son of the Supreme Pontiff. I fear there is no one in the entire continent I dare not take in. I will give you one chance. If you are willing to leave with me and pledge your loyalty to me, then kill these noisy fools with your own hands. Do that, and I will take you with me. As his words fell, he waited quietly for the other party's response. The man in black's dead eyes finally moved slightly. Deep in his eyes, a faint glimmer of the desire to survive and a fighting spirit quietly ignited. That trace of unyielding spirit that had been silent for decades seemed to waver at this moment. But he still did not open his mouth, did not speak. Seeing this, Qian Zunzong did not say much more, smiled faintly, turned, and waved his hand. Forget it, let's go. Shen Yi, Gui Mei, and Yu Guan immediately followed, and they turned and walked slowly toward the gate of the slave market. Just as they were about to step out of the gate. Swoosh. An extremely fast black shadow suddenly shot out from the cage. Its speed was so fast that only an afterimage remained, its movements crisp and neat, ruthless to the extreme, without any hesitation. The few slaves who had been collapsed on the ground, silent as cicadas in winter, did not even have time to let out a scream before their necks were precisely twisted, their breath instantly cut off, and they died on the spot. The whole process was smooth and flowing, decisive in killing, clean and neat. One strike to kill, leaving no future trouble. After doing all this, the man in black landed steadily and stood silently, a faint trace of the killing aura belonging to a top-tier expert still lingering around him. Even if his cultivation was crippled, his foundation still remained. Shen Yi's eyes suddenly narrowed, filled with shock, and he spoke in a deep voice. What sharp killing techniques, what exquisite footwork. Even with his cultivation completely destroyed, his physical foundation and combat instincts are still terrifying. At his peak, this person was definitely a titled Douluo level expert, and one with top-tier combat power. To still possess such killing instincts after decades of having his cultivation crippled and being imprisoned and tortured, it is enough to see how terrifying his former foundation was. Qian Zunzong slowly turned back, looking at the man in black who stood tall and silent, a satisfied smile curling at the corners of his mouth. Forbearing, decisive, ruthless, having pride, and knowing when to advance or retreat. Such talent is far more worth cultivating than those sycophants. Well done. Qian Zunzong walked slowly to him and asked softly, tell me your name. The man in black raised his eyes, the deadness in them fading away, leaving only calmness. After a long silence, his hoarse voice slowly sounded, carrying the dryness of decades without speaking. Ma Jinyan. From today on, you will follow by my side and join my ranks. I can heal your injuries. Ma Jinyan's body shook slightly. For the first time in decades, a true light ignited in his silent eyes. He knelt heavily on one knee, bowed, and said in a sincere and firm tone, subordinate. Ma Jinyan, I swear to serve my master until death in this life, and will never betray you. Qian Zunzong looked down at the man in black kneeling in submission, his gaze indifferent yet carrying the majesty of one who can decide the fate of the world with a single word. Qian Zunzong smiled and then said in his heart, System, sign in. Ding, detected that the host is at the Spirit City Slave Market. Sign in successful. Reward, Source Tracing Soul Ascension Pill. This location cannot be signed in again. Reward details, Source Tracing Soul Ascension Pill, capable of repairing all foundation damage, allowing a Spirit Master to return to their peak, and permanently increasing their strength by 30%, as well as half a century of lifespan, with no side effects. Afterward, Qian Zunzong had Shen Yi pay the other party for the purchase of Ma Jinyan and the few slaves who had died, then returned to Shanyan Villa. Standing before the villa gate, Qian Zunzong swept a calm gaze over the disheveled and dirt-covered Ma Jinyan. He did not speak of past entanglements, but instead turned to the Imperial guards waiting at his side and commanded in a deep voice. Take him away, see that he is properly washed and cleaned, and change him into clean clothes. Once he is tidied up, bring him to the front hall to see me immediately. Yes, master, the Imperial guards acknowledged the order. With a wave of a hand, two tall and steady-looking Imperial guards stepped forward. Their movements were disciplined and respectful, without a hint of contempt or neglect, they carefully guided Ma Jinyan away. At this moment, Ma Jinyan's hair was matted and tangled, covered in dirt and grass clippings. His tattered clothes were stained with blood and torn, layers of grime covering his original skin tone. A faint scent of blood and travel dust lingered around him, making him look so wretched that it was impossible to see his true appearance. Throughout the walk, he kept his head lowered, his back hunched, and his eyes dim, like a flickering candle that had long since lost its edge. He let the Imperial guards lead the way, offering no resistance and saying not a single word. The others who had accompanied them stood quietly in place, their gazes following Jin Sheng's departing back, each with their own thoughts, yet no one spoke. Everyone knew that this man had a rough life and a tragic fate. The agony of falling from the peak of power to the dust was something no ordinary person could endure. About an hour later, the washed and cleaned Ma Jinyan was led into the front hall once again. The moment he stepped into the hall, everyone's gaze instantly converged upon him. A faint murmur quietly rippled through the air, and undisguised shock filled everyone's eyes. The wretched, grime-covered appearance from before had completely vanished, replaced by a tall and imposing figure. A simple, elegant black combat outfit fit him perfectly, making his posture as straight as a pine, with broad shoulders and a dignified stance, devoid of any hunch or dejected air. His clean face was fully revealed to everyone, sharp-angled with defined lines and a strong brow bone. His deep, black eyes looked calm and waveless, but hidden deep within them was the weariness of having experienced the world and the determination of someone who had washed away all vanity. The rugged temperament forged 3 years of fighting and training was deeply etched into his features. Even though his cultivation was now completely destroyed and he had been reduced to a mortal, that backbone and aura of one who had once stood at the peak could not be completely erased. No one had expected that beneath the body of such a wretched and lowly slave would lie such a handsome, resolute face and an imposing, extraordinary figure. The previous humility and cowardice had vanished, leaving only the steadiness and resilience accumulated over years. The stark contrast shocked everyone present, leaving them secretly astonished. On the main seat, Qian Zunzong sat upright on a sandalwood chair. His expression was calm, his gaze as sharp as a torch, quietly observing the refreshed Jin Sheng before him, taking in every change in his temperament. After a moment, he spoke slowly, his voice gentle yet carrying an unquestionable authority. Look up and tell me about your past. This simple question, falling into Ma Jinyan's ears, caused the heartstrings he had kept taut for years to tremble slightly. He slowly raised his head, meeting Qian Zunzong's gaze. Infinite, complex emotions surged in his eyes, sorrow, unwillingness, regret, and a trace of obsession buried deep in his heart. After a few moments of silence, his low, hoarse voice slowly resonated, recounting his tumultuous and sigh-inducing life. I come from the Leon sect, one of the Earth 3 sects on the continent, and I am the only son of the former sect master Ma Mingchen. As his words fell, everyone in the front hall was slightly taken aback. The Earth 3 sects had a profound foundation and a far-reaching reputation. Being the young sect master of such a great sect was enough to show that Ma Jingyan's status in his youth was noble and his future limitless. No one had expected that he would end up in such a state today. Ma Jingyan took a deep breath, suppressing the emotions surging in his heart, and continued to speak slowly, his tone full of helplessness and bitterness. The spirit passed down through generations in the Leon sect is the top-tier fire attribute beast spirit, the Nine Heavens Rainbow Phoenix. Its flame is pure and domineering, yet gentle and controllable. It is the foundation upon which our sect stands on the continent. However, when my spirit awakened at the age of 6, although I had innate full spirit power, what I awakened was not the clan's orthodox spirit, but an extremely rare mutated spirit, the Blood Soul Rainbow Heavenly Phoenix. Mentioning his own spirit, a trace of pain and weariness flashed in Ma Jingyan's eyes. The blood flame of this mutated spirit is extremely tyrannical and filled with monstrous baleful chi, completely the opposite of the Nine Heavens Rainbow Phoenix's pure flame. It is highly destructive and completely beyond my full control. Once activated, its bloodthirsty and murderous nature completely takes over. From childhood to adulthood, I tried countless times to suppress the tyrannical nature of my spirit, but with little success. When the spirit became restless, I would completely lose control of my power, several times accidentally severely injuring fellow disciples of the sect. Within the sect, the elders feared my mutated spirit, and my fellow disciples feared my tyrannical flames. As time passed, I became an outcast that everyone in the sect avoided, and only my father cared for me deeply. Later, I gradually discovered that only by immersing myself in endless slaughter and letting my bloodthirsty will be vented could I temporarily suppress the restlessness of my spirit and calm that tyrannical baleful chi that eroded my mind. Every word was filled with heartache. A heaven-defying mutated spirit should have been an incredible opportunity, but who would have thought it would become a calamity that would entangle him for a lifetime, dragging his life completely into the abyss. After my cultivation broke through to the Spirit Emperor realm, the riots of my spirit became increasingly severe. Unwilling to continue harming fellow disciples or dragging down the sect due to my lack of control, I simply left the Leon sect alone and ventured out into the Douluo Continent by myself. In the dozen or so years since leaving the sect, Ma Jingyan traveled through various dangerous places on the continent, fighting spirit beasts day and night, clashing with experts, and growing with difficulty amidst endless battles and tempering. He had intended to use the fighting in the outside world to temper his character and suppress the baleful chi of his spirit, but the more he slaughtered, the stronger the tyrannical nature of the Blood Soul Rainbow Heavenly Phoenix became. The will to kill wrapped around his mind like vines, impossible to break free from. Relying on resilience and talent far beyond ordinary people, his cultivation skyrocketed, quickly breaking through bottlenecks and reaching the Spirit Douluo realm. At that time, he was already a top expert on the continent, but the hidden danger of his spirit losing control remained deeply rooted, and his mind was constantly tortured by the tyrannical baleful chi, causing him unbearable pain. In order to completely temper my murderous nature and suppress the hidden danger of my spirit losing control, I stepped into the slaughter city alone. Ma Jingyan's tone was heavy, his eyes full of gloom. I spent 10 whole years in that living hell. 10 years of purgatory, without seeing the sun. Every day was a fight for life and death, with flesh and blood flying. The baleful chi and killing intent of the slaughter city layered upon each other, constantly washing over his divine soul, allowing his killing intent to quietly take shape invisibly. Yet at the same time, it also caused the tyrannical nature of his Blood Soul Rainbow Heavenly Phoenix to become increasingly out of control, taking root completely in his divine soul. Originally, I intended to completely stabilize my own character before returning to the sect. But while I was lying low in training, I happened to hear about the changes in the sect from a fallen spirit master who had newly entered the slaughter city. Speaking of this, Ma Jingyan's voice trembled slightly, and a trace of urgency and worry appeared in his eyes. They said that my father encountered a spirit beast wave and was severely injured, his cultivation plummeted, the sect was left without a leader, and the overall strength had declined significantly, already falling into a precarious situation. Having left home for many years, the only concern in his heart was the sect and his biological father. Hearing the bad news, the obsession in Ma Jingyan's heart instantly broke through all his endurance, and his desire to return to the sect became even more urgent. He no longer insisted on slowly tempering his character and resolutely started the final trial of the slaughter city. I spent a month fighting in a bloodbath, completing 100 life or death slaughters, and passed through the Hell Road without any danger, successfully escaping the slaughter city. Having passed through the Hell Road, although he had mastered the slaughter god domain, the killing will accumulated over 10 years of purgatory had already penetrated deep into his marrow, and his divine soul had long been heavily eroded by baleful chi. Disregarding his physical and mental exhaustion, he traveled day and night toward the Leon sect, but the journey home was long, and calamities eventually followed one after another. While passing through the endless sea desert, I was blocked by a top-tier spirit beast that was infinitely close to 100,000 years of cultivation. That spirit beast had monstrous strength and terrifying combat power. In order to clear the way home, and also to obtain stronger power to protect the sect and shelter his father, Ma Jingyan did not retreat in the slightest and immediately engaged in an earth-shattering death battle with that top-tier spirit beast. Yellow sand filled the sky, the heavens and the earth changed color. The slaughter between the man and the beast swept across 1,000 miles of desert, the roar of spirit power collisions was incessant, and blood soaked the entire desert. This battle was fought until the sky was dark and the sun and moon were dim. Relying on his deep cultivation as a spirit Douluo, the tyrannical power of his mutated spirit, and the suppressive power of the slaughter god domain, Jin Sheng fought hard for several days, finally winning by a narrow margin and slaying that top-tier spirit beast. But the victory was tragic. He himself was severely injured, most of his meridians were broken, his spirit power was exhausted, and his bones were shattered in countless places. He was already at the end of his rope, completely unable to support the long journey back, and unable to rush back to the Leon sect to visit his seriously injured father. Just at that time, my cultivation bottleneck loosened, and I officially stepped into the level 90 titled Douluo realm. Jin Sheng's eyes were full of remorse and bitterness. With no other options, I took a desperate risk and decided to absorb that spirit beast's spirit ring on the spot, partly to repair my own injuries, and partly to use the power of the breakthrough to return to the sect as soon as possible. This was supposed to be the only glimmer of hope in a desperate situation, but who would have thought it would become the beginning of the tragedy of his life. Chapter 34, Rampage, Loss of Control, and Crippled Foundations. The absorption process was initially smooth, but at the critical moment of condensing the spirit ring and stabilizing my cultivation, that spirit ring, which was originally infinitely close to 100,000 years, absorbed the immense killing intent of the slaughter god domain. It suddenly transformed, broke through its shackles, and became a true 100,000-year spirit ring. This sudden transformation brought with it a surge of power far exceeding his limits. Violent spirit power poured into his body like a flash flood or a tsunami, instantly shattering all his mental defenses. His Blood Soul Rainbow Heavenly Phoenix spirit, already violent and out of control, was completely unleashed under the impact of the extreme 100,000-year power, falling entirely into a state of rampage. coupled with the layers of devastation from the slaughter god domain, which had been cultivated over 10 years in Slaughter City, and the deep-seated killing will, Jin Sheng's divine soul completely collapsed. At that moment, he lost all reason and became a ferocious beast that knew only how to kill. I completely lost control. Jin Sheng closed his eyes, his voice hoarse and filled with regret and pain. Within a radius of 100 miles, whether it was innocent spirit masters or ordinary spirit beasts, all were slaughtered by me. Nothing remained, and I committed boundless sins. Just as he was about to sink completely and slaughter across an even wider area, the top expert of the current age, Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff Qian Daoliu, arrived in time, breaking through the air. Qian Daoliu took action to suppress him, using his immense cultivation to defeat the rampaging Jin Sheng. To prevent him from continuing to commit atrocities and wreak havoc on the continent, he ultimately crippled his spirit and severed his spirit power foundation. From then on, a newly ascended titled Douluo with boundless potential and monstrous combat power became a complete cripple. My Qian family truly does not show mercy to murderous fallen ones, even I would not show mercy on this point, Qian Zunzong said. Having lost the protection of his spirit and spirit power, Ma Jingyan was covered in severe injuries and unable to resist. Afterward, he was seized by slave traders roaming the continent. Day after day of torture, endless humiliation, and exploitation completely smoothed away all his edges and pride. With his spirit completely destroyed and his cultivation gone, his remaining meager power was barely comparable to an ordinary spirit ancestor. He was completely unable to break his shackles or escape his sea of suffering, and his obsession with returning to the Lian sect gradually became an unattainable luxury. With no other choice, he was forced to accept his fate, becoming a lowly slave at the mercy of others, drifting from place to place and suffering all the miseries of the world. After a long and detailed account, Ma Jingyan finished speaking of his turbulent and sorrowful life. The moment his voice fell, the entire front hall was silent, so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Everyone present, upon hearing such a tortuous and miserable experience, could not help but sigh, and the looks they directed at Jin Sheng held a bit more pity and emotion. No one could have imagined that this seemingly lowly and down-and-out man had such a magnificent yet tragic life. Qian Zunzong, in the main seat, had been listening quietly the whole time. His expression remained calm and waveless, but a hint of understanding and emotion flashed in his eyes. He was silent for a moment and did not speak immediately, but instead raised his hand to signal those beside him to withdraw. He then secretly sent a message, dispatching the elite imperial guards of the village immediately set off for the Lian sect in the endless sea desert area to thoroughly investigate all the past experiences mentioned by Ma Jingyan and verify their truth. Once the order was given, the imperial guards acted with lightning speed. Within just an hour, they had transmitted all the detailed investigation intelligence back to Shanyan Villa. In the intelligence, every word confirmed that what Jin Sheng said was true. Whether it was his identity as the young sect master of the Lian sect, the hidden dangers of his mutated blood soul rainbow heavenly phoenix spirit, his experience of leaving the sect alone to train, his 10 years of dormancy in Slaughter City, the killing of a quasi 100,000-year spirit beast, the mutation and loss of control of his spirit ring, or his history of having his spirit crippled by Qian Daoliu and becoming a slave, all were verifiable and contained no falsehoods. Qian Zunzong read the final piece of information, glanced at Ma Jingyan, and then handed the intelligence to him. Here, take a look. After the latter took it, he glanced at it casually without much fluctuation. However, the last line of text in the report made Ma Jingyan, who had been slightly composed, suddenly tremble. His whole body instantly tensed up, and extreme anxiety and panic suddenly welled up in his eyes. The old sect master of the Lian sect, Sect Master Ma Mingchen, is plagued by old injuries, his lifespan is about to be exhausted, his vitality is failing, and now he has little time left. He is on the verge of death and is unlikely to last more than a few months. These few short words were like a thunderclap exploding in Ma Jingyan's heart. Having been away from home for decades, his biological father, whom he had missed and worried about his entire life, had reached the end of his life, yet he was reduced to dust, a cripple, unable to even return home to visit. Years of forbearance, years of suffering, and years of obsession completely broke through his defenses at this moment. Father. Ma Jingyan's body trembled violently, his eye sockets instantly turned red, and he could no longer suppress the grief and urgency in his heart. His legs suddenly bent, and he knelt heavily on the ground. His knees hit the bluestone floor, making a dull, loud sound as he looked up with extreme earnestness at Qian Zunzong, who was sitting in the main seat. Young master, his voice was choked with sobs, carrying extreme pleading, his words dripping with blood. This lowly one has no other request in this life. I only beg young master to show mercy and allow me to return to the Lian sect to see my father one last time and see him off on his final journey. I will never forget this kindness in this life, and I am willing to give everything I have to repay you, young master. His forehead pressed tightly against the ground, his body trembling slightly, his heart filled with the guilt and regret of a son. Leaving the sect willfully in his youth, drifting outside for many years, only to return and find that things had changed. His father was critically ill, yet he was mired in mud, unable to fulfill his filial duties. Such pain was enough to crush anyone. Qian Zunzong lowered his eyes to look at the earnestly kneeling Ma Jingyan, his expression complex, and he remained silent. He could clearly perceive the pure familial love and extreme sincerity in the other's heart, without a shred of falsehood, yet he still did not immediately agree, nor did he refuse. He just watched him quietly, waiting for his subsequent choice. Seeing that Qian Zunzong was slow to express his position, Jin Sheng became increasingly anxious, fearing that he would miss the last opportunity to fulfill his filial duties and lose his last chance to see his father. He suddenly raised his head, his eyes resolute, his tone incomparably firm. Young master, if you are willing to fulfill this lowly one's wish and let me return to the sect to fulfill my filial duties, I am willing to take a spirit oath. From now on, I swear to serve you, young master, until death, to be loyal and never betray you, to be at your beck and call, until I die. As his voice fell, he forced himself to stand up and raised his hand to try to trigger his spirit, to initiate the most sacred and inviolable spirit oath on the Douluo Continent. The spirit oath is rooted in the divine soul. Once made, it is valid for life. If violated, the divine soul is destroyed. It is the most solemn promise a spirit master can make. But just as he was exerting all his mental energy, trying to summon his spirit, a sudden, violent, twisting pain struck his chest, and a fishy sweetness surged up his throat. PFF. A mouthful of bright red blood erupted from his mouth, splashing onto the bluestone floor in front of him, shocking to the eye. Ma Jingyan's body swayed violently, and he staggered, almost falling to the ground. He desperately supported his body and tried to summon his spirit with all his might again, but his dantian was empty, his meridians were broken beyond repair, and the blood soul rainbow heavenly phoenix spirit that had accompanied him his whole life had long been completely destroyed and dissipated into nothingness. He couldn't even summon his spirit, so how could he take a spirit oath? At this moment, endless despair, like a cold tide, instantly engulfed him completely. All his obsessions, all his expectations, all his loyalty and repentance, all turned into bubbles. He wanted to serve and repay, but lacked the qualifications to take an oath. He wanted to return home to fulfill his filial duties, but had no path to do so. The dignified former titled Douluo and young sect master of the Leon sect now didn't even have the qualifications to swear an oath of loyalty. Like rootless duckweed, a useless cripple, he could only watch helplessly as his closest kin walked toward their end, unable to do anything. Ah. An extreme sense of powerlessness swept through his entire body. Jin Sheng froze in place, his eyes suddenly losing focus, the light in his eyes completely dimming. Endless sorrow and despair shrouded his body and mind, his body trembling slightly, his heart filled with the bitterness of fate playing tricks on him. In the front hall, everyone watching him in this state felt a sourness in their hearts, and no one spoke to break the silence. In the main seat, Qian Zunzong slowly stood up, looking at the desperate and lonely Ma Jingyan before him, and sighed softly. His gaze was clear, he had long since seen through this man's sincerity, forbearance, guilt, and true heart. After a long time, he spoke slowly, his voice gentle but carrying a decisive weight, breaking the silence of the room. Forget it. Your sincerity and your filial piety, I have seen them all. There is no need for a spirit oath. I grant you permission to return to the Leon sect, visit your father, and accompany him on his final journey. The agreement in the midst of despair was like the morning light at dawn, piercing through the endless darkness shrouding Ma Jingyan's heart. He suddenly raised his head, and in his red-rimmed eyes, a ray of unbelievable light suddenly ignited. However, there is no need to be too anxious about this. After I finish handling the matters of Wuhan Academy, in 2 days we will go together. It will be a chance to go out and relax, and I also happen to want to see the demeanor of the Earth 3 sects. Yes, this lowly one thanks you, young master. Chapter 35, kicking down the door to report, the Supreme Pontiff Dad lacks senior dignity. The renovation project of the Mimicry Cultivation Arena at Spirit City's Advanced Wuhan Academy came to a completely successful conclusion. The Cultivation Arena, which the elders had estimated would take at least half a year to completely stabilize and restore to its peak, had its progress accelerated several times over by Qian Zunzong using a few top-tier immortal herbs. It was completed in just 10 days, even surpassing its original state in every aspect. The immortal spiritual energy permeated the entire arena, nourishing and reshaping the underground formation lines, and transforming the spiritual energy of every inch of soil. Now, the Mimicry Cultivation area was filled with dense spiritual energy and shrouded in light mist. Its spiritual energy concentration, realism of the simulated illusions, and stability of the formation surpassed its former self several times over in all aspects. It was no exaggeration to say it had undergone a complete transformation, creating a brand new secret realm. Holding the inspection files and looking at the off-the-charts data, the inspecting elders trembled with excitement, looking at Jiyu Zhenyanyan as if he were a god. On the other hand, the person responsible, Qian Zunzong, behaved in a completely slipshod manner throughout. With his hands stuffed in the pockets of his black robe, his posture lazy and casual, he carelessly swept his gaze over the entire cultivation arena, his face completely calm. For him, with Jiyu Zhenyanyan overseeing the overall planning of the formations and the immortal herbs as a safety net, a renovation of this level was as easy as pie, simple and completely without challenge. There are no issues with the data. Just water the herbs on time, calibrate the formations regularly, and don't slack off in the future. After casually brushing off the respectful elders, Qian Zunzong tucked away the core inspection files, turned around, and sauntered toward the Supreme Pontiff Palace. When others requested an audience with the Supreme Pontiff, the Supreme Ruler of Spirit Hall, they would invariably bathe, change their clothes, and behave with extreme caution. Yet, Qian Zunzong was completely relaxed and casual throughout, strolling leisurely all the way to the entrance of the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Facing this grand hall, the most solemn and sacred place in all of Spirit City where no one dared to commit the slightest offense, Qian Zunzong didn't even have the patience to raise his hand and push the doors open. He simply gathered power in his right leg and, with a heavy bang, kicked open the heavy doors. The magnificent and heavy doors swung wide open at the impact, and the sound of the wind, carrying the daylight from outside, rushed in, instantly shattering the dull and deathly silent atmosphere of the hall. With relaxed steps, Qian Zunzong swaggered into the hall, his posture arrogant and casual, without the slightest constraint of an audience with an elder, looking exactly like a carefree young master visiting his family home. Inside the hall, the scene was as familiar and hilarious as ever. At the side seat of the main host, the current Supreme Pontiff, Qian Daoliu, wore a snow-white, gold-trimmed sacred robe. His silver hair was like frost, and his expression was solemn and majestic. Surrounded by a faint, sacred spirit power, his aura was vast and majestic. Sitting there like an eternal pine tree, he naturally exuded a top-tier pressure that looked down upon the entire continent, every gesture carrying the demeanor of a peerless powerhouse. In reality, he was just slacking off. He was originally a rank 97 peak Douluo and had been immersed at that level for several years. His spirit power had long been saturated, and his insights had reached their peak. With the help of the immortal herbs, it took him only 6 days to break through to rank 98. Meanwhile, the eldest young master of Spirit Hall, Qian Zunji, who should have been enjoying supreme power and presiding over the center, had now completely degenerated into a miserable worker. He sat at the main seat of the Supreme Pontiff, with official documents and files piled high like a mountain before him. Reports from various branch halls, student evaluation forms, and sect regulations were stacked layer upon layer, nearly burying him completely. Several days of hunching over his desk to review documents had left his eyes bloodshot, his face dark and gloomy, and his brows tightly knit. The weasel hair brush in his hand flew rapidly as his entire being radiated a tired aura of, having nothing left to live for, on the verge of collapse. Qian Daoliu euphemistically called it, when heaven is about to place a great responsibility on a dead man. The grand future leader of Spirit Hall was held tightly in the grasp of a pile of dry documents, burying his head in bitter work day and night. On the other hand, his younger brother slacked off every day, easily causing trouble and living a carefree life. The contrast between the two was like night and day. Hearing a loud noise at the hall doors, Qian Daoliu raised his eyelids slightly. Having long since grown accustomed to his younger son's outrageous behavior, he felt no inner turbulence, only a trace of helplessness. In the entire Spirit Hall, only Qian Zunzong dared to kick down the doors and barge into the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Had it been anyone else, they would have been dragged out and beaten to death long ago. Qian Zunji's pen paused, a trace of resentment squeezed onto his numb face as he silently raised his head to glance at his carefree and casual younger brother, his heart filled with wild envy and overflowing bitterness. Brother. Ignoring the differing expressions of the two, Qian Zunzong walked straight to the center of the hall and casually tossed the thick stack of inspection files onto the jade table, his movements casual and perfunctory. Dad, the job is done. The mimicry arena is fixed, and the effect is several times stronger than before. The data is all here, see for yourself. His tone was careless and lacked any respect. It didn't sound like a work report at all, but rather like casually handing over a task to get it over with, fully exuding a slacker vibe. Qian Daoliu shook his head helplessly, reaching out to pick up the files and slowly flip through them. At first, he only scanned them as a matter of routine, but as page after page of data entered his vision, his originally calm eyes instantly changed dramatically, and his solemn expression was completely replaced by intense shock. 3 times the saturation of heaven and earth origin energy, 4 times the stability of the formations, 100% realism of the simulated illusions, and a spiritual plant secret realm environment that could continuously nourish a spirit master's physical body. Every single piece of data far exceeded expectations, directly rewriting the highest records since the founding of Wuhan Academy. Having lived for hundreds of years and seen countless geniuses, Qian Daliu still couldn't help but feel shocked in his heart, immediately launching into non-stop praise mode. Excellent, truly excellent. After seeing what came next, Qian Daliu's eyes brightened. He closed the files and stared intently at Qian Zunzong, his gaze full of amazement and gratification. I originally thought this renovation was merely to safely restore the arena without damaging its foundation, which would already be a great contribution. I never expected you to actually recreate a secret realm. Using immortal spiritual plants to nourish the land and stabilize the formations, and linking the natural spiritual energy with the formations, you actually turned an ordinary cultivation arena into a top-tier secret realm. At such a young age, you are well organized, possess an extraordinary vision, and have superb methods, mastering the 3 paths of engineering, spiritual plants, and formations. Looking across the entire continent, no one among your peers can match you. As expected of my Jian clan bloodline, a genius of Spirit Hall once in 10,000 years. The chain of praise from a top-tier powerhouse was of the highest value, with every word sincere and not the slightest bit perfunctory. Qian Zunzong's originally lazy posture tightened slightly. The corners of his mouth curved up quietly, and he pulled his hands out of his pockets to clasp them in front of him. Straightening his back slightly, he pretended to be calm on the outside, but in his heart, he was feeling incredibly pleased. Being praised in such a fancy manner by a top powerhouse of the continent and his own father, anyone would feel secretly smug, and a floating sensation instantly rushed to his heart. To the side, Qian Zunji silently put down his pen, turning into a professional spectator, his gaze incredibly clear. As the saying goes, the onlookers see more clearly than the players. He knew his father's tricks all too well. The harder he praised, the deeper the trap he was digging. It was definitely a case of being unusually nice for no reason. There was bound to be a hidden motive. There's a catch. Sure enough, Qian Daliu praised him for the time it took to drink a cup of tea, lauding Qian Zunzong's ability, vision, and talent in every way. Just as his younger son was about to float up to the sky, he suddenly shifted the topic, and the tone changed completely. However, with this great success, the one who deserves the most credit is still Ji Yu Zhenyan by your side, who is highly skilled in formations and spiritual plant cultivation. The praise in Qian Daliu's eyes shifted instantly, replaced by a burning desire for talent, his tone filled with immense regret. This person is truly exceptionally gifted. At such a young age, he is already proficient in formation layout and pattern restoration, and is even better at spiritual plant cultivation and spiritual energy channeling. More than half the credit for this complete transformation of the mimicry environment lies with him. For such a top-tier talent who is proficient in both paths to be kept only for these kinds of chores is truly a waste of talent, a great injustice to his abilities. In an instant, the joy in Qian Zunzong's heart was completely wiped clean. Alarm bells rang in his mind as he instantly saw through all the tricks. Good grief, so all that praise earlier was just a setup. The old man's real intention lay elsewhere. He wasn't acknowledging his ability at all. He had simply set his sights on Ji Yu Zhenyan, the capable subordinate he had painstakingly scouted, meticulously nurtured, and obtained through signing in. This old fox who had lived for decades really had deep schemes. As the Grand Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall, he actually went out of his way to scheme against his own son and poach his own son's subordinate. Qian Daliu was still tirelessly laying the groundwork and lobbying, trying to manipulate Qian Zunzong, whose mindset he hoped had softened. Zonger, now that the project has concluded, keeping Ji Yu Zhenyan at the academy is of no great use. Our Spirit Hall's engineering department has suffered from a lack of talent for years, with a gap in succession for the formation and spiritual plant lineages. We are in dire need of a top-tier talent like him who can take charge of a department. Why not transfer him to the Supreme Pontiff Palace to oversee the formation, repair, and spiritual plant cultivation of the entire palace? This would allow his talents to be fully utilized while also strengthening the foundation of Spirit Hall. It would be a good thing for both him and the sect. The dagger was revealed once the map was unrolled. His true objective was completely exposed. Qian Zunzong laughed out of sheer anger on the spot. Raising his hand in a sharp gesture to stop him, he directly cut off Qian Daliu's empty promises. His recently straightened back slumped instantly as he returned to his slipshod manner, retorting without any politeness. Stop right there, Dad, you're fucking, you really lack some senior dignity here. He complained carelessly, not giving his powerful father any face at all, his resentment fully loaded. I funded the project, provided the herbs, oversaw the entire operation, and kept a close eye on the schedule, working myself to the bone for over 10 days to finally turn that mess into a top-tier mimicry environment. You just lay back and watch the show the whole time, and now you want to swoop in, reap the rewards, and poach my man. Others poach from their rivals or outsiders, but you're great, you specialize in screwing over your own biological son. If word gets out, how am I, Qian Zunzong, supposed to hold my head up in Spirit City? As the Grand Second Young Master, I can't even protect my own subordinate and have to be intercepted by my own father. It's utterly humiliating. His blunt and down-to-earth complaints instantly filled the solemn Supreme Pontiff Palace with a cheerful atmosphere of spectating the drama. Qian Zunji's shoulders shook violently as he buried his head to desperately suppress his laughter, feeling incredibly satisfied in his heart. For so many years, he had been crazily exploited by his father, working hard without complaint, daring to feel angry but not to speak out. Now, someone had finally confronted their father head-on and roasted him crazily. It was truly gratifying. Having his scheme exposed in public by his own son and being called out for lacking senior dignity, Qian Daliu's majestic old face grew slightly warm. His aura instantly collapsed by half, and he cleared his throat awkwardly twice to force his dignity back. I am not stealing your man, I simply cherish talent, Qian Daliu defended himself solemnly, trying hard to maintain his dignity as the Supreme Pontiff. Ji Yu Zhenyan's talent is rare, and keeping him confined to a corner of the academy is wasting his potential. Entering my Supreme Pontiff Palace, his status, resources, and authority would all be top tier. This is for the sake of his future, not out of selfishness. Stop making empty promises, I'm not buying it. Qian Zunzong waved his hand, completely stubborn and firm in his attitude. He is my man, and first come, first served. The resources, respect, and authority I give him are not a single bit inferior to yours, old man. Following me won't make him feel wrong at all. As the Grand Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall and a top powerhouse of the continent, poaching your own son's subordinate is truly cheapening your status. Looking at his younger son, who was extremely protective of his people and completely stubborn, Qian Daliu completely lost his temper. He couldn't bring himself to hit him, his scoldings went unheeded, and when he tried to reason, he was retorted into silence instead. Having lived for hundreds of years and awed the world, he was utterly powerless against his own rebellious and casual younger son. After a moment of stalemate, Qian Daliu could only compromise helplessly and take the initiative to back down. Fine, I won't force his transfer, but the talent gap in the engineering department is a fact, and we cannot simply sit by and do nothing forever. Since you refuse to let him go, let Ji Yu Zhen Yunyan teach the disciples of the engineering department some basic formation repair and spiritual plant cultivation methods in his spare time to train reserve talent for Spirit Hall. This isn't too much to ask, is it? Qian Zunzong raised his eyebrows, thought for a couple of seconds, and reluctantly nodded. This compromise was fair enough. It preserved his core subordinate, prevented his father from getting his way, and gave the other party a way out without him losing anything. If he continued to hold out stubbornly, it would make him look petty instead. After all, his father was someone who wouldn't release the hawk until he saw the hare. Fine, with a face that looked as if he had suffered a massive loss, he solemnly established the bottom line. Only the basics, no core, exclusive techniques are to be taught whatsoever. There's no room for negotiation. Deal, Qian Daoliu agreed immediately, an imperceptible smile of success flashing in his eyes. With his goal achieved, Qian Zunzong didn't want to stay for even a second longer, fearing that his old fox of a father would dream up some new scheme to trap him. Too lazy to say another word, he turned and left, muttering complaints under his breath in a voice just loud enough for Qian Daoliu to hear clearly. Unbelievable, so all that praise earlier was just a scheme. As the Grand Supreme Pontiff, instead of focusing on major matters, he spends every day scheming against his own son. He truly lacks senior dignity, without the slightest resemblance to an elder. As his complaints echoed in the solemn Supreme Pontiff Palace, Qian Zunzong walked out of the hall with elegant steps and a casual posture, grumbling all the way. Before leaving, he even casually kicked the doorframe gently, fully displaying his carefree, slacker nature. Silence instantly returned to the hall. Looking at the empty doorway, Qian Daoliu shook his head with a bitter smile, his eyes filled with indulgence and helplessness without the slightest hint of anger. To the side, Qian Zunji looked at his father's frustrated state, and then at the mountain of documents before him. Suddenly, he felt that his dull and tedious official duties had instantly become much more amusing, and his speed in reviewing the files even accelerated slightly. Chapter 36, Setting off for the Leon sect. After resolving the renovation and inspection matters for the Wuhan Academy's simulated training grounds, and engaging in a battle of wits with his old man, Qian Daoliu, at the Supreme Pontiff Palace, along with venting his frustrations, Qian Zunzong had completely lost interest in remaining in Spirit City. The schemes at the Supreme Pontiff Palace were truly boring. His old fox of a father only thought about poaching his talent, while his honest older brother, Qian Zunji, was still buried in paperwork, acting as a hard-working laborer his entire life. Rather than staying in Spirit City to be schemed against by his father, it was better to go out for a stroll, relax, and take care of some serious business along the way. Consequently, Qian Zunzong simply gathered his entourage and set off immediately. Gui Mei and Yu Guan accompanied him closely, the reticent Shen Yi stayed by his side at every step, and finally, there was the Leon sect's Ma Jinyan, who had not returned to his sect for a long time. The four gathered without any delay and boarded Qian Zunzong's exclusive carriage, the Cloud Step Fuguang carriage. As the formation's faint light flickered, the Cloud Step Fuguang carriage slowly ascended, piercing through layers of clouds and speeding toward a destination 1,000 miles away. The goal was clear, the Leon sect, one of the continent's Earth 3 sects, famous throughout the world for its 9 heavens rainbow phoenix spirit. The Earth 3 sects were the Undying sect, which inherited the healing spirit 9 hard begonia, the Battle Soul sect, which possessed the offensive 7 kill sword spirit, and the Leon sect, which held the assault type 9 heavens rainbow phoenix spirit. These three great sects shared a common characteristic. Their inherited spirits were passed down through a single lineage. Most other direct disciples of the sects possessed spirits that differed from the inherited one, such as the 9 spirit begonia flower, the agility kill sword, the Leon phoenix, and so on. Basically, only the sect masters and their direct single heirs would awaken the inherited spirit. This resulted in the three sects having powerful spirits, but their overall influence was not very large, and there were not many top-tier powerhouses. Inside the carriage, it was spacious and luxurious, surrounded by spiritual energy, and incredibly comfortable. Gui Mei and Yu Guan sat on one side, having been exploited by Qian Zunzong many times, the two were already accustomed to it. Shen Yi remained in his usual cold and indifferent manner, closing his eyes to rest, his aura distant and aloof, not engaging in conversation with anyone else. Only Ma Jinyan felt restless, his gaze constantly looking down at the mountains and rivers rapidly receding below, his eyes hiding a trace of long-lost agitation, as well as surprise at this treasure capable of flying. He had left the Leon sect to travel and cultivate for several years, constantly moving across the continent and rarely returning to the sect. Having endured so many things, now, after several years, he had finally stepped onto the path back to his sect. It was hard not to feel 1,000 emotions in his heart. A 1,000-mile journey was nothing more than a few hours for the Cloud Step Fuguang carriage. Soon, the landscape below shifted dramatically. The entire sect was built against the mountains, surrounded by peaks, with scorching earth veins where flames rose all year round. The air was laden with rich fire attribute spirit power. Looking from afar, the entire mountain range was shrouded in a faint crimson firelight, and the majestic and overbearing aura of the sect rushed toward them. This was the Leon sect, one of the continent's famous Earth 3 sects. It had a profound foundation, produced many fire spirit masters, and occupied a pivotal position in the continent's spirit masters world. The Cloud Step Fuguang carriage slowly descended onto the open ground outside the Leon sect's mountain gate, its flowing light receding as it landed steadily. The group disembarked one after another, standing tall before the gate, each with a completely distinct temperament. Qian Zunzong had a casual and relaxed posture, his golden robe accentuating his tall figure, naturally exuding an innate nobility and aura. Gui Mei and Yu Guan were accustomed to the luxury of Shanyan Villa and didn't have much reaction. Shen Yi was cold and aloof, his aura distant and piercing. The group's outstanding temperaments, standing before the mountain gate, instantly attracted the gaze of all the guarding disciples. The Leon sect's mountain gate was grand and imposing, with the ancient characters for Leon carved in gold leaf into the stone, the brushwork vigorous and carrying a scorching aura. Several disciples at the entrance, dressed in red sect uniforms, stood tall and solemn, strictly guarding the sect's entrance. Noticing the strangers, several guarding disciples immediately stepped forward, raising their hands to block them. Their attitude was rigorous and polite, yet carried a firmness that brooked no trespassing. Everyone, please stop. This is the important territory of the Leon sect. Those who are not disciples of this sect or lack a sect pass may not enter without authorization. Please state your purpose and show your credentials. The disciples looked on with vigilance, carefully sizing up Qian Zunzong's group. The individuals had extraordinary temperaments and luxurious clothing, certainly not ordinary rogue spirit masters, but they were all unfamiliar faces never seen before at the Leon sect, so naturally, they dared not grant passage easily. Seeing this, Ma Jinyan took a step forward, his posture relaxed, his tone carrying a sense of peace from long-awaited return. Junior brothers, I am the Leon sect's young sect master, Ma Jinyan. I have been traveling for several years and have returned to the sect today. As the words fell, the guarding disciples looked at each other, their eyes filled with confusion. Most of them were new disciples who had joined in the last 2 years. When they joined, Ma Jinyan had already been traveling for many years and was rarely at the sect. Regarding this legendary young sect master, they had only heard the name but had never seen the person himself. The Ma Jingyan before them possessed a mature temperament, vastly different from the youthful appearance recorded in the sect's chronicles, so for a moment they were completely unable to recognize him. The disciples dared not grant passage easily, nor did they dare to be rude, so they could only bite the bullet and bow, saying, "Apologies, sir, we have only been here for a short time and have never seen the young sect master's face, so we cannot confirm your identity, please forgive us. Without a token, we truly dare not grant passage without authorization." Ma Jingyan was not angry at this, merely smiling helplessly. Having not returned for years, with new disciples replacing the old, it was normal for them not to recognize him. Just as the standoff at the gate was occurring, steady footsteps echoed from within the sect. An elder dressed in a crimson elder's robe with a resolute face walked out quickly, his aura steady and profound. It was the Leon sect's managing elder, Ma Mingyu. He had heard that strange visitors were lingering at the gate and had come specifically to inspect the situation. What has happened? Why is there a standoff at the gate? Ma Mingyu's voice was steady, his gaze sweeping over the people at the gate, finally landing on the tall and extraordinary-looking Ma Jingyan, his eyes carrying a trace of inquiry. Seeing the man, a warmth instantly lit up in Ma Jingyan's eyes, and he immediately called out, "Uncle Mingyu." This address was familiar and intimate, carrying the closeness exclusive to the interior of the sect. Ma Mingyu's body paused slightly, his confusion deepening. The young man before him was extraordinary and handsome, and he could vaguely discern some familiar contours, but for a moment he could not recall who it was. He focused his gaze, carefully tracing Ma Jingyan's features and bearing, and his sealed memories were instantly awakened. From a green youth to a steady young man, the transformation over several years had changed his figure and temperament, but the familiarity between those brows and eyes could not be wrong. You are Jingyan." Ma Mingyu's pupils contracted, his face full of disbelief, his voice trembling slightly. "It is me, Uncle Mingyu, I have returned." After confirming several times, he finally identified the other person completely. His originally steady face was instantly flooded with extreme ecstasy and excitement, and he immediately stepped forward 2 paces, his face full of joy. "Good heavens, Jingyan, it's you. It really is you. You have finally returned. You have been traveling for years with no news. The sect master and the rest of us have been worried every day, fearing you might have encountered misfortune. I never expected you to return safely today." Ma Mingyu was both surprised and happy, his tone full of emotion. As the Leon sect's young sect master, Ma Jingyan had gone out to train due to a spirit defect and had not returned for years. All the elders had been constantly worried. Now that he had returned after such a long separation, it was truly a grand joyous occasion. The group of guarding disciples was completely stunned. They never imagined that the stranger before them was actually the young sect master they had never seen. Calming his excitement, Ma Jingyan stepped aside, revealing Qian Zunzong and the others behind him, and introduced them solemnly. "Uncle Mingyu, I did not return to the sect alone this time. I have specifically brought a distinguished guest to be introduced to my father." He reached out and pointed toward the casual and extraordinary Qian Zunzong, his tone respectful and solemn. "This is Qian Zunzong, the second son of the current Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff, His Excellency Qian Douluo, and the second young master of Spirit Hall." This simple sentence was like a thunderclap exploding in Ma Mingyu's ears. The ecstasy on Ma Mingyu's face instantly froze, his pupils dilated sharply, his whole body shuddered, and his face was filled with extreme shock. The 6-year-old child before him, the Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff's second son, the second young master of Spirit Hall. That was the most top-tier powerful figure on the entire continent. Spirit Hall held the power of speech in the continent's Spirit Master's world and deterred thousands of sects. Even the Leon sect, one of the Earth 3 sects, had to show courtesy before Spirit Hall. Such a top-tier big shot had actually personally arrived at the Leon sect's mountain gate. A huge shock swept through his entire body. Ma Mingyu instantly reined in all his emotions, his expression becoming incomparably respectful, not daring to have the slightest bit of negligence. He never imagined that the young sect master, who had been out traveling for years, would actually have befriended such a noble figure and personally brought him back to the sect. So it is the second young master who has arrived. Ma Mingyu hurriedly bowed and saluted, his attitude extremely humble and respectful, his voice carrying a trace of nervousness and excitement. "I am Leon sect elder Ma Mingyu. I failed to welcome you from afar, and I hope the second young master will forgive my offense. The sect is simple and crude, failing to welcome such a distinguished guest from afar is truly a discourtesy." The guarding disciples on the side were completely stunned, not daring to breathe loudly, instantly understanding the noble status of the visitors. Qian Zunzong waved his hand casually, his tone relaxed and easygoing. "It is fine, no need for such formalities, just be at ease." Seeing that Qian Zunzong was approachable and had no airs at all, Ma Mingyu breathed a small sigh of relief and hurriedly turned to make a welcoming gesture, extremely respectful. "Young master, you have traveled from afar, it must have been an exhausting journey. Please, enter quickly, I will immediately have someone notify the sect master to come and welcome you personally." "No need for trouble," Ma Jingyan spoke up at the right time. "Uncle Mingyu, you take the young master and his group into the sect first and settle them in properly." "Young master, I would like to go see my father first." Go ahead." Having not seen him for years, he had long been missing his father, Sect Master Ma Mingchen, and was eager to return to the sect. Good. It is only right." Ma Mingyu nodded repeatedly, hurriedly arranging for people to lead the way, carefully and respectfully welcoming Qian Zunzong, Gui Mei, Yu Guan, and Shen Yi into the depths of the Leon sect. "Distinguished guests, please follow me." Meanwhile, Ma Jingyan walked with hurried steps, impatiently rushing toward the direction of the rear hall, his heart filled with the anticipation of reunion. Chapter 37, Leon Sect Sect Master Ma Mingchen. Leon Sect. Distinguished guests, please have some tea. The Leon Sect disciple in charge of reception served high-quality tea to entertain Qian Zunzong and his companions. Just as one disciple placed the tea beside Qian Zunzong, he imperceptibly pressed a secret report under the teacup from his sleeve. After bowing to Qian Zunzong, he turned and left. Without a doubt, this was an undercover Imperial Guards agent. Qian Zunzong picked up the teacup and opened the secret report to take a look. It mainly contained a rough overview of the Leon Sect's overall strength. Leon Sect, 1 title Douluo, 2 Spirit Douluo, 10 Spirit Saints, 23 Spirit Emperors, several other Spirit Masters, totaling 1,326 people, with 1,030 Spirit Masters. As expected of one of the Earth 3 sects, even though it has fallen on hard times, the sect's strength is not inferior to the lower 4 sects. In fact, the general situation of the Leon Sect had already been delivered to Qian Zunzong's desk beforehand. A few years ago, when Sect Master Ma Mingchen was resisting a sudden, massive spirit beast tide, he fought against 3 80,000-year level spirit beasts. Unfortunately, he was poisoned by the source toxin of a poison-scaled mad snake and was forced to retreat step by step. It was only after support from the Battle Soul sect and the Undying sect that the spirit beast tide was pushed back, but this caused his spirit source to suffer a severe, deep-seated ailment. Even with the healing from the Undying sect's 9 hard begonia, his other injuries were fully recovered, but the injury to his spirit source had taken deep root and could not be removed. Over time, his energy and strength declined severely. His original cultivation as a level 95 super Douluo could now barely reach level 92, and his lifespan had been drastically reduced, with at most half a year left to live. 40% of the sect's disciples and elders had left, and their strength had plummeted significantly. System, sign in at the Leon sect. Ding, detected that the host is at the Leon sect of the Earth 3 sects. Sign in successful. Sign in cannot be repeated here. Reward, external spirit bone, holy flame heaven desolate palm. The host can absorb it, it will automatically adapt to the host's current bearing limit, perfect fusion. An external spirit bone, quite nice. External spirit bones are very rare, second only to 100,000 year spirit bones in rarity. They can evolve as the spirit master's cultivation improves. Once fully fused, even if the spirit master falls, the spirit bone cannot be dropped. At this moment, several old men walked over together. These were several of the most senior elders of the Leon sect. Their expressions were solemn, their brows locked with an inextricable grief and worry, and their intersecting gazes were filled with confusion about the future of the sect. In the center of the crowd, a figure was being carefully supported as they walked, becoming the focus of everyone in the great hall at this moment. On the left, Ma Jinyan's clothes were stained with faint dust. He firmly supported the old man beside him with both hands, his movements respectful and careful, his fingertips even trembling slightly in an imperceptible way. The person he was supporting was none other than the current sect master of the Leon sect, Sect Master Ma Mingchen. The once mighty Leon sect master, who had shaken the continent and held dominion over his region, no longer possessed even a shred of his former overlord demeanor. His long, snow-white hair was dry and messy, draped over his shoulders without any luster. His originally firm and majestic face was as pale as paper, devoid of any blood, his lips dry and tinged with blue, and his aura was weak and scattered. His internal spirit power was nearly exhausted, and he couldn't even stand on his own, relying entirely on his son and the elders to barely remain upright. Every weak breath he took carried a slight tremor, his chest rose and fell faintly, and a low, wheezing cough could be vaguely heard. Extreme weakness lingered over his entire body, as if a gentle breeze could completely knock this elderly sect master over. No one could imagine that this old man, who seemed to be in the twilight of his years and nearing the end of his life, was the former helmsman of the Leon sect who had once dominated the spirit master's world with his blazing fire spirit, causing countless forces to fear him. This old man greets the second young master. Upon hearing that the son of the Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff had arrived, Sect Master Ma Mingchen hurriedly braced himself to get up and had everyone support him to the Great Hall. Because the Leon sect was currently in a precarious situation, if Spirit Hall were to make a move, I fear. Therefore, he didn't even have time to ask about his son's situation and rushed to the Great Hall. Sect Master Ma, there is no need for such formalities. This young master is just here to escort a subordinate back to the sect and, incidentally, to relax a bit. Qian Zunzong naturally understood the other party's intentions and waved his hand dismissively. Hearing this, Sect Master Ma Mingchen finally breathed a sigh of relief. Afterward, everyone slowly helped Sect Master Ma Mingchen to the Sect Master's seat at the head of the hall. The hard red flame jade chair seemed unable to support his thin body. He slumped against the backrest, his eyelids drooping, and it took a long while for him to barely stabilize his disordered aura. Father, please go and rest, your health is what matters most. Ma Jinyan stood by the seat, his voice hoarse and dry, his eyes reddened, filled with heartache and guilt. If he hadn't been impulsive and gone out back then, he wouldn't have ended up with a shattered spirit and his cultivation completely destroyed, nor would he have caused his elderly father such worry and toil. Sect Master Ma Mingchen slowly lifted his heavy eyelids, his cloudy gaze falling upon his only son. Watching the desolation and despair in his eyes, and seeing his wretched state with all his cultivation destroyed, a sharp, piercing pain suddenly struck his heart, as if raging fire were burning it, making him almost unable to breathe. No, the second young master is here, how could my Leon sect be impolite? He raised his withered, stick-like hand, covered in protruding veins, and gently patted Ma Jinyan's shoulder, the force so weak it was almost imperceptible. Jinyan, tell your father and the elders everything in detail, there's no need to hide anything. Sect Master Ma Mingchen's voice was weak and hoarse, his breathing intermittent, and every word seemed to exhaust the last of his strength. Ma Jinyan suppressed the surging bitterness and grief in his heart, took a deep breath, and slowly recounted the entire sequence of events, his trip to Slaughter City, the eruption of his spirit, his harming of living beings, and finally being struck by the Supreme Pontiff, which shattered his spirit and destroyed his cultivation in an instant, leading to him becoming a slave until Qian Zunzong intervened to save him. Throughout the process, he did not add any embellishments, nor did he intentionally try to complain, he simply stated the life and death ordeal in the desperate situation calmly. But the more plain the narration, the more it made the elders present tremble, and the oppressive atmosphere in the great hall grew even heavier. After hearing the whole story, Sect Master Ma Mingchen remained silent for a long time. Emotions surged in his cloudy eyes, heartache, anger, unwillingness, and even more, endless helplessness. He was heartbroken that the son he had placed high hopes on and carefully cultivated had become a useless person overnight. He felt helpless that the Leon sect was declining day by day, no longer possessing its former prosperity, unable to even protect his only son. After a long while, he slowly closed his eyes, and a heavy sigh slowly spread through the dead silent great hall, filled with vicissitudes and sorrow. In his life, he had managed the Leon sect for decades, conscientious and meticulous, exhausting his efforts. His whole life had been spent running around and toiling for the prosperity of the sect and the survival of its disciples, guarding the volcanic mountain range and ensuring the stability of the sect, never slacking off for a single moment. He had originally planned that when he grew old and retired, he would steadily hand over the thriving Leon sect to his son, Ma Jinyan, letting him inherit the position of sect master, continue the Leon sect's 1,000-year heritage, and keep it established among the Earth 3 sects of the continent. But the way of heaven is unpredictable, and things in the world are hard to foresee. No one had ever thought that the talented and promising Ma Jinyan would encounter such a devastating disaster, with his spirit shattered and his cultivation destroyed, completely severing his path as a spirit master. A moment later, Sect Master Ma Mingchen opened his eyes again. The grief in his eyes gradually subsided, replaced by deep gratitude. He raised his eyes to look at Qian Zunzong, who was standing quietly to the side of the great hall, his gaze sincere and solemn. At this moment, Qian Zunzong stood tall, his clothes fluttering, his aura calm and distant. Even though he was young, he carried a kingly demeanor of looking down upon all living beings, steady and restrained. Sect Master Ma Mingchen knew that in the desperate situation where Ma Jinyan's spirit was shattered, his vitality was fading, and he had completely become a useless person, this kindness was enough to be considered a debt of rebirth. Second young master, Sect Master Ma Mingchen braced his weak body, barely sitting up a bit straighter, his tone full of sincerity and earnestness. If it weren't for you intervening to save my son, he would surely have fallen to his death. You have a great kindness to my Ma family and to my Leon sect, this old man will keep it in his heart and never dare to forget it for all eternity. As his voice fell, Sect Master Ma Mingchen raised his hand with difficulty and reached into a primitive red spirit tool at his waist. This spirit tool had accompanied him for decades, storing the treasures he had collected throughout his life, and was one of the tokens of inheritance for the Leon sect Master. His fingertips trembled slightly as he fumbled inside for a moment, and finally, he took out a strange bone that was entirely crimson and surrounded by flowing light. This spirit bone was transparent throughout, like solidified flames, with layers of fine red halos flowing on its surface. Wisps of pure fire attribute spirit power overflowed continuously, lingering around it. Just by resting quietly in his palm, it made the fire attribute spirit power in the entire Great Hall grow increasingly rich and scorching. This is a fire spirit torso spirit bone, with a limit of 60,000 years, which this old man obtained when I ventured into a spirit beast's secret realm in my early years. Sect Master Ma Mingchen held the spirit bone, his tone extremely solemn. The quality is top-notch, containing the extremely pure source power of the bright fire attribute. It can temper the physical body, amplify spirit power, and also nourish a spirit master's source and repair injuries throughout the body. Today, this old man will give this item to the young master as a small token of gratitude. I hope the young master will not refuse. A 60,000-year quality spirit bone is an extremely rare treasure throughout the entire Douluo Continent. Even the core inherited spirit bones of top sects mostly do not exceed 40,000 to 50,000 years in age. Each piece is enough to trigger competition and slaughter among major forces, and its value is immeasurable. The few Leon sect elders present saw this, and a trace of reluctance and heartache flashed in their eyes, but no one spoke to stop it. They knew in their hearts that compared to Ma Jinyan's life, and compared to the hope of the sect's survival, a 60,000-year spirit bone was simply not worth mentioning. Qian Zunzong's life-saving kindness was far from being fully repaid by this spirit bone. Qian Zunzong's gaze fell upon that shimmering fire spirit bone, a faint trace of approval flashing in his eyes, but he did not immediately reach out to take it. A 60,000-year spirit bone is indeed precious and an opportunity that is hard to come by in the hands of any spirit master. But for him now, ordinary 10,000-year spirit bones are no longer scarce. What he truly cares about has never been the treasure before him, but the Leon sect, a force with deep foundations, the loyal sect disciples, and the Ma family father and son before him, who are at their wits' end but full of sincerity. Seeing him not move, Sect Master Ma Mingchen became even more respectful in his heart. Then, he changed the subject, his voice taking on a bit of desolation and helplessness, every word weeping blood, every sentence sincere. Second young master, this old man has a matter I implore you to agree to. Chapter 38, Source Tracing Soul Ascension Pill, the Leon sect submits. Second young master, this old man has a request. I beg you to grant it. He looked down at Ma Jinyan, who stood beside him with his head bowed in silence, his eyes filled with darkness. His heart ached even more, and his voice grew increasingly hoarse. My son, Jinyan, is exceptionally talented and pure of heart. He was originally the best successor for the next generation of the Leon sect, and in time, he would have surely been able to shoulder the great responsibilities of the sect. But now, his spirit is shattered, his cultivation is completely ruined, and he has been reduced to a mere mortal. Our Leon sect may seem to still have its foundation intact, but in reality, undercurrents have long been surging. The internal factions are complex, and many elders have their own designs. In the past, with this old man keeping watch, I could still suppress the various disturbances and stabilize the sect's situation. But I have been afflicted with a strange poison, my origin is depleted, and my lifespan is almost at its end. I know my days are numbered and I cannot hold on for much longer. As soon as these words were spoken, the bodies of the several elders present shook. Tears instantly welled up in their eyes, and their hearts were filled with immense grief. They had long noticed that the sect master's body was extremely decayed, but they had never heard him speak so bluntly about matters of life and death. Hearing it now, their hearts felt as though they were being pierced by knives. Sect Master Ma Mingchen suppressed the sorrow in his heart and continued in a deep voice. Once I die, the leaderless Leon sect will inevitably collapse from within and fall apart. At that time, various forces will lie as like tigers watching their prey, ambition will breed within the sect, and disputes will arise everywhere. Jinyan is now a useless person with no spirit power to rely on and no cultivation to protect himself. If he stays in the Leon sect, not only will he be unable to establish himself, but he will also become a pawn to be manipulated and plotted against by various forces, perhaps even bringing about a fatal disaster and ending up with a tragic death. He knew all too well the sinister nature of people within the sect, and he also knew the cruelty of this law of the jungle spirit master's world. Having no cultivation and no strength is the ultimate sin. In the face of endless ambition and conflicts of interest, so-called father-son affection, the sect master's benevolence, and the righteousness between master and disciple are completely fragile. Now that Jinyan is following you, I must trouble you to take good care of him. Sect Master Ma Mingchen raised his head, his gaze earnest and his tone extremely solemn, almost pleading. From now on, his life, death, and future will be decided by you, young master. This old man does not ask him to bring glory to our family, nor do I ask him to revitalize the Leon sect. I only ask that he can live peacefully and meet a natural end. As these words fell, a dead silence enveloped the great hall. The eyes of several elders turned red, and they lowered their heads one after another. No one spoke, their hearts filled with unspeakable sorrow. The once magnificent young master of the Leon sect, the future helmsman of the sect, was now being personally entrusted to an outsider by his own father just to secure a path to survival. How tragic, how desolate. Father and son looked at each other with tearful eyes. Endless bitterness and grief lingered in every corner of the great hall, making the elders' hearts ache so much they could not bear to watch. Sect Master Ma Mingchen took a deep breath, suppressing the emotion surging in his heart, and continued to slowly explain everything he had already arranged, his tone as calm as if he were delivering his last will. I had already anticipated today's situation. Months ago, I secretly took stock of and divided all of the Leon sect's resources, assets, treasures, and soul tool reserves. After my death, a portion of the resources will be entirely distributed to the ordinary disciples of the sect. They have followed the Leon sect for many years, performing their duties diligently and remaining fiercely loyal. Yet the sect has been in constant turmoil for years, and they have never enjoyed much fortune. Instead, they have repeatedly been placed in danger. These resources can be considered compensation from me and the Leon sect for what we owe them. It will be enough for them to leave the sect in the future, settle down, establish their careers, live peaceful lives, or band together to establish themselves in the world. Cough, cough. Another portion of the heavy treasures and resources has already been sent to the Battle Soul sect and the Undying sect. Our Leon sect stands alongside those two sects as the Earth 3 sects. We have been on friendly terms for generations and have a long-standing alliance. With this favor and these generous gifts, the two sects will surely keep their promise. After my death, they will look after the remaining disciples of our Leon sect, ensuring they can disperse safely without being hunted down and slaughtered by various forces, and without being bullied or manipulated by evil people. Every word and sentence was a thorough consideration, every step of planning was for the disciples of the sect and for his own son. He had long looked past life and death. The only things he could not let go of were the disciples who had followed him for many years, the sect he had protected his entire life, and his only son. He exhausted all the energy of his remaining life to arrange all paths of retreat, solely wishing that after his death, the disciples of the Leon sect could live in peace, and his son could stay far from disputes and preserve his life. Such breadth of mind and such responsibility brought hot tears to the eyes of all the elders present, their hearts filled with an indescribable mix of admiration and grief. Standing quietly to the side, Qian Zunzong took all of this in, sighing softly in his heart. Sect Master Ma Mingchen was indeed a worthy and competent sect master. Having ruled the Lian sect for decades, he cared for all living things, empathized with his disciples, valued relationships, and possessed a grand vision. Before his death, he did not cling to power or position, nor did he secretly hoard treasures. With his whole heart, he only sought a path of survival for his disciples and a way of life for his offspring, exhausting everything to settle all affairs. Of course, while the sincerity and sorrow in Sect Master Ma Mingchen's words were real, and the helplessness and determination in his heart were genuine, Qian Zunzong did not just passively believe him. Long before stepping into the Lian sect, the imperial guards under his command had already secretly investigated all the internal affairs of the Lian sect. Sect Master Ma Mingchen's physical condition, the sect's internal hidden dangers, and all of his arrangements and considerations had already been reported up through the ranks with absolute clarity. Everything before his eyes matched the intelligence gathered by the imperial guards perfectly, without the slightest falsehood. Looking at the Lian sect before him, which was on the brink of collapse yet still retained its foundation, looking at this group of sincere and fiercely loyal sect disciples, and looking at the Ma family father and son who were driven to a dead end and filled with despair, a thought quietly formed in Qian Zunzong's mind. He was currently looking to build his own top-tier force, establish a foothold on the continent, and reach the absolute peak. What his subordinates lacked most was a deeply founded sect foundation and resilient spirit masters. As one of the Earth 3 sects, the Lian sect had a legacy of 1,000 years and a deep foundation. With countless disciples and a continuous stream of strong experts, its fire attribute spirit masters possessed formidable combat power and had always enjoyed an illustrious reputation in the continent's spirit masters world. If he could completely subjugate the Lian sect and bring it under his command, it would undoubtedly cause the foundation of his own force to skyrocket, gaining him a group of loyal, usable, and top-tier combatants. This was an excellent, guaranteed win opportunity. His mind made up, Qian Zunzong was no longer silent. He slowly took a step forward, and his cool voice echoed leisurely in the dead silent great hall. It was neither fast nor slow, yet it carried a power that penetrated the heart. Sect Master Ma's painstaking efforts, empathy for his disciples, and deep fatherly love were truly admirable. Hearing this, everyone instantly raised their eyes, their gazes converging on him in unison as they quietly awaited his next words. Qian Zunzong raised his hand, and a pill that was entirely lustrous and swirling with flowing light slowly emerged in his palm. The pill was round and full, surrounded by a faint seven-colored halo. Wisps of pure medicinal efficacy slowly drifted out, dispersing in the great hall. It instantly purified the oppressive, sorrowful atmosphere in the hall, and a rich, fundamental life force and restorative power washed over them, warming the bodies and minds of everyone present. This pill is called the Source Tracing Soul Ascension Pill. Qian Zunzong's voice was plain, yet every word shook the heart. It is a peerless divine pill of the world with heaven-defying efficacy. It can repair all injuries to a spirit's origin, damaged foundations, and severed spirit power. No matter how completely the spirit is shattered, how severely the foundation is damaged, or how terrifying the poison is, everything can be completely reshaped, thoroughly eradicating all defects, allowing one's cultivation to return to its peak, or even surpass the past. As his voice fell, the pupils of everyone in the great hall instantly contracted, their breathing hitched, and their faces were filled with shocked disbelief. Repairing a shattered spirit and reshaping a spirit master's foundation. The spirit is the foundation of a spirit master. A shattered spirit means a dead end for a spirit master. This is an ironclad law universally acknowledged on the continent. From ancient times to the present, countless exceptionally gifted spirit masters have been rendered useless for life due to damaged spirits and shattered foundations, with no possibility of turning things around. Yet the pill before them could actually defy heaven and change fate, repairing injuries to the spirit's origin. This was no longer just an ordinary miraculous medicine, but a divine object that could defy heaven and change fate. Ma Jinyan's body shook violently. The dead darkness in his eyes was instantly lit up by a glimmer of light. He looked at the pill in Qian Zunzong's palm in disbelief, a tempest raging in his heart. Sect Master Ma Mingchen's pupils also contracted, his weak body tensing slightly, his eyes filled with shock and emotion. Qian Zunzong's gaze swept over the two of them, and he continued in a deep voice, this Source Tracing Soul Ascension Pill has peerless efficacy. It can not only completely heal Ma Jinyan's shattered spirit and damaged foundation, allowing him to recast his path as a spirit master and erase all injuries and defects. By the same token, it can also thoroughly eradicate the strange poison accumulated in Sect Master Ma's body, restore your depleted fundamental life force, heal your years of old injuries and wear, free you from the torment of illness, extend your lifespan, and grant you a new life. The hearts of everyone present trembled violently. Their eyes were fixed on that seven-colored pill, their breathing rapid, their minds deeply shaken. But just as everyone was filled with hope, Qian Zunzong changed the subject, stating the sole condition, which was also a non-negotiable bottom line. But I never save people for free. If you want to obtain this pill and change your fate against the heavens, you must agree to one condition. From this day forward, the Lian sect will no longer exist in this world. All disciples, elders, resources, and foundations of the Lian sect will come under my command, and everyone will submit to me. Everything that once belonged to the Lian sect will be fully merged into this young master's force. These words fell clearly, echoing throughout the entire Qian Great Hall. Everyone's expression froze, and they understood instantly. This was a surrender, a submission. The Lian sect was completely changing hands, and the several hundred-year-old sect was coming to an end. The several elders looked at each other. There was not the slightest resistance in their eyes. Instead, they all breathed a sigh of relief, and a look of joy at finding survival in a desperate situation welled up in their eyes. They had long seen the situation clearly. The sect master's lifespan was nearing its end. The young master had been reduced to a useless person, and the Lian sect had long existed only in name. Its destruction was only a matter of time. Rather than waiting for the sect to fall apart, the disciples to be displaced and slaughtered, it was better to take the opportunity to submit to Qian Zunzong. At least this way, the sect disciples would not have to flee in all directions or become displaced, and the Ma family father and son could also obtain a lease on life, or even change their fate against the heavens. This was already the best outcome in a desperate situation, a colossal opportunity. We are willing to submit. Sect Master Ma Mingchen spoke up in agreement. A great elder was the first to bow and salute, his tone firm. I am willing to lead the entire Lian sect to submit to the second young master. The other elders quickly followed suit, bowing and cupping their hands, their voices uniform and solemn. We are willing to submit. The general trend was set. No one refuted it. Sect Master Ma Mingchen exhaled a deep breath of turbid air, a flash of relief and determination crossing his cloudy eyes. He struggled to rise, barely standing his weak body upright, and bowed deeply to Qian Zunzong. As long as Jinyan's safety can be guaranteed, and the sect disciples can remain secure, this old man is willing to represent the Lian sect and have everyone submit. Within the great hall, everyone agreed, and no one objected. But just as everyone was overjoyed and awaiting a new life, Qian Zunzong spoke again, throwing out a cruel choice that instantly caused the newly relaxed atmosphere to freeze once more, becoming suffocatingly heavy. However, the source tracing soul ascension pill is heaven-defyingly rare. There is only one in this world, and there will never be a second. Launch announcement. Hello, dear friends. This book has officially launched. Thank you all so much for your companionship and support. I am grateful to every reader who has stopped by and stayed for this book. I sincerely ask for your support. Please subscribe to the official version, vote often, and show your encouragement. Your every bit of support is the greatest motivation for my writing. I will certainly live up to your expectations and continue to deliver exciting content. If you have any opinions or suggestions, please feel free to leave a comment in the comments section. Whether it concerns errors in the text, issues with the world building, or if you have valuable suggestions for the future plot, please feel free to speak your mind. I will read, reply, and make corrections to improve this book. Thank you all. Chapter 39, Father-Son Choice, Reshaping the Spirit. However, the source tracing soul ascension pill is heaven-defying and rare. There's only one in this world, and there will never be a second one. Qian Zunzong looked at the father and son of the Ma family with a calm gaze and slowly revealed the cruel truth. There is only one pill, which means there is only one opportunity. You two, father and son, can only choose one. Either the pill is given to Ma Jinyan. He can recast his shattered spirit, repair all foundational flaws, return his cultivation to its peak, and even break through shackles to reach a higher level. As for you, Sect Master Ma Mingchen, your source is exhausted, your lifespan is severed, and you are beyond saving. After some time, you will perish. Or, the pill is given to Sect Master Ma Mingchen. You can eradicate the toxins in your body, repair your withered source, extend your lifespan, and regain vitality. Meanwhile, Ma Jinyan will remain an ordinary person, forever cut off from the path of a spirit master. A choice between two, one living and one dying, one flourishing and one withering. One pill determines the fate of the father and son. It is extremely cruel, yet extremely fair. The entire Leon sect hall fell into instant silence, so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the father and son of the Ma family, filled with sympathy, pity, and anxiety. No one dared to speak. This choice was too cruel. On one side was the life of his own father, and on the other was the future of his son. No matter what was chosen, it would be a heart-wrenching regret. After a brief silence, Ma Jinyan showed almost no hesitation. He suddenly raised his head, his eyes red, tears streaming out, his voice choked yet incomparably firm. I give it up. Give this pill to my father. He bit his lip tightly as tears fell continuously, splashing onto the floor and creating small droplets. His tone carried an unshakable resolve. I was raised by my father. Without my father, there would be no Ma Jinyan today. My cultivation, my spirit, and my future can all be discarded. It does not matter if I am a cripple, I can be an ordinary person and live a peaceful life. But I cannot be without my father. I want my father to live. To him, cultivation and prospects were all external things. The affection between father and son was the most precious thing in the world. He would rather be ordinary his whole life and become immortal just to exchange it for his father to live safely. His sobbing words were heart-touching, and the elders present all had red eyes, their hearts filled with bitterness. However, upon hearing this, Sect Master Ma Mingchen slowly shook his head. This weak and elderly Sect Master had no joy in his eyes, only determination and love. He tremblingly raised his hand, gently wiping the tears from his son's face, his voice hoarse yet incomparably firm. Silly child, no. Father has lived a whole life, managing the sect for decades. I have lived enough. But you are different. You are still young, and your life has just begun. Do you know what it means to have no spirit power, no cultivation, and no spirit in this chaotic world, in this spirit master world where the strong are respected? Sect Master Ma Mingchen's eyes were filled with heartache and reluctance, every word heavy. It means you will always be inferior. It means you will be bullied for the rest of your life. It means you will have no dignity and be at the mercy of others. Father would rather sacrifice himself and exhaust his last bit of life force than let you live your life bowing and scraping without any dignity. This pill should be given to you. Father wants you to return to the peak so that you can contribute under Qian Zunzong. The father and son pushed the offer back and forth, each yielding to the other. One gave up his future to save his father's life, and the other gave up his life to save his son's path. Inside the hall, no one interrupted. There was only the sound of sobbing rising and falling. A tragic atmosphere enveloped the entire scene, weighing heavily on everyone's hearts. Father, don't be foolish. I don't want any future. I just want you to live. Ma Jinyan grabbed Sect Master Ma Mingchen's arm tightly, tears streaming down as he choked and lost his voice several times. Listen to me. Sect Master Ma Mingchen's eyes were stern, but his tone was full of love. As my son, how can you be an ordinary person for the rest of your life, subject to contempt and bullying? Our Ma family bloodline has never produced mediocre people. The two remained at a stalemate, arguing endlessly, neither willing to monopolize this sole chance of survival. After a long time, several Leon sect elders could no longer hold back and stepped forward to persuade them, their tone earnest and moving. Ma Jinyan, you are still young, and your future is promising. Sect Master has worked hard for the sect and the disciples for half his life, that is enough. Yes, young Sect Master, you have extraordinary talent. As long as your spirit is repaired, you will definitely be able to reach the peak and continue the glory of the Leon sect. Sect Master's sacrifice is worth it. Young Master, the dead are gone, and the living remain. This is Sect Master's final wish, you must not let him down. Only when you return to the peak can you comfort the Sect Master's painstaking efforts. Everyone took turns to persuade them, every sentence sincere and every word earnest. Looking at his father's resolute eyes and the earnest gazes of the elders, Ma Jinyan's mental defense completely collapsed. Endless grief and helplessness swept through his body. He fell to his knees heavily, tears gushing out, his whole body trembling violently. In the end, he could only lower his head with tears and sob in a hoarse voice, "Child, will follow father's arrangement." At this moment, the despair, grief, and reluctance in the youth's eyes were intertwined, making people feel incredibly heartbroken. He gave up the family affection he cherished most, shouldering his father's life and expectations, and accepted this heaven-defying opportunity. Seeing that his son finally agreed, Sect Master Ma Mingchen's tense body instantly relaxed. A smile of relief, gratification, and sorrow appeared on his face. He gently stroked Ma Jinyan's head and whispered, "Good child, live well, live with dignity, live with sharpness." The dust settled, and the ownership of the opportunity was decided. Sect Master Ma Mingchen slowly raised his head to face Qian Zunzong. His voice was solemn and grave, every word resonant, echoing throughout the hall. Today, in the name of the 13th Sect Master of the Leon sect, I formally announce the Leon sect is hereby dissolved. There will be no more Leon sect in the world. From now on, all disciples, elders, and resources of the Leon sect will fully submit to Qian Zunzong, join his ranks, and follow him forever, never to leave. The Leon sect, which had stood in the volcanic mountain range for hundreds of years and was ranked among the Earth 3 sects of the continent, with vast foundations and renowned fame, officially came to an end today. All the elders present bowed and saluted, their voices uniform and solemn, resounding through the heavens and earth. We are willing to surrender and swear to follow the second young master to the death. Looking at the Leon sect members who had completely submitted, and seeing the perfect outcome, a trace of faint satisfaction flashed in Qian Zunzong's eyes, and he was quite approving in his heart. By saving people and throwing out this opportunity, he had successfully conquered the entire Leon sect, gaining a group of loyal and top-tier fire attribute spirit masters. His forces had grown stronger again, which could be considered a full harvest. Immediately, the corners of Qian Zunzong's lips rose slightly as he spoke slowly. His voice rang out again, bringing endless surprise to everyone. Sect Master Ma Mingchen is sincere and righteous, loves his son deeply, and has lived his whole life for the public good. It is admirable. However, you do not have to die. As the words fell, everyone was stunned, looking up in confusion and full of astonishment. Qian Zunzong's palm flashed with a faint light, and a bright green herb appeared. The herb's leaves were stretched out, full of vitality, and wisps of life force continuously overflowed, surrounding him. Just being near it made people feel refreshed in body and mind, with their vitality surging. This is the life-condensing herb, which can replenish vitality and extend lifespan, Qian Zunzong explained indifferently. After you take it, you can increase your lifespan by an extra year. Although it cannot cure the poison, it is enough for you to safely witness Ma Jingyan reshape his spirit and return to his peak. This herb was not an immortal item, but for Sect Master Ma Mingchen at this moment, it was extremely precious. Upon hearing this, just as a glimmer of comfort arose in everyone's hearts, they heard Qian Zunzong change the subject and reveal an even more shocking heaven-defying opportunity. Not only that, I can also give you an even greater fortune. I can allow you to completely eradicate the toxins in your body, repair all source depletion, and fully heal your injuries. Not only will you be able to survive, but you will also be able to return to your peak and even possess terrifying strength comparable to a limit Douluo. Boom. As soon as these words were spoken, the whole place exploded. Everyone's pupils shrank, their faces filled with extreme shock, and their breathing stopped instantly. A dying sect master on the verge of death with a withered source could not only live but also fully heal, return to his peak, and even join the ranks of limit Douluo. This was simply a double fortune of heaven-defying fate. Sect Master Ma Mingchen himself was shocked, looking at Qian Zunzong in disbelief, his eyes full of astonishment and incredulity. Before anyone could recover, Qian Zunzong slowly stated the only constraint, but there are no free opportunities in the world. This fortune has one condition. You must be bound by my shackles for life, never step half a step outside the territory I designate, guard one side for the rest of your life, and never leave. It seemed like a restriction of freedom, but in reality, it was a supreme honor. No one knew that Qian Zunzong had already made up his mind to bestow the divine throne of protection and compassion upon Sect Master Ma Mingchen. Sect Master Ma Mingchen had a good sense of the big picture, a good character, and suitable strength. He was conscientious and responsible, making him truly suitable to inherit the divine throne of protection and compassion. The divine throne of protection and compassion contained vast and sacred energy, enough to easily wash away and purify the strange toxins accumulated in Sect Master Ma Mingchen's body for years, completely repair his withered and damaged source vitality, and smooth out all old injuries and depletion. Not only would it allow him to fully heal and greatly increase his lifespan, but it would also allow him to use the power of the divine throne to reshape his spirit power foundation, break through original shackles, and return to his peak. He was already level 95, and with the blessing of the throne, he would have terrifying combat power comparable to a limit Douluo. And the so-called shackles were also the constraints of the throne, which would also make him permanently used for his own purposes, guarding his own forces. Such an opportunity, placed across the entire continent, was a peerless fortune that could be met but not sought. After the shock, Sect Master Ma Mingchen did not hesitate at all. He bowed solemnly, his figure shaking, but his tone was incomparably firm. This old man is willing. Thank you, young master, for your grace of recreation. From now on, this old man will abide by the shackles for life, guard the territory, and swear to follow young master to the death, never to betray. Being able to live, being able to witness his son's peak rise, being able to return to his peak, and guarding one side again, he had no other requests, he was willing. Thus, all dust settled. Qian Zunzong nodded slightly, handed the life-condensing herb to Sect Master Ma Mingchen, and simultaneously handed the source-tracing soul ascension pill to Ma Jingyan. Alright, you two immediately go into seclusion to regulate your breathing and refine the medicinal power. The father and son solemnly accepted the treasures, full of awe and gratitude, and bowed again to thank him. Afterwards, the two sat down separately, crossed their legs to regulate their breathing, and began to refine the herb in the pill. Sect Master Ma Mingchen's process of refining the life-condensing herb was faster. The time of an incense stick passed in a flash, and the medicinal power of the emerald green herb fully merged into his limbs, bones, meridians, and source. His originally withered and snow-white long hair quietly recovered some black luster, his pale and haggard face gradually became ruddy and full, and his turbid eyes became clear and sharp again. In just one incense stick of time, Sect Master Ma Mingchen's originally decaying body, which was on the verge of death, was completely renewed. Although he had not escaped the desperate situation of being plagued by illness and having his lifespan exhausted, it was enough for him to live for another year. Your subordinate thanks the second young master for the grace of recreation. Sect Master Ma Mingchen knelt down to salute Qian Zunzong without hesitation. The latter saw this and waved his hand. Sect Master Ma Mingchen, there is no need for such courtesy. As for Ma Jingyan's refining process, it was much longer. The source-tracing soul ascension pill was a heaven-defying divine pill. Reshaping the spirit, repairing the foundation, and eliminating flaws was a massive project of changing one's heaven-defying fate. For a full half hour, inside the Leon sect hall, red rosy light flowed across the sky, and vast, boundless fire attribute spirit power gathered crazily, pouring into Ma Jingyan's body. Everyone stood quietly on the side, holding their breath and concentrating, witnessing this heaven-defying transformation from beginning to end. Ma Jingyan's body was glowing with boundless light. Under the nourishment of the pill's divine force, his shattered spirit source was pieced together, reshaped, and condensed bit by bit. His originally damaged and broken spirit power meridians were all repaired and connected, the flaws of his spirit over the years were thoroughly eliminated, and his innate talent was sublimated and transformed once again. Boundless, infinite spirit power erupted from his body, and the layered spirit power pressure swept across the entire hall, shocking people's hearts. Level 80, level 85, level 90, level 93, level 94. His spirit power level skyrocketed all the way, unstoppable and without any obstacles. When his spirit power finally settled at level 94 titled Douluo, a slight roar resounded between heaven and earth. First, 8 spirit rings lit up, and then a dazzling red 100,000-year spirit ring rose from under his feet, circling his body with a vast halo and majestic pressure. Behind him, a phoenix burning with blood-red flames appeared, its momentum magnificent. Half an hour later, Ma Jingyan slowly opened his eyes. Fire soared into the sky in his pupils, sharp and dazzling, as if the flames were reborn, burning away the gloom of the past and showing his sharpness. He stood up, his aura steady and vast, his spirit power thick and pure, and the fire attribute spirit power around his body was domineering and majestic, far exceeding the past. He had truly achieved nirvana rebirth. My spirit has completely gotten rid of its flaws and has become the heavenly soul neon phoenix. Seeing the father and son both reborn and their strength skyrocketing, all the elders and disciples of the Leon sect present were full of excitement, their eyes filled with hot tears. Sect Master Ma Mingchen was filled with emotion, full of awe and gratitude. He and Ma Jingyan knelt down to salute Qian Zunzong again, their tone sincere and solemn. Young master has recreated my father and son, and recreated everyone in the Leon sect. This grace and virtue, my Ma family and everyone in my sect will never forget, and we are willing to die for young master. Afterwards, Sect Master Ma Mingchen immediately gave orders to hold a grand banquet, setting up feasts everywhere, exhausting all the sect's reserves, and grandly thanking Qian Zunzong for the grace of recreation. The Leon mountain range was decorated with lanterns and festoons. The sorrow and depression of the past had all dissipated, replaced by the joy and excitement of rebirth. The volcanic mountain range, stretching for dozens of miles, glowed with red firelight, and rolling flames rose endlessly, witnessing the end of the 100-year-old Leon sect and also witnessing the nirvana rebirth of a father and son, opening a brand new chapter. Chapter 40, Returning, heading to the engineering department. The next day, Leon sect. Sect Master Ma Mingchen had prepared excellent guest rooms for Qian Zunzong and his party to rest in. Since a suitable location for building the city had not yet been found, Qian Zunzong did not bestow the divine throne of protection and compassion upon Sect Master Ma Mingchen for the time being. However, as the other party now had an extra year of lifespan, he was not too anxious. Sitting in his room, Qian Zunzong took out the external spirit bone rewarded by the system, the Saint Flame Heavenly Desolation Palm. Regarding the other 6 spirit bone slots, Qian Zunzong's requirement was at least the 100,000-year level, or even starting from fierce beasts. Since an external spirit bone could continuously increase its age with the growth of the spirit master's cultivation, Qian Zunzong did not have high requirements for it. After placing the spirit bone onto his right palm, Qian Zunzong activated his spirit power and began to absorb it. The intertwined golden and white flames slowly converged, and the Saint Flame Heavenly Desolation Palm gradually merged into his flesh and blood along the meridians of his arms. In less than half an incense stick of time, Qian Zunzong successfully absorbed it. His right palm was enhanced by the spirit bone, granting him an extremely powerful spirit bone skill, Heavenly Desolation Hand. With a single palm pressed forward into the void, the energy transformed into a boundless, heaven-covering giant palm that obscured the entire sky. The base of the palm was covered in barbaric runes, and a crimson aura of slaughter rolled and surged. The 5 giant fingers were like 5 sky-supporting pillars, crashing down with a boom. A single finger could crush an army's formation, scorching flames burned, and the earth collapsed layer by layer. It could be used for long-range attacks, close combat, control, and defense. Subsequently, Qian Zunzong and his party prepared to depart and return to Shanyan Villa. Approaching the mountain gate, Qian Zunzong turned his head to look at Ma Jingyan and said, "Jingyan, why don't you stay in the sect for now to deal with the accumulated matters? Return to the villa to join me once you are finished. There's no need to rush along the journey." Just as Ma Jingyan was about to respond, heavy footsteps came from inside the mountain gate. Sect Master Ma Mingchen strode out in his crimson Sect Master robes, his expression incomparably resolute, and he directly blocked the path in front of the two. "Absolutely not." Sect Master Ma Mingchen waved his hand, his tone allowing no room for negotiation. Jingyan now follows the young master, and his duty is to be a personal guard. The miscellaneous affairs of the Leon sector handled entirely by this old man. I can check the accounts of the mines, branch halls, and storehouses one by one without the slightest error. Why should he be distracted and delayed here? Ma Jingyan looked hesitant. "Father, but your health." "Your father's body is fine. One person can handle these trifles." Sect Master Ma Mingchen patted Ma Jingyan on the shoulder and bowed to look at Qian Zunzong. "Young master, please feel free to take Jingyan back. The Leon sect is now a force under your command. This old man will hold this place and secure the foundation, never causing trouble for you. Jingyan is dedicated to protecting his master. If you were to return to the sect and delay your journey, it would be putting the cart before the horse." Seeing that Sect Master Ma Mingchen's attitude was firm and that he had decades of experience in managing the sect, Qian Zunzong stopped trying to persuade him. "Since Sect Master Ma has his own arrangements, we shall return immediately." Sect Master Ma Mingchen was overjoyed and hurriedly packed fire attribute resources and spirit guidance supplies, stuffing them into Ma Jingyan's hands. He repeatedly urged him to guard Qian Zunzong closely without leaving his side. Only after watching the group disappear down the mountain path did he turn back to the sect to handle affairs. The group traveled at full speed and finally arrived at Shanyan Villa at dusk. After a day of rushing, Qian Zunzong felt slightly exhausted in body and mind. After a simple dinner, he rested early. Unexpectedly, just as dawn broke the next day, Shen Yi's voice sounded outside the door. "Master, His Holiness the Supreme Pontiff has sent someone to convey a message, asking you to go to the Supreme Pontiff Palace." "Damn, why do these old people have so much energy?" Qian Zunzong rubbed his sleepy eyes and secretly complained in his heart that his father was too diligent, not letting anyone rest peacefully early in the morning. After sleeping for another hour, he casually gathered his clothes, washed up briefly, boarded the cloud-step Fuguang carriage, activated the automatic driving mode, and swayed towards the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Upon arriving outside the palace gate, he was too lazy to lift his hand to push the door, so he simply lifted his leg and kicked it hard. Bang! The heavy carved palace gate was kicked wide open, the door panel slamming heavily against the stone walls on both sides, making the light pendants hanging inside the hall jingle. Qian Daoliu, who was sitting on the jade throne inside the hall, did not even lift his eyelids. He held the spirit guidance teacup and took a slow sip, clearly long accustomed to his son's unconventional and willful nature, showing no ripple of emotion. Qian Zunji was not handling official business today. After all, cultivation was the most important thing for Qian Zunji right now, and one had to wait for the leeks to grow a crop before harvesting them. However, the middle-aged man waiting beside the jade throne was so frightened that he shivered all over, stumbled half a step, and almost fell on his backside. The engineering documents he was holding scattered all over the floor with a rustle. His face instantly turned pale, and he hurriedly bent down to pick up the scattered papers, not daring to even breathe loudly. Qian Zunzong, with his hands casually behind his back, strolled slowly into the hall. His steps were aimless, and he had none of the restraint a junior should show when visiting an elder. He spoke casually. "Dad, you called me over early in the morning, what for?" Qian Daoliu then put down his teacup, pointed at Zhou Heng, who was scrambling to collect the documents, and introduced him in a calm tone. "Let me introduce someone to you. This person's name is Zhou Heng, formerly the deputy manager under Supervisor Su Jian of the engineering department. Supervisor Su Jian was recently transferred elsewhere. The engineering department cannot be without a manager for a day, so I have promoted him to the position of manager." Zhou Heng hurriedly gathered the documents and held them in his arms, then stepped forward quickly to bow. His back was bent very low, still shaken by that kick to the gate. His voice trembled slightly. "Subordinate Zhou Heng greets the second young master." Qian Daoliu continued, detailing Zhou Heng's outstanding qualities. This Zhou Heng has a steady character and is conscientious in his work. He used to work as an assistant under Supervisor Su Jian, and never once made a mistake in any engineering project, big or small. Originally, in terms of array attainment and spiritual plant cultivation, he was indeed slightly inferior to Supervisor Su Jian. However, since studying under Ji Yu Zhen Yan for a period, after just a few days of hard training, his array deduction and illusion spiritual plant cultivation have improved by leaps and bounds. His foundation is now better than Supervisor Su Jian's. I am very relieved to have him take over the engineering department. Upon hearing this, Zhou Heng scratched his head, looking slightly shy. It is all thanks to the careful guidance of Grandmaster Ji Yu Zhen Yan. This subordinate was just lucky and pondered a bit more. Qian Daliu looked at Qian Zunzong and issued the arrangement. The construction of the mimicry training base was presided over by you from beginning to end, and all documents, materials, and illusion array blueprints are in your hands. Today, you will go to the engineering department with Zhou Heng to complete the handover of all project finishing matters. Subsequent site maintenance and equipment reporting will be fully handed over to Zhou Heng. Qian Zunzong waved his hand indifferently. What a hassle. Fine, I have to make the trip sooner or later anyway, so let's go now. Please, second young master. The two left the Supreme Pontiff Palace together and took a spirit guidance transport vehicle straight to the main city's engineering department. Inside the engineering department, documents were piled up like mountains, and countless craftsmen and clerks were running back and forth, presenting a scene of busyness. As soon as Zhou Heng entered, he skillfully took out a set of standard acceptance documents and thoughtfully brewed a cup of spirit calming tea for Qian Zunzong, showing that he was meticulous and thoughtful in his daily work. Second young master, let's check item by item according to the procedure. You just need to take out the documents, and I will compare them one by one. Qian Zunzong spread out the thick stack of neatly bound documents from his storage space. Site survey blueprints, procurement lists for high-level mimicry barriers, records of consumables for cultivating illusion spiritual plants, salary details for 100 craftsmen, and final payment accounting books filled a large table. Every expenditure and every note of the illusion array was clearly marked. Zhou Heng was exceptionally serious in his work. Whenever there was the slightest ambiguity in the array patterns or the quantity of spiritual plants planted on the blueprints, he would pull Qian Zunzong to ask for details, and even deduce the illusion array on the spot, only willing to register it after confirming there were no hidden dangers. Qian Zunzong leaned relaxedly against the long table, responding casually. No matter what questions Zhou Heng threw at him, he could immediately produce the corresponding evidence to support it. The two worked in tandem. Although the verification process was tedious, there was not a single hitch. Midway, Zhou Heng chatted with Qian Zunzong, marveling at how exquisite the array techniques taught by Grandmaster Ji Yu Zhen Yan were, and complaining that Supervisor Su Jian used to cut corners when cultivating spiritual plants. He mentioned that he had now improved the cultivation method, and the survival rate of the illusion vegetation had doubled. He chattered on for a long time, acting like an apprentice who had just learned a skill and was eager to show it off. 2 full hours passed, and all 10,000 documents were verified without a single error. Zhou Heng took out the exclusive official seal of the engineering department, stamped the acceptance documents heavily, and respectfully handed them back to Qian Zunzong with both hands. He let out a long sigh of relief, his face full of relief. The handover is finally complete. With the complete documents left by the second young master, it will be 100 times easier for me to manage the mimicry site in the future. If any problems arise with the illusion barriers or spiritual plant maintenance, I will visit Grandmaster Ji Yu Zhen Yan for advice. After a few polite pleasantries, Zhou Heng was busy arranging for his subordinates to organize the documents and turned to get to work. The large acceptance hall was left with only Qian Zunzong. Qian Zunzong summoned the system. System, wake up and get to work. Ding, detected that the host is located at the Spirit Hall Engineering Department. Sign in successful. Cooldown time for this location, 1 year. Sign in successful. Reward obtained. Level 10 Soul Guide Master, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming. Chapter 41, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming, The Heartbroken Yi Shen. Sign in successful. Reward obtained. Level 10 Spirit Master, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming was the only level 10 Spirit Master in the Sun Moon Empire, the father of Sun Moon Spirit Tools, and the chief high priest of the Sun Moon Empire's worship hall. His attainments in Spirit Tools were unparalleled on the Douluo Continent. He held countless Spirit Tool forging blueprints, had a vast reserve of level 10 and level 9 Spirit Tools, and possessed mountains of Spirit Tool classics. He was a top-tier Spirit Master during the Douluo II era, possessed twin spirits, and his exclusive level 10 Spirit Tool, the Sun Moon Divine Light Shield, was incredibly formidable. Qian Zunzong felt a surge of joy and did not linger. He took the teleportation Spirit Tool carriage back to the main hall of Shangyan Villa. Upon entering the hall, Qian Zunzong moved his mind and activated the sign-in reward, summoning Master Soul Guide Kong Deming. Ripples spread through space, and a silver-haired old man stepped out slowly. He was dressed in a silver-white Spirit Tool robe with gold trim, surrounded by rich Spirit Tool energy. His sleeves and waist were covered in precise Spirit Tool components, and he held a red diamond cane. As soon as he landed, he bowed deeply. Old man Kong Deming greets the master. Name, Kong Deming. Age, 130. Spirit, Silver Moon, Sun. Rank, level 95 Super Douluo. Title, Silver Moon. Spirit ring, yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red, black, 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 red, red, red. Spirit bone, full set of 6 spirit bones. Evaluation, level 10 Spirit Master, number 1 on the continent, the only one on the continent, possesses massive Spirit Tool reserves, true combat power rivals a limit Douluo. Loyalty, infinity. As expected of Master Soul Guide Kong Deming, by relying on the power of Spirit Tools, he could possess the combat power of a limit Douluo at level 95. He was truly a legendary powerhouse. Rise. Grandmaster Kong, do you have any Spirit Tools on you now? Can you take them out for me to see? Yes, Master. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming raised his hand to open his giant storage Spirit Tool. In an instant, the main hall was filled with streaming light, and countless Spirit Tools floated in the air. The level 10 Spirit Tool, the Silver Moon Divine Light Shield, was at the forefront. There were also 2 or 3 other level 10 Spirit Tools, cannon types, spatial types, defensive and detection types, all complete. Their pressure made the hall pillars tremble slightly. Following them were dozens of level 9 Spirit Tools with formidable power, and countless functional Spirit Tools from level 8 down to level 1, categorized into attack, healing, flight, binding, and illusion types. There were fully over 1,000 items, filling most of the hall. In addition, layers of Spirit Tool classics like hills floated in the air, recording Spirit Tool theory, forging cores, and energy improvement plans. Many were exclusive secret texts that had long gone extinct in the Sun Moon Empire, and their value was immeasurable. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming bowed sincerely and said, Young Master, these are all of my collections. The equipment blueprints are yours to use. However, researching and forging high-level Spirit Tools consumes a massive amount of rare meteor iron, energy cores, and Spirit Tool apprentice labor. Without sufficient financial support, many innovative ideas can only be shelved. If you lack money, have Shen Wanson and Yi Shen come here. Qian Zunzong's gaze swept over the treasures filling the hall, and he immediately ordered his subordinates to summon Shen Wanson and Yi Shen to the main hall. About an hour later, Shen Wansen walked in calmly, dressed in brocade merchant robes and holding a steady general ledger. He Shen followed closely behind, clutching a gold-gilded account book tightly to his chest. His fingertips kept rubbing the gold-gilded patterns on the cover, and even when he reached the center of the hall, he didn't forget to look down and stroke the lining of the account book, fearing that the gold and silver figures recorded inside might be less by even a fraction. When the two saw the high-level spirit tools filling the hall and the strange white-haired old man, they were slightly stunned, then bowed their heads to await orders. Qian Zunzong's voice was steady and clear as he gave his instructions. Shen Wansen, He Shen, you two are in charge of all the gold mines, trading firms, restaurants, and mines under my name. After calculating the net profit each month and deducting the necessary expenses for industrial operations, staff salaries, and raw material procurement, and without affecting subsequent development, allocate the remaining 50% to Grandmaster Kong. This funding is exclusively for the expansion of the Spirit Tool Workshop, the procurement of rare ores, and the research and development of new Spirit Tool equipment. It must be allocated in full every month, and not a single cent may be deducted. Shen Wansen quickly calculated the monthly income of the industries in his mind. 50% of the profit was enough to support the continent's top Spirit Tool research base. He immediately bowed and accepted the order. Master, rest assured, your subordinate will separately set aside 50% of the profits each month to be sent to Grandmaster Kong's workshop. I will keep independent books, and every expense for consumables, ores, and labor will be clearly recorded and available for the young master's inspection at any time. Beside him, He Shen looked as if he had been struck by lightning. His whole body trembled violently, and the gold-gilded account book in his arms almost fell to the ground with a clatter. His triangular eyes widened into circles, the color drained from his face instantly, his lips trembled uncontrollably, and he staggered back twice while clutching his chest, looking as if he were about to faint from the pain. Master, 50% of the net profit. You aren't joking with your subordinate, are you? He Shen rushed to the front of Qian Zunzong in a few steps, waving his hands repeatedly with a bitter face. His eyes turned red, and he looked like someone who had been robbed of a lifetime of private savings. We have 7 gold mines, over 20 chain restaurants, and 13 spice trading firms under our name. The monthly net profit could fill 3 treasure vaults, and the shiny gold coins alone could be stacked into a small mountain. If you take away 50% at once, the gold and silver in my treasury will be cut in half. Just thinking about it makes my chest feel like it's being burned by fire, it hurts so much. Qian Zunzong raised an eyebrow and said lightly, it's just giving half the profits to Grandmaster Kong to research spirit tools. Is it really that exaggerated? Hearing this, He Shen immediately started counting on his fingers, feeling more aggrieved the more he spoke, his voice even carrying a crying tone. Master, you don't understand the bitterness of guarding wealth. The 4 newly opened silk shops in the west of the city still need 1 million gold coins to decorate the storefronts. The mining equipment in the 3 northern iron mines is rusted, and repairs will cost another huge sum. The monthly salaries of hundreds of guards and managers in various branches cannot be delayed by even a cent. The remaining profit was originally intended to be used by your subordinate to hoard a batch of extraterrestrial cold iron and high-level crystals to lock in the secret room. Watching them day and night made me feel at ease. Now that it's cut in half, your subordinate will dream of gold and silver growing wings and flying away when sleeping at night. He secretly glanced at Master Soul Guide Kong Deming beside him, his gaze like he was looking at a prodigal son, and muttered in a low voice. Where's Grandmaster Kong researching spirit tools? It's clearly a money-devouring beast. A small piece of top-tier ore costs tens of thousands of gold coins, and high-level spirit tool core materials are priceless. Throwing a large amount of gold and silver into it, you might not even make a profit in 3 to 5 years. Isn't this just throwing money into the water? Qian Zunzong couldn't help but chuckle. Take a long-term view. Spirit tools can greatly improve the combat power of our forces. They will be useful for future conquests and defense. This investment is a sure win. He Shen stomped his feet in anxiety, leaned forward, and lowered his voice, trying to persuade Qian Zunzong, Master. Your subordinate has a way to get the best of both worlds. How about only taking 10% of the profit? 10% is enough for Grandmaster Kong to buy some ordinary ores to refine low-level spirit tools. I will help you save the remaining 40% in the secret room. With interest rolling, it will accumulate more and more. By the end of the year, we can hoard a few more boxes of purple gold. No, Qian Zunzong's tone did not soften at all. Grandmaster Kong needs to study spirit tool technology, and the consumption of materials and labor is huge. 10% is far from enough. Seeing that pleading was useless, He Shen hung his head, the corners of his mouth drooping low enough to hang an oil lamp. He reached out and gently stroked the account book in his arms, as if bidding farewell to a loved one he had spent every day with, sighing. If 10% won't do, 20% should be fine, right? 50% is really too much. Every time I think about sending away large amounts of gold and silver every month, I can't eat or sleep well. I'm afraid I'll wither away day by day. Shen Wansen, standing on the side, couldn't help but laugh and interjected, Manager He, the industrial foundation is solid, and the monthly income is increasing year by year. Allocating 50% now will only double the income once spirit tools are mass-produced in the future. Besides, nowadays, Grandmaster Kong is the only one on the continent who knows how to make spirit tools. That group of blacksmiths in Gingqin City has plenty of materials, and all kinds of rare materials are completely cabbage-priced. It won't cost that much. He Shen turned his head and glared at Shen Wansen, full of displeasure. Shopkeeper Shen, you speak without pain because the money doesn't come out of your treasury, so naturally you don't feel the heartache. Every bit of silver was saved by your subordinate through careful accounting and meticulous calculation. To give away half of it for no reason, who wouldn't feel the pain? Qian Zunzong didn't bother to listen to his bargaining anymore and said in a deep voice, no more words. Shen Wansen is right. In this period, top-tier ores are cabbage-priced. This matter is decided. 50% of the monthly profits will be transferred to Grandmaster Kong on time. Seeing that Qian Zunzong's attitude was firm, He Shen knew that pleading was useless. He wilted instantly, bowed his head dejectedly, and replied in a listless voice. Your subordinate obeys. From now on, your subordinate will definitely keep a close eye on every expense on Grandmaster Kong's side. Every piece of iron scrap and every gold coin will be registered. I will save where I can and will never spend a single cent of unjust money. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming, having seen through He Shen's miserly nature, couldn't help but stroke his beard and laugh lightly, stepping forward to say. This manager can rest assured. This old man will never waste a single bit of resources. Every bit of gold and silver will be transformed into powerful spirit tool equipment. In a few years, I will definitely be able to earn wealth for the master that far exceeds today's investment. Even with Master Soul Guide Kong Deming's guarantee, He Shen still felt heartbroken. He stood on the side, sighing from time to time, his gaze repeatedly drifting toward the spirit tools filling the hall with streaming light, his mind constantly calculating the huge amount of money lost every month, looking like he had suffered a heavy loss. Qian Zunzong ignored He Shen's heartbroken appearance and looked at Master Soul Guide Kong Deming, ordering in a deep voice, Shen Wansen and He Shen will provide full support for subsequent research resources. You just need to let go and study without being constrained by finances. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming's aged face was filled with excitement, and he bowed deeply, his eyes full of the fanaticism of studying spirit tool arts. This old man thanks the young master for his kindness. Within 3 years, this old man can improve existing spirit tools and create exclusive offensive and defensive spirit tool legion equipment. As for the lost forbidden spirit tool technology, this old man can also fully replicate and perfect it. Qian Zunzong nodded slightly, looking at the spirit tool equipment filling the hall in the mountains of classics, his plans gradually taking shape. The Douluo Continent had always respected spirits, and spirit tool technology had long been relegated to an accessory. Although the Sun Moon Empire had conducted research, it was difficult to take off due to the royal structure and resource constraints. Now that he held Master Soul Guide Kong Deming, a level 10 spirit master, along with a massive amount of high-level spirit tool equipment and complete inherited classics, coupled with a steady supply of industrial funds, he would be able to establish his own top-tier spirit tool force within a few years. With the dual-track parallel of spirit power and top-tier spirit tool technology, he would have an irreplaceable and powerful trump card to deal with the undercurrents of Spirit Hall and the evil spirit masters wreaking havoc across the continent in the future. Shen Wanson was already planning the funding schedule and rare mineral acquisition plan in his mind, steadily splitting the monthly profits. Shen was still standing on the side, secretly heartbroken over the lost gold and silver, muttering to himself, calculating how to compress the expenses of various consumables to minimize capital loss. My gold coins. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming, on the other hand, couldn't wait to suspend the forging blueprints he carried with him, his fingertips rapidly deducing the improvement ideas for new spirit tool cannons and large-scale illusion defense barriers. The sunset spilled into the main hall through the carved window lattice, reflecting the streaming light of the spirit tools in the sky. On one side was an old man obsessed with spirit tool research, on the other was Shen Wanson, who was good at coordinating business, and there was also He Shen, who was miserly and sighed continuously while cutting profits. With the three parties performing their respective duties, a complete and huge vein of spirit tool development was completely laid out. Chapter 42. Half a year later, I'm not going. Time slipped away in the blink of an eye. In a fleeting moment, half a year had quietly passed. A simple and vigorous message crossed through layers of halls and quietly landed at Chang'an Villa. In the courtyard of the villa, the young man stood tall and straight, his elegant silver-white robe with gold embroidery highlighting his handsome features and ethereal temperament. A translucent, radiant chest ornament on his chest slowly swirled with a soft, pearly light, dispelling the cool dust around him and adding a touch of sacred, ethereal aura to him. This person was none other than Qian Zunzong. After half a year of accumulation, his spirit power had steadily climbed, his foundation had become increasingly solid, and his aura was restrained and gentle. While he appeared calm, he possessed a profound depth far beyond his peers. The moment he received the message, a flash of understanding crossed Qian Zunzong's eyes. The message came from his own grandfather, the high priest, the #1 enforcer of Spirit Hall, the double-flowered red cudgel, Grand Elder Qian Shichen. There was no need to think twice, it must be that the entire batch of immortal herbs he had offered half a year ago had finally been completely digested and absorbed by the elders, yielding results. Qian Zunzong raised his hand to smooth out the wrinkles in his robe, the soft light of his chest ornament slowly fading, and he calmly boarded the cloud-step Fuguang carriage to leave Chang'an Villa, flying toward the towering and solemn Elder Hall. Passing through layers of magnificent palaces and white jade steps, the Spirit Hall disciples and guards he encountered along the way all bowed in salute, their eyes filled with awe and reverence. The moment he stepped into the main hall of the Elder Hall, a vast, sea-like pressure of spirit power rushed towards him, but it gently dissipated upon touching Qian Zunzong without the slightest hint of offense. The atmosphere inside the hall was gentle and solemn. The elders, who were usually stern, serious, and cold, now looked at Qian Zunzong with undisguised affection and love, as if they were looking at their own most promising junior. Zonger has arrived, come here quickly. Grand Elder Qian Shichen spoke slowly, his voice aged and gentle, carrying an irrepressible smile. Qian Zunzong stepped forward slowly and bowed slightly, his posture humble and proper. Grandson greets grandfather and greets all the elders. Good child, no need for such formalities. The second elder, Xing, was the first to laugh heartily, his eyes full of approval. Half a year without seeing you, and you have become even more steady and outstanding. You are truly a peerless talent that our Spirit Hall has not seen in 100 years. The third elder, Moyan, nodded immediately after, his tone sincere. The immortal spirit herbs you sent half a year ago were a tremendous contribution. We have been in seclusion for half a year, and after absorbing and refining them all, the gains far exceeded our imagination. Everyone then detailed the gains from this seclusion, their words filled with joy. This time, all 7 elders went into collective seclusion, and ultimately only the 6th elder, Feng Fuyao, successfully broke through the shackles, his spirit power steadily stepping from the peak of level 96 into the level 97 titled Douluo realm, his strength surging significantly. It appeared that only one person broke through, but the gains of all the other elders were equally heaven-defying. Although they did not achieve a level breakthrough, they used the pure medicinal power of the immortal herbs to cleanse their spirit power meridians and wash away the shackles and hidden injuries accumulated over years of cultivation. Furthermore, they gained brand new, ultimate insights into their own spirits, spirit abilities, and the mysteries of spirit power circulation. This insight was incredibly precious, directly saving them years or even over a decade of dry, bitter cultivation. Their foundations became increasingly thick and solid, and their combat power improved subtly. While their levels appeared unchanged, their true combat power was already vastly different from before. It could be said that Qian Zunzong's actions alone directly allowed the overall strength of the entire Spirit Hall Elder Hall to complete a qualitative leap. The more the elders spoke, the more satisfied they became, and their eyes grew increasingly affectionate and doting when looking at Qian Zunzong. In their eyes, Qian Zunzong not only had talent that topped the world, but he also knew how to be grateful and repay his ancestors and cared for his elders. Compared to the arrogant, reckless, and impulsive Qian Zunji, he was truly much better. Qian Zunji, I'm reckless. Me. Xiaozong, this great contribution of yours is something we will keep in our hearts, and naturally, we cannot let your efforts go to waste. The 4th elder, Chu Mingchen, stroked his beard and smiled, taking the lead to wave his hand, causing a spirit bone that was warm throughout and glowing with heavy luster to float out. This is a 60,000-year-old skull bone, child, take it and don't look down on it. Before his voice faded, the other elders all took action, and for a moment the hall was filled with brilliant treasure light. 3 top-tier spirit bones of over 50,000 years appeared one after another, a torso bone, a left arm bone, and a leg spirit bone. Each one had excellent attributes and perfect quality, all of which were the elders' most prized possessions. Besides these, several gold cards with luxurious patterns and extraordinary auras floated quietly, each corresponding to a massive fortune of 10 million gold coins, enough to make ordinary spirit masters despair for a lifetime. Various rare medicinal herbs, top-tier exotic treasures, and high-grade gift boxes emerged one after another, filling the jade table on one side of the hall, dazzling and priceless. Seeing this, Qian Zunzong immediately put on a humble and declining expression, waving his hands repeatedly while wearing a gentle and harmless smile. Elders, you are too kind. It was just a small effort for me, there is truly no need for such generous gifts, I dare not accept them. He declined sincerely and politely with his mouth, his expression full of reluctance, but his body was exceptionally honest. He quietly moved his feet forward, silently opened his hands, and stared fixedly at the treasures, fearing that one of the elders might suddenly change their mind. That hypocritical appearance made the elders unable to hold back their laughter, making them love this clear-headed and clever junior even more. Ha ha ha, silly child, this is what you deserve, just accept it all. Even with more treasures, it wouldn't be enough to match your talent and contribution, no need to decline. The elders laughed as they stuffed all the treasures into Qian Zunzong's hands, not allowing him to refuse in the slightest. Seeing this, Qian Zunzong no longer pretended to decline and accepted all the top-tier spirit bones, the gold cards worth 10 million gold coins, and the rare materials with peace of mind. His movements were fluid and clean, without any hesitation. Looking at the mountain of treasures in his arms, a trace of imperceptible laughter flashed in the young man's eyes. He had gained a lot, this trip was truly worthwhile. Finally, Grand Elder Qian Shichen at the head of the table slowly raised his hand, and 2 tokens, gilded all over, carved with complex and sacred patterns, and radiating supreme pressure, appeared out of thin air, floating quietly in midair. This was the supreme token of Spirit Hall, the Elder Token. Holding this token allowed one to travel unimpeded throughout the entire Spirit Hall, exempting one from the vast majority of hall rules and punishments. Even when facing orders from the Supreme Pontiff Palace, one had the right to refuse to comply. The authority was so great that it was as if the elder had come in person. Grand Elder Qian Shichen's expression was solemn as he gently placed one of the elder tokens into Qian Zunzong's hand, his tone gentle but carrying unquestionable majesty. This elder token is bestowed upon you. Holding this token, you can do as you please within Spirit Hall, and no one can restrict you. Immediately after, he handed out the second elder token and instructed, hand over the other one to your brother, he has been helping your father deal with official business lately and has worked hard. Grandson obeys. Qian Zunzong nodded slightly, properly stowing away the 2 elder tokens and gathering all the treasures into his arms. Goodbye grandfather, goodbye all elder grandfathers. Ha ha ha. Bidding farewell to the joyful elders, Qian Zunzong walked out of the elder hall with a full pile of rare treasures, his steps light and his face filled with smiles, his aura becoming increasingly relaxed and comfortable. After leaving the elder hall, Qian Zunzong did not return directly to Shanyan Villa, but turned and walked towards the Luokan Pavilion where Qian Zunji lived. Luokan Pavilion was quiet and elegant. Usually, Qian Zunji cultivated and rested here, and was rarely disturbed. At this moment, Qian Zunji was sitting cross-legged on the stone platform in the courtyard, eyes closed, adjusting his breathing for cultivation, his spirit power circulating steadily, appearing peaceful and serene. Hearing footsteps, Qian Zunji opened his eyes, and seeing that the person was Qian Zunzong, he immediately revealed a gentle smile. Xiaozong, why are you here? Qian Zunzong stepped forward slowly, raised his hand to take out the elder token exclusive to him, and handed it over. Here, brother. Grandfather asked me to pass this to you. It's an elder token bestowed by the elder hall, you must keep it safe. The moment he saw the token in his hand, Qian Zunji's pupils shrank suddenly, the smile on his face instantly exploded, and an expression of wild joy covered his entire face. Holy shit. He had been in the Supreme Pontiff Palace for many years and naturally understood the value of the elder token. This was the most top-tier privilege token of Spirit Hall. With this token, he could almost walk sideways in Spirit Hall and would no longer have to be restricted by the rules of the Supreme Pontiff Palace and everything. Good, good, good. Many thanks to grandfather. Qian Zunji gripped the elder token tightly with both hands, as if he had obtained a precious treasure, repeatedly rubbing the patterns on the token, his eyes burning, his smile unable to close, his whole person floating, secretly ecstatic in his heart. From now on, I, Qian Zunji, am also a person with privileges. Who can still manipulate me at will? I'm leaving, brother. Qian Zunzong looked at his ecstatic appearance, a trace of imperceptible laughter flashing in his eyes. He didn't say much, and after a brief exchange of pleasantries, he turned and left Luokan Pavilion, preparing to return to his own Shanyan Villa. But as soon as he stepped out of the Luokan Pavilion courtyard gate, a guard from the Supreme Pontiff Palace hurried over and said, Eldest young master, the Supreme Pontiff has an order. Report to the Supreme Pontiff Palace immediately to review official documents, no delays allowed. Qian Zunji, who was still immersed in wild joy and floating, saw the smile on his face instantly stiffen, and he petrified on the spot. 1 second he possessed top-tier privileges and was high-spirited, the next second he was being dragged off to do manual labor and grunt work. The huge gap left Qian Zunji confused, and his mentality directly collapsed. The guard captain stepped forward and said respectfully, Eldest young master, please follow me to the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Qian Zunji's face turned from blue to white. The elder token he had just obtained flashed through his mind, and light instantly reignited in his eyes. His back straightened, and his confidence was fully restored. He almost forgot, he was no longer an ordinary holy son who could be manipulated by others, he had an elder token. At that moment, Qian Zunji lifted his chin, held his head high, his eyes arrogant and domineering, his aura fully released, and he roared at the guards with full confidence and toughness, I'm not going. The voice was loud, resounding through the entire Luokan Pavilion courtyard, full of toughness, without the slightest intention of backing down. The guards were stunned on the spot, looking at each other. No one expected that the eldest young master, who usually strictly followed the Supreme Pontiff's orders, would dare to openly defy the Supreme Pontiff's will. For a time, the atmosphere in the Luokan Pavilion courtyard was strange, so quiet that a pin dropping could be heard. Seeing this, the guards could only return to report. In a short while, a terrifyingly vast pressure swept over, enveloping the entire Luokan Pavilion. The figure of Qian Douluo arrived in an instant, hovering above the courtyard, his golden hair dancing wildly, his spirit power surging, his face terrifyingly gloomy, his eyes sharp as knives, staring fixedly at Qian Zunji below, scolding angrily. Stinky brat, you have some nerve, are you trying to rebel against the heavens? As the Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall, Qian Douluo's majesty was monstrous. When he was angry, ordinary title Douluo would tremble and dare not look directly at him. In normal times, Qian Zunji would have long been scared into bowing and begging for forgiveness, trembling and daring not to speak. But today was different from the past. Qian Zunji held the elder token, his confidence exploding, not afraid in the slightest. Qian Douluo was stunned. Damn, why is this kid suddenly so tough? If he doesn't go to the Supreme Pontiff Palace, when will he finish reviewing so many memorials? He wasn't trying to drag his son to do grunt work, it was entirely to train the other party. Qian Zunji not only had no fear, but instead held his head high and chest out, took a big step forward, and shoved the elder token in his hand right in front of Qian Douluo's eyes, so close it was almost touching his face, shouting arrogantly. What rebellion? I have an elder token on me. Holding an elder token can exempt one from the Supreme Pontiff's orders. I'm just not going to do this grunt work today. What can you do to me? His tone was arrogant, his aura aggressive, his face filled with the smugness of, I have privileges, I'm not afraid, as if he had already won. In his view, this was an elder token bestowed by the High Priest himself. With top-tier privileges in hand, the mere grunt work of the Supreme Pontiff Palace was not worthy of his condescension. However, Facing the elder token shoved in front of his eyes, the enraged Qian Dalyu only paused for 0.01 seconds. The next second, Qian Dalyu waved his hand, the speed absurdly fast, without any hesitation, and a crisp, loud slap rang out. A soft yet irresistible force instantly erupted, precisely slapping the elder token out of Qian Zunji's hand. The golden elder token flew out of his hand, tumbled a few times in the air, and landed heavily on the ground. Immediately after, Qian Dalyu glared at the stunned Qian Zunji with annoyance and a sense of hatred for iron not becoming steel, scolding coldly. Stinky brat, you're getting bolder, daring to forge your grandfather's elder token to fool me. And daring to openly disobey orders. Get your ass to the Supreme Pontiff Palace to work right now. Stop messing around here. Quote quote. Qian Zunji was completely confused, his brain instantly crashed, his face full of disbelief. He widened his eyes, staring blankly at the elder token on the ground, then suddenly looked up at the furious Qian Dalyu, his voice trembling as he frantically defended himself. No, this is real. This was personally handed to me by grandfather through my younger brother. It's a real elder token. Still daring to quibble, Qian Dalyu didn't listen to his explanation at all, completely disbelieving his words. With a wave of his large hand, a surge of spirit power wrapped around the aggrieved and frantically struggling Qian Zunji. I really didn't forge it. It's real. Please believe me. TT. Let me go. I have an elder token. I don't have to do grunt work. Qian Zunji's shrill wails echoed in the air, full of grievance and unwillingness. He struggled desperately, but could not break free from Qian Dalyu's spirit power restraint. However, Qian Dalyu was determined not to listen to explanations. Dragging the frantically protesting Qian Zunji, who looked like a total victim, he turned and flew toward the Supreme Pontiff Palace, forcibly escorting him to do grunt work. As the dignified eldest young master of Spirit Hall, holding a legitimate elder token, he had wanted to be arrogant once by relying on the token, but ended up being treated as a troublemaker who forged the token and was forcibly dragged off to work. He could be called the most wrong person in history, comical and funny. Chapter 43, City Site Selection. At this moment, Qian Zunzong was completely unaware of the absurd farce that had just taken place here. He had already flown out of the layered building complex of the Spirit City main hall, and just as he was about to step out of the Spirit City gates, he thought to himself, system, check in. Ding, host detected in Spirit City, check-in successful. This location cannot be checked in again. Reward, luxury giant city fragment ×1. Current fragments 3/3, synthesis complete. City attributes, covers an area of 100 kilometers in radius, complete with buildings, perfected formations, and deep heritage. It can be placed by the host in any ownerless area on the continent at will, and can be upgraded, expanded, and modified. A flash of brightness instantly crossed Qian Zunzong's eyes, and he was overjoyed. Over the past 6 months, Qian Zunzong had visited Douluo City and Heaven Do City, checking in at each to obtain the other 2 fragments. Collecting all 3 would grant him a luxury giant city with a radius of 100 kilometers. This was a top-tier magnificent city in the true sense, equipped with a complete formation and architectural system. Once placed, it would become his most stable base camp for the future, capable of accommodating all the forces and personnel under his command, with immeasurable value. Nice. Qian Zunzong nodded inwardly, his expression indifferent. He securely stored the city placement permit, and with a thought, he could choose a location to place it at any time. Without further delay, he stepped on the gas and headed straight back to his own Chang'an villa. Just as he stepped into the villa's main hall, Shen Yi, dressed in black with a tall, upright posture and a sharp aura, quickly stepped forward to respectfully salute and report. Master, in accordance with your instructions, the Imperial Guards have traversed many regions of the continent and selected 3 excellent locations most suitable for building a city to serve as our base camp. Please make the decision, Master. As he finished speaking, he raised his hand to present a detailed regional dossier, clearly listing the pros and cons of the 3 locations. Qian Zunzong took the dossier, slowly opened it, and carefully scanned its contents. The first location is called Wangfeng Plain. It is located at the junction of the 2 great empires, the Heaven Do Empire and the Douluo Empire. The entire plain is vast and fertile, with open and flat terrain, making it extremely suitable for large-scale reclamation, farming, and building city settlements. Food supplies can be self-sufficient, and transportation is accessible in all directions, facilitating the expansion and development of forces. However, the only flaw, and also the biggest hidden danger, is that it is located in the buffer zone between the 2 countries. It is plagued by constant war and fighting all year round, with major forces competing and conflicting endlessly. If a city were built here, it might be involved in war all year round and never know peace. The second location is the Zhou mountain range in the south of the continent. It is surrounded by mountains and near water, with steep and dangerous terrain. It naturally forms an excellent layout that is easy to defend and difficult to attack. Its concealment is extremely strong, making it hard for external enemies to invade, and its security is very high. It is very suitable for taking root and developing in a low-key manner during the initial stage. However, its shortcomings are equally obvious. The overall land of Zhou mountain is barren, the soil quality is poor, and it is not suitable for the growth of various crops. Large-scale farming of food is impossible, the pressure on food supply is immense, and the development ceiling is limited. The third location is an uninhabited island 400 miles out at sea. The island is vast, with a total radius of 800 kilometers, an extremely large area far exceeding ordinary islands. The soil on the island is fertile, water sources are sufficient, and a large number of good fields can be reclaimed, making it completely self-sufficient. Surrounded by the sea on all sides, it is isolated from the world, far away from the vortex of disputes between major forces on the continent, and free from the control and constraints of imperial courts and sects, offering maximum freedom. The only drawback is that the ecological environment is primitive. A large number of wild spirit beasts inhabit the island, with a wide variety and a huge number. Countless powerful sea spirit beasts also occupy the surrounding waters, making it extremely dangerous. If you want to build a city here, you must first completely clear out the surrounding spirit beasts. The 3 locations each have their pros and cons, with clear advantages and disadvantages, making it difficult to choose. Qian Zunzong finished reading the dossier, closed the scroll, and said indifferently, "Summon Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming, Ma Jinyan, and Ji Yu Zhenyan to come for a meeting." Yes. The Imperial Guard's leader acknowledged and withdrew. A moment later, 4 figures stepped into the courtyard one after another, all bowing and saluting. "We pay our respects to the Master." Qian Zunzong handed the dossier of the 3 locations to the 4 of them and said in a deep voice, "No need for formalities. The 3 locations each have their pros and cons. The 4 of you, take a careful look and share your opinions on which one should be chosen as our new base camp." The 4 immediately took the dossier, gathered together to study it carefully, and earnestly analyzed the pros and cons of each location. A moment later, the 4 lifted their heads, their expressions unanimous, and with the same certainty in their eyes, they said in unison, "Master, we unanimously recommend choosing the island at sea." The 4 were in complete agreement, with no disagreement at all. Qian Zunzong raised an eyebrow slightly surprised. Oh, tell me your reasons. The first to speak was the steady chief guest Mo Hengchuan. He analyzed clearly and slowly. Master, although Wangfang Plain has vast fertile land and is conducive to development, it is located at the place where the two countries are at war. It suffers from constant war all year round, and the forces are intricate and complex. Our new city is just being built, our foundation is not stable, and once it lands, it will be involved in disputes and exhausted by fighting. There is simply no time for stable development, so the disadvantages far outweigh the advantages. Following that, the meticulous Ji Zhenyanyan continued. Although Zhou Mountain is easy to defend and difficult to attack, and is stable and hidden, the land is barren and food is limited. It can only serve as a temporary hideout. It cannot accommodate a large city, let alone support the long-term development and territorial expansion of our forces. The development ceiling is too low, so it is not advisable. Ma Jingyan's eyes were sharp, carrying an aura of slaughter, and he added in a deep voice, the island seems dangerous, filled with spirit beasts, but this danger is precisely the greatest advantage. There are countless spirit beasts on the island and in the surrounding waters, which are countless natural resources. They can provide training and breakthroughs for our knights and soldiers, and even provide the master with massive amounts of spirit ring and spirit bone resources. Moreover, the island is surrounded by the sea on all sides, isolated from the world, and not controlled by any forces on the continent. Advancing, we can set sail to conquer and roam the seas. Retreating, we can go into seclusion to develop and solidify our foundation. Its concealment and security are at the top level. It is an excellent treasure land to carve out a territory and build a foundation. Finally, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming spoke, his tone certain and confident. From the perspective of city construction, the island is vast and the terrain is flat, with no mountains or ravines to block it. It can perfectly accommodate the layout of a 100-kilometer giant city. The sea transportation is convenient, and in the future, we can build massive amounts of soul guidance warships to establish an invincible maritime force. As for the hidden danger of spirit beasts, it only requires dispatching combat power to clear them out, which can be completely eradicated. It is not an unsolvable problem. The four expressed their opinions from different angles, but ultimately pointed to the same conclusion, with sufficient reasons and rigorous logic. After listening to the analysis of the four, Qian Zunzong nodded slightly, a flash of approval crossing his eyes. The four had unique vision and thoughtful considerations, and their judgment completely aligned with his wishes. Wangfang Plain is plagued by war, and Zhou Mountain has limited development. Indeed, neither is as uniquely endowed by nature as the island. It is true that the island is dangerous, but risks and opportunities coexist. It just so happens that his spirit power has now steadily broken through to level 40, officially reaching the 4-ring spirit ancestor realm, and he is just missing a 4th spirit ring that suits him. Going to the island this time will allow him to place the giant city, establish an exclusive base camp, clear out spirit beasts, train his forces, and also take the opportunity to obtain his 4th spirit ring, 3 birds with 1 stone. Qian Zunzong's gaze was firm, and he made the final decision. Good. Since that is the case, the base camp will be set on this island at sea. With the decision finalized, he immediately looked at Master Soul Guide Kong Deming beside him and ordered in a deep voice, Master Kong, I am entrusting you with an important task. Within 1 month, build 3 large soul guidance warships capable of accommodating 100 people. The hulls must be stable, fast, and have powerful defensive capabilities, sufficient to carry out cross-sea voyages and resist attacks from sea spirit beasts. Upon hearing this, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming immediately bowed to accept the order, his eyes confident and his tone forceful. Rest assured, Master. Mere passenger soul guidance warships do not need a month. Within 15 days, they will definitely be completed, with guaranteed quality and quantity, and will never delay the schedule. Having received a firm answer, Qian Zunzong nodded slightly, already having a complete plan in mind. Good. 15 days later, everyone will pack up and set off. Lead 300 judgment knights, and everyone will take ships across the sea to land on the island. Firstly, completely clear out the spirit beasts on the island and in the surrounding waters, purge the territory, and pave the way for the giant city to land. Secondly, with the help of the island spirit beasts, I will take the opportunity to break through and obtain my own 4th spirit ring. As his voice fell, the young man stood tall and upright. The glowing accessory on his chest lit up with a soft, pearly white light, his aura was calm and sharp, and his eyes flashed with the light of someone in control of the situation. We obey your command. Chapter 44, 15 days later, departure. The 15 days of preparation flew by in a flash. Everything was in perfect order, and the entire force had entered a state of readiness for the expedition. During this time, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming had worked tirelessly, day and night, to rush the completion of 3 massive, high-performance spirit tool warships. Each warship was cast primarily from deep-sea mysterious iron, with dozens of layers of composite reinforced spirit tool formations overlaid upon the hull. The barriers were sturdy, the formations stable, and their resistance to corrosion, impact, and spirit power explosions far exceeded that of warships of the same class on the continent. A single ship could accommodate 100 soldiers stationed on board, with immense endurance. At full speed, they could race across 100 miles of sea per hour. With speed, defense, and combat power combined into one, they were truly top-tier heavy weapons for oceanic warfare. Meanwhile, the 300 judgment knights under Qian Zunzong were fully prepared. This elite legion, personally cultivated and built by Qian Zunzong himself, consisted of knights who were all genuine spirit saints. With solid foundations and refined combat power, they were clad in gilded sacred armor and carried standard holy light spears, with pure light spirit power swirling around them. The entire legion exuded a solemn aura and piercing battle intent. With strict discipline and perfect coordination, they were currently the most core and elite melee assault force of Spirit Hall, capable of sweeping across any battlefield. The pier 10 miles outside of Shangyan Villa was quiet and solemn, without a hint of noise. The 300 adjudication knights stood in neat formations, their golden armor reflecting the morning sun, their spears standing like a forest. The majestic pressure of the legion permeated the surroundings, carrying an aura of iron-blooded slaughter that inspired awe in all who saw them. All right, everyone, depart, board the ships. Once everyone had assembled, Qian Zunzong gave the order. The 300 knights moved in perfect unison, stepping onto the ships. They were organized and orderly, distributing themselves to their various posts on the 3 warships, each performing their duties and standing ready, waiting only to set sail. Qian Zunzong did not board with the knights. Instead, he set out separately with his core confidants. Gui Mei and Yu Guan followed closely behind him. Shen Yi, in black with a cold face, exuded a profound aura. Having been tempered through several battles, Ma Jingyan had become increasingly calm, restrained, and resilient in character. Ji Zhenyanyan had a gentle demeanor and a strategic mind, while Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan stood quietly, his inner depth vast and unfathomable. The group stepped into the cloud step Fuguang carriage floating in midair, maintaining a speed similar to that of the warships. As for Shangyan Villa, it was left under the guard of Steward Zheng Yu. The warships cleaved through the vast blue waves. The salty, cool sea breeze whistled past, and the clear sea surface stretched to the horizon. Sunlight, like shattered gold, spilled over the green waves. It looked like a peaceful, leisurely seascape, but in reality, it hid endless dangers. Anyone familiar with the Douluo Sea knew that the open ocean was never a gentle resort, but a savage and dangerous land. Under the sea, turbulent currents surged, and shadows lurked in the dark depths. Countless spirit beasts of various levels and terrifying ferocity resided here, viewing passing fleets as prey delivered to their doorstep. If an ordinary spirit master fleet were to rashly step into these waters, there would be no survival. They could not withstand the layer upon layer of beast-tide sieges. Yet, Qian Zunzong and his group were now venturing deep into the heart of the ocean, destined to experience one dangerous battle after another. About 2 hours later, the fleet sailed out of the safe protection zone of the nearshore waters and completely entered the open sea. The surrounding atmosphere suddenly turned cold and oppressive. The originally gentle, rolling sea surface constantly rippled strangely. Massive black shadows darted back and forth rapidly beneath the dark seawater, layered and dense, impossible to count. Low, hoarse, and violent beast roars came one after another from the deep sea, carrying thick, bloodthirsty killing intent. The heavy pressure of the spirit beasts penetrated the seawater, striking the hulls and firmly enveloping the entire fleet. The spirit beasts inhabiting these waters had long since sensed the intrusion of strange creatures. Disturbed in their territory, they instantly gathered in swarms, launching a tide-like offensive, fearlessly and madly surrounding the 3 giant warships. Attention, we are under attack by spirit beasts. The first to approach the warships were thousands of nether-ink squids. Their bodies were pitch black as ink, their soft forms extremely flexible, and their long tentacles, covered in sharp barbs, danced in the sky. They swarmed in, viciously lashing and colliding against the defensive light curtains of the warships. Following them were razor sea snakes, over 3 feet long. Their snake bodies shimmered with a dark blue, highly toxic luster, and their fangs were white and sharp. They moved extremely fast, constantly leaping out of the sea and spitting highly corrosive venom. The sizzling sound of corrosion was incessant, even hard reefs could be instantly dissolved by the venom. Besides these, various spirit beasts kept rushing out from the deep sea, giant sunfish with massive bodies, armored sea shrimp with shells as hard as iron, and mist jellyfish carrying paralyzing toxins, all emerging endlessly. If this had been any ordinary spirit master fleet on the continent, they would have already been destroyed, their ships sunk, and they would have been buried at the bottom of the sea, without even the slightest chance of resistance. But these fierce spirit beasts were destined to be in vain today. They had encountered the top-tier sea-suppressing spirit tool warships built by Master Soul Guide Kong Deming. No matter how wildly the beast tide raged or how they charged in waves, they could not shake the warships in the slightest. The full domain defensive formations of the 3 warships operated at their peak 24 hours a day. A thick, condensed dark golden light curtain wrapped around the entire hull, and the layers of mysterious iron defensive patterns shimmered, weaving into an airtight absolute barrier with a sturdiness beyond imagination. Countless spirit beasts under 10,000 years of age charged one after another, but their various attacks, crashing, biting, and spitting venom, all landed on the defensive light curtain, ultimately failing to even break through the basic defense of the warships. Many of the beasts, exerting too much force, were instead shattered by the countershock power of the light curtain, their muscles and bones broken, their bodies torn apart, falling into the deep sea with screams, unable to pose any real threat to the fleet. On the control deck of the flagship, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the surging beast tide on the sea, his expression calm and confident. Beside him, Gui Mei, Yu Guan, Jiyu Zhenyan and chief guest Mo Hengchuan all watched intently. The two had lived in Spirit Hall for years and were accustomed to spirit master battles and spirit beast riots, but they had never seen such standardized, large-scale oceanic weapons of slaughter. Their eyes were full of novelty and surprise. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming turned to look at them, his tone carrying a touch of calmness and certainty. Everyone, do not worry. These 3 sea-suppressing spirit tool warships of mine are 8th-grade spirit tools. The formations are reinforced layer by layer, and the hull materials are top-tier. Their defensive power is superb, even a spirit Douluo would find it difficult to break through. Sea beasts under 50,000 years cannot break the defense, nor do they fear the poison or the impact. These seemingly surging beast tides are nothing but trash fish throwing their lives away. Of course, merely defending was never the true combat power of these top-tier spirit tool warships. On both sides of the gunnels, as well as the bow and stern of each warship, were scattered 8 6th-grade fixed-position spirit tool cannons and 4 7th-grade fixed-position spirit tool cannons. All were war-heavy weapons built by Master Soul Guide Kong Deming, with power far exceeding that of standard continental weapons of the same type. Their explosive power, penetrating power, and lethality were maxed out, sufficient to frontally wound or even kill high-level spirit beasts of the 50,000-year level. They were true weapons of slaughter. Faced with the endless, fearless mass of the beast tide, there was no need for the 300 Judgment Knights to waste their energy. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming sat alone at the command center of the flagship, his hands controlling the master control facilities. Spirit power flickered at his fingertips, precisely linking all the artillery arrays of the 3 warships, perfectly controlling the charging and locking of every spirit tool cannon. His gaze swept coldly across the spirit beasts swarming the sky, and he shouted in a low voice, his powerful voice echoing in every corner of the 3 ships, "Full domain bombardment, activate." The moment the order fell, the earth-shaking roar of artillery fire exploded suddenly. Orange gold cannon light tore through the vast sea surface, and a destructive wall of fire spread out, covering the entire sea area. Every bombardment raised huge waves dozens of feet high, and the violent energy shockwaves swept in all directions. Any low-level spirit beast caught in the artillery fire had its body instantly annihilated, leaving no bones behind. The clear blue sea was instantly stained with dark red blood. This scene completely shocked Gui Mei, Yu Guan, and the others. Yu Guan's pupils shrank, his face full of disbelief, and he couldn't help but exclaim, This is a spirit tool cannon. The power is actually this terrifying. A full-force blow from an ordinary spirit emperor is not even worth mentioning in front of this artillery fire." Gui Mei stared fixedly at the massive beast tide that had been instantly cleared from the sea, his heart trembling uncontrollably, and he sighed deeply. "I have only heard the master say that spirit tools are powerful, but I never imagined they could reach this level. There is no need for spirit masters to fight hand-to-hand. With just these objects, one can crush swarms of spirit beasts. Such combat power is truly too subversive to my cognition." Jiyu Zhenyan nodded slightly, his gaze solemn, standardized, large-scale lethality, clearing the beast tide. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming's accomplishments in spirit tools are truly shocking. With such heavy weapons sitting in command, ordinary maritime crises are simply nothing to fear. They were all people with extremely high standards, having seen titled Douluo take action and witness top-tier spirit ability duels. But this kind of continuous, wide coverage, and extremely stable heavy weapon of slaughter was something they were seeing for the first time in their lives. The scene of indiscriminate suppression by artillery fire had more visual impact and oppression than single-target spirit ability duels, giving them a full realization of the terrifying foundation of top-tier spirit tool weapons. The low-level beast tide was wiped out in swarms, but the high-level spirit beasts in the deep sea were still unwilling to admit defeat. Several 40 to 50,000 year level black armored giant sharks and Kanglin giant whales, relying on their thick physical foundations and tyrannical spirit power, pushed through the dense artillery fire. Their massive bodies, carrying towering waves, arrogantly crushed toward the warships, attempting to break through the defensive barrier with brute force. Seeing the high-level fierce beasts attacking, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming's expression remained unchanged, as calm as before, and he controlled again. 7th grade main cannons lock onto high-level targets, precision point kill, annihilate. Several condensed, bright gold and red cannon beams broke through the air, precisely locking onto the high-level spirit beasts and exploding. The terrifying explosive power instantly tore through thick beast scales and defensive spirit power, shattering hard bodies inch by inch, with flesh and blood flying everywhere. These fierce beasts at the 40 to 50,000 year level, which dominated their sea areas and which no one dared to provoke, had no power to resist in front of the 7th grade spirit tool cannons. Their shrill wails echoed across the sea, and after being heavily wounded, they sank directly into the deep sea, dying completely. Witnessing this scene, Gueme couldn't help but exclaim, "Damn! Even high-level spirit beasts of the 50,000 year level can be killed instantly. The power of this 7th grade fixed position spirit tool cannon is too terrifying. The path of spirit tools can actually be this strong. This is truly an eye-opener." Yu Guan nodded repeatedly, the amazement in his eyes not fading. "In the past, I only knew that spirit tools were convenient and practical. Today I finally know that true top-tier spirit tool heavy weapons are such terrifying weapons of war." The entire maritime interception battle lasted for half an hour. The layer upon layer advancing beast tides charged in waves, but they could never get within half a step of the warships, being unilaterally crushed and slaughtered by the spirit tool artillery fire throughout. The battle was extremely one-sided. The entire fleet suffered zero damage. The 300 Judgment Knights did not need to take action throughout the entire process, clearing all obstacles in the sea area, and the dangerous oceanic journey was thoroughly turned into a smooth road. Everyone secretly sighed that with the support of such top-tier spirit tool warships, the difficulty had been directly and significantly leveled out. Chapter 45. Arrival at the sea, all forces attack. After several hours of full-speed travel, a clear dark cyan outline finally appeared at the end of the vast ocean. A giant, isolated island sat quietly in the middle of the blue sea. Mountains rolled, vegetation was lush, and the forest was filled with the thick, heavy aura of spirit beasts. A primitive, savage atmosphere rushed toward them. It was clearly a natural secret realm that no one had ever set foot in. To avoid an ambush upon landing, the 3 warships slowly decelerated and finally anchored steadily 2 nautical miles away from the island, maintaining a safe alert distance. Shen Yi landed steadily on the deck of the main ship, his expression solemn. He bowed to Jian Zunzong to report all the intelligence he had gathered. "Young master, according to the Imperial Guards, the island ahead is vast and rich in spiritual energy, making it extremely suitable for spirit beasts to breed and inhabit. The island is filled with various spirit beast tribes, and their overall strength should not be underestimated. There are 3 top-tier spirit beast tribes entrenched on the island: the Cold Water Demon Wolf tribe, the Raging Wave Spirit Ape tribe, and the Flood Crocodile tribe. These 3 tribes divide the territory, each controlling a corner, and dominate the entire island. The Cold Water Demon Wolves occupy the northern mountains. They are swift, skilled at encirclement and sneak attacks, and possess ice attribute spirit abilities that are bone-chillingly cold, with extremely high mobility. The Raging Wave Spirit Apes occupy the central cold forest. They are physically strong, immensely powerful, have flexible and varied movement techniques, are proficient in various water-type arts, and have outstanding long-range suppression capabilities. The Flood Crocodiles inhabit the beaches and nearshore waters of the island. They are a rare amphibious spirit beast, possessing both offensive and defensive capabilities, thick skin and flesh, and tenacious vitality. They are the most violent. The leaders of the 3 tribes have cultivation levels reaching the 60 to 70,000 year mark. Their combat power is formidable, their foundations are deep, and each controls a faction. The total number of spirit beasts on the island is nearly 3,000, but the proportion of high-level spirit beasts is not too large. It is an excellent foundation for guarding the sea. On the cloud-step Fuguang carriage, Jian Zunzong leaned lazily on the soft cushions, holding the docile and well-behaved Yuang Shay crystal beast, Xiao Jing, in his arms. His fingertips gently stroked the little guy's soft, fluffy fur. His expression was indifferent and relaxed. Hearing about the many dangers on the island, there was still no ripple in his eyes, and he remained calm and composed. After listening to Shen Yi's detailed report, he just nodded faintly, his tone casual but carrying an absolute majesty that brooked no argument. Since the details are clear, there is no need to wait any longer. 300 Judgment Knights, all forces attack, suppress the island. Military orders are like mountains. Once given, they must be executed. No one dared to hesitate. On the decks of the 3 warships, brilliant golden light suddenly bloomed across the sky. 300 Adjudication Knights simultaneously activated their spirits. Pure and vast light attribute spirit power soared into the sky, shining brightly and shaking the surroundings. Each knight had a pair of gilded wings unfurled behind them. The wings were surrounded by flowing light, sacred and solemn, and the majestic light attribute spirit power swept across the entire sea area. Buzz. A sharp and piercing sound of breaking through the air resounded throughout the world. 300 golden figures rose into the air simultaneously, holding holy light spears. With a light flap of their wings, they moved like shooting stars, swooping down upon the entire island. All of them were at the spirit saint level, all of them possessed sacred attribute spirit power. The lethal battle formation composed of 300 people was seamless, capable of both offense and defense. The biting aura of slaughter firmly shocked the entire island, causing countless spirit beasts within to tremble. Meanwhile, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming once again controlled the warship's weapon system. All the fixed spirit tool cannons on the 3 warships were fully charged simultaneously. The muzzles changed direction, precisely locking onto the core settlements of the 3 major spirit beast tribes on the island. 6th level and 7th level spirit tool cannons roared simultaneously. Dense artillery fire poured down like a meteor shower, precisely covering the entire forest territory. With the roar of artillery and golden light piercing the sky, the originally quiet, savage island was instantly thrown into chaos. Countless spirit beasts resting in the forest were awakened by the sudden terrifying offensive, fleeing in panic or fighting back desperately. The biting ice blades of the cold water demon wolves, the towering water waves of the raging wave spirit apes, and the muddy waves of the flood crocodiles, various attribute spirit abilities rose to the sky, layering to block the offensive. However, in the face of the absolute power of the Adjudication Knights' holy light spears and the top-tier spirit tool artillery, all resistance seemed pale and vulnerable. Large swaths of spirit beasts had their bodies shattered by artillery fire or were pierced by holy light spears. Mournful wails resounded through the forest, warm beast blood soaked the land, and the quiet, savage forest instantly turned into a tragic battlefield of slaughter. Witnessing the terrifying power of spirit tool artillery bombarding land and sweeping away tribes again, Guime still could not hide the shock in his heart and sighed in a low voice. Capable of fighting on both sea and land, capable of slaughtering from both long and short range, if such heavy spirit tool weapons were used in the defense and offense of cities on the continent, it would be enough to rewrite the war pattern of the entire continent. Yu Guan nodded in agreement, his expression solemn. No wonder the young master wants shopkeeper Shen and Lord He to fully support Grandmaster Kong in developing spirit tools. The strategic value of this item far exceeds that of ordinary spirit master legions. On the warship deck, Jian Zunzong was still half lying on the couch, his expression relaxed and comfortable. He listened quietly to the continuous roar of artillery and the wails of beasts in his ears, feeling the aura of slaughter overflowing in the sky. Xiao Jing and his arms rubbed against his palm docilely. It was a peaceful and quiet scene, forming an extreme contrast with the tragic battlefield below. Gui Mei and Yu Guan stood quietly to the side, looking at the tragic scene of corpses littering the island in rivers of blood, watching countless lives fall one after another, and a sense of compassion and intolerance quietly arose in their hearts. Yu Guan frowned slightly and spoke softly to persuade him. Young master, is this endless slaughter too cruel? Most of the spirit beasts on the island have always lived here. To wipe them all out is too harsh. Gui Mei also echoed at the right time, his tone full of emotion. Yes, young master. With over 2,000 spirit beasts, it is a pity to kill them all. All things have spirituality, such extermination is truly a bit tragic. Hearing what the two said, Qian Zunzong raised his eyes slightly, the corners of his mouth curling into a faint smile. His eyes were clear and transparent, but they hid a coldness that saw through the laws of the world. Cruel. In this Douluo continent, it has always been the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest. This is the only law of survival in the world. Those who are not of my race will have different hearts. These island spirit beasts are wild and untamable, not subject to education. There is no guarantee they won't slaughter the people who go out to see or disturb the peace of one side. Compassion needs to be divided by objects, and kindness must have an edge. I have decided to take this island and this sea area for my own use, so I cannot tolerate any unstable hidden dangers. They must either submit and surrender, becoming the combat power under my command to guard the territory, or die and be completely removed from the name. There is no third path to choose. His words were resonant and powerful, clear and direct, showing the decisiveness of a superior and a long-term vision. Gui Mei and Yu Guan looked at each other and understood. Just as they were about to say no more and watch the battle quietly, Qian Zunzong suddenly changed the subject, his expression changing from the previous cold slaughter to a bit of sudden realization. But you reminded me. Qian Zunzong slapped his thigh, looking at the continuously consuming artillery fire below, his face full of heartache. If they can be subdued for my own use, why must I kill them all? My spirit tool shells and the combat power of the knights are precious resources. This is all money. Wasting them on meaningless slaughter like this is truly a waste. As soon as the words fell, he immediately gave a low order, and the sound wave resounded through the battlefield. All forces cease fire. The knights paused the offensive. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming shut down all spirit tool cannons. Stop all slaughter. The military order spread throughout the audience instantly, with full effect. The golden knights swooping down from the sky stopped in midair instantly, restrained their offensive, and hovered to wait for orders. The roaring spirit tool artillery stopped suddenly. The smoke in the sky slowly dissipated, and the tragic fighting on the island stopped instantly. The entire forest fell into an eerie silence, leaving only a mess and corpses everywhere. The remaining thousands of spirit beasts shivered and huddled in a corner. The three major tribes were all scarred and sluggish, no longer having the domineering ferocity of dominating the island in the past, looking at the human powerhouses in the air with fear. Shen Yi, you take Mr. Mo and Ma Jinyan, and go to the settlements of the three major tribes immediately to pass the word. Qian Zunzong swept his indifferent gaze across the entire island, and his voice spread clearly to all sides. Tell all spirit beasts that anyone who is willing to submit can preserve the lives of the tribe, continue the bloodline, guard the sea area from now on, be protected by me, and be nourished by my resources. Anyone who resists stubbornly and refuses to submit will be wiped out immediately, leaving no one behind. Yes, the three bowed to take orders, their figures flashed into three afterimages, and instantly fell into the settlements of the three major tribes on the island, conveying Qian Zunzong's will one by one, deterring the uneasy spirit beasts. Spirit beasts with cultivation levels exceeding 50,000 years already possess good intelligence, almost the same as humans. Although they cannot speak human words, they can understand most of the meaning. In the face of life and death, one can see the true heart of a living creature best, and one can also distinguish the character of a tribe best. The cold water demon wolf tribe was proud and cold by nature, wild and untamable. They relied on their swift movement and were good at group fighting. Even though the tribe suffered heavy casualties and was severely injured, they still refused to kneel and submit. The tribe roared repeatedly, their battle intent remained, and they swore not to surrender to humans. The raging wave spirit ape tribe was intelligent and proud by nature. They boasted of their outstanding talent and unique advantages, disdained to become vassals of humans, resolutely refused to surrender, and put on a posture of fighting to the death. Only the flood crocodile tribe, after experiencing the crushing offensive of the artillery and the knights, clearly saw the vast difference in strength between the two sides. The leader assessed the situation, knowing that resistance would surely lead to death. To preserve the continuation of the tribe's bloodline and protect the clansmen under his command, he decisively took the lead in bowing and submitting, leading all the living beings of the tribe to willingly surrender to Qian Zunzong, guard the sea area, and never rebel. Hearing the returned results, Qian Zunzong was neither sad nor happy, his expression indifferent, and he ordered calmly. Since they don't know how to appreciate favors, then clear them all out, leaving no hidden dangers of resistance. The stalled offensive restarted, and this time the conquest was more precise and more ruthless. 300 judgment knights coordinated and cooperated, accurately encircling and suppressing, combined with the remaining spirit tool firepower of the warships, targeted clearing of the two tribes that refused to surrender. The cold water demon wolves and raging wave spirit apes, who had lost the opportunity to negotiate, fought back desperately and fought crazily in the desperate situation, but the strength gap was huge, and in the end, there was no way to recover. Under the absolute crushing power of the Spirit Saint Legion and top-tier spirit tool weapons, the two tribes retreated steadily, suffered heavy casualties, and were finally completely wiped out, with not a single one surviving. Chapter 46, Breaking Through to Spirit Ancestor, Tianshan City, Douluo Academy. With the war completely concluded and the islands pacified, Shen Yi returned, his spirit power firmly binding a massive, magnificent, and strange giant dragon. He stepped forward and reported, "My lord, I found a top-tier mutated spirit beast on the island and have captured it to present to you." Everyone's gaze converged on it. The beast was covered in shimmering golden scales, its dragon horns were sharp and imposing, its dragon eyes bright and majestic. Its physique was sturdy and upright, surrounded by pure light attribute spirit power and scorching fire attribute spirit power. The dual attributes were intertwined and binding, emitting a powerful and heavy aura. This beast was known as the Heavenly Light Breaking Dragon, with a cultivation of 50,000 years. It was the most special top-tier spirit beast on this island. The entire island and surrounding waters were covered in dense water attribute spirit power, making it extremely difficult for fire and light attribute creatures to thrive. Yet, the Heavenly Light Breaking Dragon was able to thrive against the odds, developing formidable light and fire dual attributes. It was naturally gifted with extraordinary combat power, far exceeding ordinary spirit beasts of the same age. It was the perfect fit for Qian Zunzong's God of Judgment spirit, making it an extremely compatible fourth spirit ring. A look of satisfaction flashed in Qian Zunzong's eyes, and he lightly raised his hand. "Bring it here." Shen Yi released the suppression, handing the Heavenly Light Breaking Dragon over to Qian Zunzong. Facing this top-tier giant dragon, Qian Zunzong moved forward gracefully. He raised his hand to condense the blade of the God of Judgment. With a flash of golden light, he cleanly and decisively ended the Heavenly Light Breaking Dragon's life without any hesitation. A brilliant, pure black spirit ring slowly rose from the dragon's body. The majestic energy, intertwined with light and fire, permeated the surroundings, with spirit power that was both gentle and domineering. Qian Zunzong sat cross-legged on the spot, focusing on drawing the spirit ring into his body to begin absorbing and refining it. Inside his body, the god of judgment spirit shone brilliantly, radiating divine light. The divine throne quietly circulated its source power. The dual super god level spirits complemented and resonated with each other, rapidly refining the pure energy within the spirit ring. Beside him, the Yu Hengxie crystal beast stood guard quietly, releasing a pure power of purification to isolate external distractions and residual evil, stabilizing Qian Zunzong's mind and foundation of spirit power. The vast energy of the spirit ring flowed through his meridians to his limbs and bones, continuously tempering his physique, nourishing his divine soul, and solidifying his foundation. The pure light and fire attribute spirit power continuously filled his spirit power barrier, constantly impacting the shackles and breaking through the bottleneck. In just half an hour, the long-standing spirit power barrier shattered with a boom. A momentum far exceeding the past surged into the sky, and a golden halo swept through his body, shocking the surroundings. His spirit power skyrocketed, climbing step by step, and finally stabilized at level 44. Qian Zunzong successfully broke through, stepping into the realm of a level 44 spirit ancestor. From this moment on, Qian Zunzong officially joined the ranks of spirit ancestors. His overall combat power surged several times over, his foundation became even more solid, and he had no rivals among his peers. Looking at the arrogant youths across the entire continent, throughout history, no one could surpass him. He slowly stood up and stretched his body, feeling the brand new, abundant, majestic, gentle yet domineering spirit power within him. Qian Zunzong raised a relieved smile at the corner of his mouth. He was in excellent condition and his state of mind was clear. Subsequently, he issued another order, commanding the 300 adjudication knights to cooperate and divide the work, thoroughly cleaning up the battlefield, organizing the island's terrain, and clearing away residual debris and beast remains. He had the entire island tidied up in an orderly fashion, laying a comprehensive foundation for the subsequent construction of the city and academy. Once everything was prepared, Qian Zunzong's gaze narrowed. With a thought, he quietly activated the ultimate creation power retained by the system. System, summon the city and place it in the central area of the island. The world trembled, the sea of clouds churned, and endless golden divine light fell from the 9 heavens, covering the entire island. A magnificent and vast phantom of a giant city slowly emerged from the void. The phantom continuously solidified and took root, spreading and expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. Bricks, stones, earth, and wood condensed out of thin air. Broad and flat streets crisscrossed, towering city walls rose from the ground and stretched for 100 miles. Pavilions, mansions, grand halls, cultivation environments, martial arts plazas, and resting quarters were all available. The entire city was well planned, exquisitely laid out, fully equipped, and possessed a magnificent foundation. Without any manual sculpting, all construction processes were completed in an instant. In a short moment, a giant divine city with a radius of 100 kilometers was completely formed, standing proudly in the center of the island. The city walls reached into the clouds, the ramparts were endless, and sacred golden light lingered throughout the city, bringing with it supreme majesty and mighty pressure, like a divine city from the 9 heavens standing in the human world, magnificent to the extreme. After the city was completed, Qian Zunzong moved his mind again, materializing the top-tier Spirit Master Academy that the system had previously rewarded. A highly regulated and magnificent academy appeared out of thin air, sitting firmly in the very center of the city. It occupied a vast area with abundant spiritual energy. Classrooms, lecture halls, practical martial arts arenas, libraries, cultivation environments, mentor mansions, and residences for the arrogant youths were all included. The configuration was several times higher than the top standards of the continent, capable of cultivating batch after batch of top powerhouses who could roam the continent. It was a well-deserved holy land. Looking at the newly erected city and academy before him, Qian Zunzong's gaze was distant, his heart vast, and he named the two in a deep voice. This city takes its meaning from my god of judgment spirit, and is named Tianshan City. This academy aims to cultivate peerless geniuses, compete for the peak of the world, and vie for the continent, and is named Douluo Academy. The moment the words fell, 2 lines of gilded characters automatically appeared on the giant stone plaque at the main gate of the city and the plaque at the gate of the academy. The handwriting was elegant and free, the strokes were powerful and majestic, like dragons and snakes dancing, swallowing the mountains and rivers, carrying the supreme majesty of the heavenly Tao, perfectly matching the magnificent atmosphere of the city and the academy, sacred and awe-inspiring. With the new city set and the academy completed, the foundation of the territory was initially established. Qian Zunzong looked into the distance, sweeping across the entire vast island and the 10,000-mile vast sea area around it, and once again said the name of the territory. This island is named Heavenly God State. This 100-mile sea area under its jurisdiction is from now on named the Yunnan Sea Area. With the name set and the territory formed, the foundation of a brand new top-tier force took firm root in the depths of the ocean. After doing all this, Qian Zunzong turned to look at Ma Jinyan beside him and issued a political order in a steady tone. Jinyan, you will immediately set off to return to the Leon sect and deliver my order. The entire sect is to migrate and enter Tianshan City and Heavenly God State. All disciples are to enter Douluo Academy for cultivation and training, taking root in the Yunnan Sea area, and joining me in expanding our eternal foundation and competing for the world. Ma Jinyan bowed and accepted the order, his expression respectful and firm. This subordinate obeys the order. From this point on, a supreme divine city dominating the ocean stood proudly, and a brand new territorial map was officially formed. Tianshan City was towering and magnificent with its foundation beginning to show. Douluo Academy waited for geniuses from all directions. The Yunnan Sea area had vast territory and infinite potential, and Heavenly God State stood firmly in the ocean, shocking the 4 seas. Phew, the foundation is set. Now it is just a matter of time. Chapter 47, Coronation of the Divine Throne. Heavenly God State, Tianshan City. A day passed in the blink of an eye. After a night, the Leon sect, 8,000 miles away, had finished their preparations. A 1,000-person procession sailed across the sea on warships. Traveling east, the essence of the world changed layer by layer. They moved away from the scorching and violent fire attribute spirit power of the Leon Mountains. Upon stepping into the Heavenly God State, the turbid air dissipated and spiritual light filled the sky. A thin golden radiance covered the world, cleansing the body and mind of every member of the Leon sect. Even the outer sect disciples with low cultivation and long stagnant progress could clearly feel their accumulated spirit power quietly activating as they walked on this land. The exhaustion and cultivation bottlenecks were washed away by the holy light. When the entire team stepped into the territory of Tianshan City and looked up, the layout and atmosphere of Tianshan City far exceeded their imagination. The city floor was paved with white jade, with layers of patterns hidden beneath the tiles, flowing endlessly day and night. The palaces, built against the mountains, were arranged in an orderly manner, filled with immortal mist and glowing clouds. Every inch of land was accumulated with pure primordial energy of heaven and earth. Compared to the scorching, violent, and murderous atmosphere of the Leon sect, this place was peaceful, quiet, and transcendently holy. Every blade of grass and tree exuded an otherworldly style. My goodness, the aura of this city alone crushes Spirit City and the two great imperial capitals. It is truly a miracle. It is truly rare in history. Quote. The elders of the Leon sect stopped to watch, their eyes filled with extreme shock and envy. After entering the city, the adjudication knights came forward to receive them in an orderly manner. They stood tall with dignified bearing, showing the regulations of the holy city. Without extra instructions, they led all the ordinary disciples and low-level elders of the Leon sect to their designated placement areas. This area had abundant primordial energy, elegant residences, and was fully equipped with cultivation grounds, meditation rooms, spiritual herb gardens, and body-tempering pools. The supporting facilities far exceeded the core area of the Leon sect, allowing all disciples to cultivate and stabilize their foundations with peace of mind. The Leon sect disciples settled down, rested, and waited for further arrangements. Sect Master Ma Mingchen and Ma Jingyan were led to the most central and majestic hub of Tianjin City. In the center of the city, a great hall that connected heaven and earth and pierced through the clouds stood tall, occupying the core of the holy city's fortune. The hall was made of 9 heavens divine jade and purple gold divine rock, with tens of thousands of ancient and complex divine patterns engraved on its body. The patterns flowed with light, carrying supreme divine power to suppress the heavens and stabilize the universe. This was the core of Tianjin City, the hall of the heavenly god. Sect Master Ma Mingchen and Ma Jingyan climbed the steps, with thousands of white jade stairs leading directly to the main entrance of the hall of the heavenly god. They reached the top and entered the hall of the heavenly god. The space inside was boundless, and the dome encompassed the myriad phenomena of heaven and earth. Golden divine patterns floated on the 4 walls, flowing slowly and casting endless holy light to illuminate the entire hall. Inside the hall, Qian Zunzong sat on the high seat, dressed in a gilded holy robe. Beside him, Xin Yi stood guard, his aura as cold as a sharp blade, guarding all directions without leaving his side. Yu Guan and Gui Mei stood with their hands down, their expressions respectful and solemn, not daring to be negligent. Chief guest Mo Hingchuan sat quietly in a seat nearby, like a common hermit scholar. Subordinate Sect Master Ma Mingchen pays respects to the master. Sect Master Ma Mingchen bowed solemnly. Qian Zunzong raised his hand slightly, and his clear but majestic voice echoed throughout the hall, penetrating the heart and shocking the divine soul. No need for formalities. I called you here today to grant you the supreme opportunity I mentioned, to reshape your foundation and defy the heavens to change your destiny. The moment the words fell, Qian Zunzong's gaze suddenly rose, looking into the boundless void of the hall. The golden light in his eyes surged, and the vast power of the creation god rolled out, sweeping through the entire hall of the heavenly god. Endless spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered crazily, weaving into a dazzling golden divine glow on the dome of the hall, and the laws of the entire space trembled slightly. I carry the will of the ancient eternity, hold the divine force of the creation of all things, and open the world for this world, divine throne, throne. A soft chant, neither angry nor shaking, but it shook the heaven and earth. Boom. The layers of clouds on the dome of the hall of the heavenly god suddenly exploded. Endless golden divine light pierced through the ancient void, and billions of creation god radiance poured down, covering the entire hall. A supreme throne that surpassed the clouds slowly fell from the depths of the chaotic void and hovered steadily above the hall. It floated quietly, without any sharp killing intent, but possessed supreme majesty that suppressed the heavens and was immune to all laws, as if all things in heaven and earth and the order of all beings were under its control. The holy, ancient, and vast aura permeated the entire place, making everyone in the hall involuntarily submit. At this moment, everyone in the hall was shocked. Even chief guest Mo Hengchuan, a limit Douluo standing at the pinnacle of the continent, had deep movement in his eyes. The light moved Qian Zunzong's figure. He rose into the air, stepped on holy light and flowing clouds, and sat slowly on the throne of eternity and creation. The moment he sat on the throne, his temperament changed completely. The laziness, casualness, and youthful spirit of the past faded away, replaced by the holy majesty of ruling heaven and earth, judging all things, creating the world, and protecting life. His eyes were as clear as the sun, moon, and stars, and his gaze could penetrate the ancient void and see through the foul slits of the world. Endless holy light gathered around the throne, and the spiritual energy, laws, and divine charm of heaven and earth all bowed down, building an independent and holy coronation domain with the throne as the center. Sect Master Ma Mingchen, come forward to hear the oath and receive my divine throne coronation. The plain words fell, but they carried the supreme power of the laws of heaven and earth, echoing in every inch of the hall, every word heavy, irresistible. Sect Master Ma Mingchen's heart trembled, his divine soul was solemn, and he did not dare to hesitate. He dragged his body and moved forward with difficulty, feeling his own insignificance with every step. To him, Qian Zunzong sitting on the supreme throne was like a mortal facing the gods of the heavens, and endless awe and piety surged in his heart. When Sect Master Ma Mingchen stood 3 feet below the throne, Qian Zunzong raised his hand slowly. A wisp of pure, flawless creation godlight condensed at his fingertips. The divine light was as condensed as jade, warm and heavy, carrying the phantom of a holy throne that was milky white and warm with divine radiance, slowly forming from the void. This throne was ancient, magnificent, and dignified, surrounded by soft holy light that pitied the common people and protected all things, with patterns engraved with the heaven and earth mysteries of protection, healing, and shelter. It was one of the 6 great divine throne, the divine throne of protection and compassion, which possessed the strongest group defense in the world and mastered the path of protecting all living beings. The phantom of the throne floated in the void, flowing slowly, and endless warm holy light fell, covering Sect Master Ma Mingchen completely. The soft but majestic power of protection seeped into his flesh, meridians, and divine soul origin, quietly smoothing out the pain and decay in his body, stripping away the old illnesses accumulated in his body bit by bit. Qian Zunzong sat on the throne of eternity, his gaze solemn, and his holy and majestic voice sounded again, knocking on the divine soul and echoing through the 9 heavens. Sect Master Ma Mingchen, today I grant you the divine throne of protection and compassion, to hold the ultimate power of protection in the world, to protect the common people and guard the holy city. Are you willing to abandon your worldly freedom from now on, stay in Tianjin City for your whole life, guard the territory of Heavenly God State, never leave this place, protect the living beings in the city, and guard the peace of this place? If you break your oath, you will bear the 100-fold divine punishment shackles of the throne, your divine soul will be burned day and night, your vitality will be exhausted, your cultivation will be completely abolished, until you die and disappear, never to be released. Sect Master Ma Mingchen's body trembled slightly. He looked up at the holy and magnificent throne of protection in the void, feeling the surging vitality in his body. His heart was filled with mixed feelings, and in an instant, only endless piety and gratitude remained. He had fought and worked hard for half his life, guarding the withering Leon sect, suffering from unsolvable beast poison for years, his lifespan exhausted, his foundation broken, and he had long been at the end of his rope. He thought his days were numbered and he would die, so he had already looked past life and death. Now that he could obtain this supreme divine opportunity, change his destiny against the heavens, be reborn, and break free from the shackles of death, it was a great gift. Merely guarding for life and abandoning worldly freedom was nothing compared to life and rebirth. Without any hesitation, without a trace of doubt, Sect Master Ma Mingchen bowed heavily, bent his knees slightly, and knelt solemnly to the supreme throne. His tone was pious and firm, his voice shaking the entire hall. Subordinate Sect Master Ma Mingchen, I am willing to abandon worldly freedom, stay in heavenly God state forever, guard Tianshan City, protect the common people, guard the territory, and never break my oath. Good. Qian Zunzong nodded in a deep voice, and the creation god light at his fingertips suddenly became 10,000 feet bright. The supreme divine throne coronation ceremony officially began. Buzz. The void trembled violently, and all the laws of heaven and earth resonated. The phantom of the divine throne of protection and compassion suddenly erupted with billions of holy light, and the protective divine patterns in the sky stretched and flowed, spreading layer by layer, turning into golden divine radiance, pouring into Sect Master Ma Mingchen's body like a river from heaven. The holy coronation golden light went from top to bottom, completely cleansing his flesh, meridians, divine soul origin, and spirit foundation. The original toxic poison accumulated in his internal organs, meridians, and bones for decades, which even the top healing spirit ability of the undying sect could not eradicate, was like ice meeting the sun and black mist meeting the morning light in front of the pure divine force of protection, instantly melting and completely eradicated, leaving no residue. The originally decayed, exhausted, and damaged meridians were repaired, reshaped, and widened by the holy light, becoming tough, wide, and flawless. The withered and stagnant spirit origin regained its ultimate vitality, with its foundation layered and becoming more and more profound. The chi, blood, and divine soul that were on the verge of collapsing were instantly stabilized and filled, and the divine soul origin was tempered and sublimated. Click, click, click. The subtle sound of physical transformation continued to ring, clearly echoing in the silent air. Sect Master Ma Mingchen's originally hunched and decayed body slowly straightened, his withered and shriveled flesh became full again, and his withered and pale face regained a ruddy complexion. In just a few breaths, the twilight old man who was at the end of his rope and had less than half a year of lifespan seemed to have rejuvenated. The decay, old age, and broken aura on his body faded away, replaced by majestic, thick, and long-lasting vitality. A majestic spirit power far exceeding his peak erupted from his body. His broken cultivation, which could only exert the combat power of a level 92, instantly stabilized at the peak of a level 95 super Douluo, with a perfect foundation, impeccable, and no hidden dangers. He could clearly feel that his lifespan had increased by decades, adding a full 30 years of time. His remaining life was stable, his vitality was long, and he had completely gotten rid of the crisis of death. From now on, he would no longer be troubled by the exhaustion of lifespan and the backlash of poison. Sect Master Ma Mingchen clenched his fists and raised his hands, feeling the full and majestic, endless power in his body. His eyes were full of shock and ecstasy, and his eyes were slightly red. The despair of decades of pain, the decline of cultivation, and the exhaustion of lifespan, the fatigue of half a lifetime of hard work, all vanished at this moment, replaced by the extreme joy of rebirth. Subordinate, thank you, Master. Qian Zunzong looked down at the newborn Sect Master Ma Mingchen quietly, his voice plain and melodious, slowly explaining the rules of the throne and supreme abilities, every word clear, entering everyone's ears. The divine throne of protection and compassion, the core ability of this throne, can unfold an endless protective light curtain, covering 1,000 miles of territory. Within the range, all friendly creatures are immune to all physical attacks, spirit power intrusion, divine soul curses, and illusion erosion, achieving an absolute paragon golden body. Anyone you protect will be immune to blades, evil spirits, and all difficulties. In addition, the throne can resonate and link with the earth veins of Tianshan City and my throne of eternity. Within the territory of the city, your defensive power will be doubled, and the protective barrier will be indestructible. Even if a titled Douluo attacks with full force or a limit Douluo tests it, it will be difficult to break even a bit. But you must remember the shackles of the oath. You must never leave the territory of heavenly God state for the rest of your life, and you must never abandon the responsibility of guarding. If you keep the common people in your heart and stick to your original intention, the power of the throne will be endless and endless. If you have distracting thoughts and try to betray, it will immediately trigger the backlash of the divine throne, your cultivation will be abolished, your divine soul will be destroyed, and you will never be reborn. Sect Master Ma Mingchen bowed his head, full of piety, and replied solemnly. Subordinate will remember the Master's teachings, abide by the divine oath, guard Tianshan City for life, protect the common people, and dare not have any excess. Being able to be reborn and obtain this supreme opportunity is already a great gift. Subordinate has no complaints, and I swear to be loyal to the Master for this life and never betray. Chapter 48, A Spar Between the Two. Witnessing the miraculous transformation of Sect Master Ma Mingchen, who had shed his old self and seen his combat power skyrocket, everyone in the hall was filled with awe. A divine throne of protection and compassion had not only eradicated a stubborn ailment of many years and reshaped the foundation of his cultivation, but it had also directly created a super Douluo, a rarity through the ages. Qian Zunzong nodded slightly, his gaze shifting as he spoke in a calm voice. You have just obtained the divine throne of protection and compassion and are still unfamiliar with controlling its laws. Take this opportunity to hone yourself and familiarize yourself with the divine might of the throne. Chief Guest Mo, your cultivation is heaven-defying and your foundation is profound. Why not spar with Sect Master Ma Mingchen to test the true power of the throne? It will also help him master and control this divine force. Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan smiled calmly, cupped his hands, and replied composedly, I shall follow your instructions, young master. I will certainly act as a sparring partner to test the power of this supreme throne of protection. Sect Master Ma Mingchen also felt his fighting spirit surge. With his newborn strength filling his body, he desperately needed a battle to hone his control, so he immediately bowed and saluted. I ask for your guidance, Elder Mo. Without further ado, the two of them rose into the air simultaneously, instantly rushing out of the hall of the heavenly god to stand above the sea of clouds 10,000 feet in the sky. The vast sky over Tianshan City, with its clear sea of clouds and mighty winds, became the perfect battlefield for their trial. All the disciples and elders in the city looked up, their gazes locked tightly on the high altitude. On one side was the newly appointed holder of the divine throne of protection and compassion, a peak 95th level super Douluo, on the other was a limit Douluo standing at the pinnacle of the continent. Above the sea of clouds, Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan stood with his hands behind his back, his robes fluttering. His aura was gentle and restrained, seemingly ordinary and devoid of any outward pressure, yet he possessed the supreme foundation of a limit Douluo on the continent, with every gesture carrying the rhythm of heaven and earth. Sect Master Ma Mingchen no longer hesitated. After cupping his hands in a salute, his figure exploded outward, and the fiery spirit power around him surged violently. Senior, excuse me, Nine Heavens Rainbow Phoenix, Spirit Avatar. Boom. Extremely scorching crimson gold flames erupted, sweeping across the 10,000-mile sky. A phantom of the Nine Heavens Rainbow Phoenix, with wings covering the sky and surrounded by divine flames, appeared behind Sect Master Ma Mingchen. The phoenix's cry shook the heavens, and the domineering, pure, top-tier fire attribute spirit power ravaged the surroundings. The scorching high temperature instantly evaporated the thick sea of clouds in the high altitude, and the entire horizon was engulfed in crimson divine fire. After decades, he finally displayed his peak combat power once again. His spirit essence flowed without any obstruction, and his power was majestic and vast, far exceeding his previous peak state. Every wisp of flame contained highly refined, top-tier spirit power. 4th spirit ability, Rainbow Phoenix Sky Assault. 5th spirit ability, Heaven Burning Phoenix Wings. 7th spirit ability, 9 Heavens Rainbow Phoenix True Body. A chain of spirit abilities erupted instantly. Crimson gold divine fire covered the sky and earth, burning the void. Countless phoenix fire feathers transformed into lethal blades, carrying an overwhelming, violent momentum as they bombarded Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan from all directions. The sky was filled with flames that could burn the heavens and boil the seas. Feathers tore through the clouds, and the attack was violent, fierce, and world-destroying, easily capable of crushing most titled Douluo on the continent. Sect Master Ma Mingchen held nothing back, using all his trump cards and exhausting the full combat power of a 95th level Super Douluo. The attack stacked layer upon layer, continuous and unending, displaying the ultimate firepower of the 9 Heavens Rainbow Phoenix to the fullest. However, facing this extreme onslaught that could burn mountains, boil seas, and destroy everything within 1,000 miles, Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan stood with his hands behind his back, remaining calm and composed. His gentle aura remained, and he hadn't even activated his spirit, relying solely on his physical foundation and righteous aura. The violent phoenix flames, sharp feathers, and raging fire that filled the sky were all blocked by an invisible, intangible wall of righteous energy the moment they came within 3 feet of Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan. Boom, boom, boom. Countless violent attacks exploded, the void trembled, fire filled the sky, and shattered clouds flew everywhere. But no matter how violent the attacks or how domineering the spirit power, they could not break through that thin barrier of righteous energy in the slightest, unable to even touch the corner of Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan's clothes. All the energy in the sky dissipated, leaving only thunderous roars. Below, the spectators were all trembling, their faces filled with shock, and gasps of amazement rose one after another. Elder Mo is truly worthy of being a limit Douluo. His foundation is too terrifying. Sect Master Ma is now a peak 95th level Super Douluo. Even after using all his trump cards and attacking with full force, he couldn't even break within 3 feet of the opponent. Quote. Sect Master Ma Mingchen's eyes were grave, and his heart was filled with amazement. He knew how formidable his own combat power was. In his peak state, he could roam the continent. But before Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan, it was like a child playing, completely fragile. The gap in their cultivation levels far exceeded his imagination. Realizing that ordinary spirit power attacks were completely ineffective, Sect Master Ma Mingchen no longer hesitated. His eyes narrowed, and he shouted in a deep voice, "Divine Throne of Protection and Compassion, appear." Above the 10,000-foot sky, the sacred throne of protection and compassion appeared once more. Endless protective holy light erupted, instantly enveloping Sect Master Ma Mingchen. The vast and heavy power of protection spread out in layers, merging into his body and spirit. In an instant, a vast, majestic, and infinitely heavy power of protection poured into Sect Master Ma Mingchen's entire body. His aura skyrocketed several times over. His physical body, spirit power, and divine soul underwent an all-around transformation and improvement. The aura around him became mighty, heavy, and as stable as heaven and earth. The aura that had previously been worlds apart from Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan suddenly closed the gap rapidly, even faintly catching up to the limit level of Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan. The situation, which had been completely suppressed, was instantly reversed. With the blessing of the divine throne of protection and compassion, his defense, endurance, spirit power sustainability, and physical strength all doubled, and he was surrounded by a divine protective might that was immune to all laws. A trace of approval flashed in Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan's eyes. He finally stopped holding back, raised his hand slowly, and gave a light shout, 10,000 volumes of books. Whoosh. Endless righteous Confucian energy erupted from his body. Countless ancient books appeared in the sky, pages fluttering, ink flowing, and righteous energy filling the entire firmament. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red, red, the 9 spirit rings pulsed, revealing the power of a limit Douluo. With a wave of Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan's hand, countless books opened and closed, condensing into thousands of sharp Confucian swords and righteous saber lights. They were dense, covering the sky, and came crashing down on Sect Master Ma Mingchen from all directions. Sword energy crisscrossed, saber lights pierced the sun, and the momentum was terrifying to the extreme. Facing the righteous blades filling the sky, Sect Master Ma Mingchen looked calm and fearless. He shouted sternly, "Upon the throne, no blade or weapon shall be laid upon my body." In an instant, the divine throne of protection and compassion erupted with 10,000 feet of golden divine light. A thick, boundless, and clear golden energy barrier instantly spread out, enveloping Sect Master Ma Mingchen completely. The sacred power of protection flowed unceasingly, and the power to protect the common people burst forth to its limit. Bang, bang, bang. Thousands of Confucian swords and righteous saber lights crashed into the golden protective barrier, exploding with earth-shattering roars. The void shattered in layers, light and shadow filled the sky, but they could not break through the barrier in the slightest. All the fierce attacks were dissolved, neutralized, and rebounded by the barrier, leaving no threat at all. The ultimate defense of divine might shocked the entire audience. The onlookers below were already dumbfounded, having fully grasped the unbreakable defense of the divine throne of protection and compassion. Having blocked Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan's strike, Sect Master Ma Mingchen did not stop. With a movement of his mind, he urged the power of the throne again and shouted in a deep voice. Divine throne, armor transformation. The phantom of the protective throne floating in the void suddenly disintegrated. Thousands of divine patterns and endless holy light instantly converged, like 100 rivers returning to the sea, all pouring into Sect Master Ma Mingchen's body. In the blink of an eye, a sacred armor, milky white with gold trim and engraved with endless protective divine patterns, covered his entire body. The divine throne armor had intricate and exquisite textures. Every inch of the armor flowed with undying protective divine light. The shoulder guards were towering, the chest armor was heavy, and the skirt was solemn. It carried the supreme pressure of a barrier for the common people, pushing Sect Master Ma Mingchen's physical defense to the limit. The moment the armor was formed, Sect Master Ma Mingchen's aura skyrocketed again. The power of protection and fire spirit power merged perfectly, combining offense and defense, heavy and unparalleled. 9 Heavens Phoenix Flame. Sect Master Ma Mingchen charged forward, clad in the sacred armor of the divine throne, stepping on the sky full of divine fire, carrying the supreme divine might of the protective throne, and took the initiative to charge at Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan. The ultimate fire power and the supreme power of protection merged, combining offense and defense with overwhelming momentum. Book words 10,000 transformations righteous energy. Seeing this, a gleam of light flashed in Chief Guest Mo Hengchuan's eyes. He held a book in his hand, condensing thousands of Confucian powers, and met him calmly. The righteous energy collided violently with the protective power of the divine fire. The sky trembled, the sea of clouds collapsed, and the peak duel between the two top powerhouses instantly entered a white-hot stage. One was a limit Douluo, his Confucian spirit unique in the world, his righteous power capable of suppressing mountains and rivers and shattering all laws. The other was the holder of the divine throne of protection and compassion, wielding the world's ultimate defensive throne, capable of both offense and defense, with a skyrocketing foundation. This time, the two were evenly matched, a contest between equals. Chief guest Mo Hingchuan's thousands of Confucian swords could not break through Sect Master Ma Mingchen's armor of the divine throne, and Sect Master Ma Mingchen's phoenix fire attacks were also blocked layer by layer by the wall of righteous energy. They traded blows, the battle continuing endlessly. Above the sky, light and shadow intertwined, divine might was vast, and the battle was so intense it darkened the sky and changed the colors of the clouds. After dozens of rounds, the two were still unable to determine a winner. The extreme offensive and defensive duel left everyone in the city feeling stirred and their blood boiling. Seeing this, Qian Zunzong spoke calmly, his voice penetrating the sky and reaching the ears of the two. That is enough. The two of you are now equal in strength, and it is difficult to determine a winner. As his voice fell, the momentum of the clash in the sky instantly subsided, the turbulent void slowly stabilized, and the scattered sea of clouds gathered again. Hearing this, the two simultaneously withdrew their power, retreated to opposite ends of the sky, their breathing steady and their expressions calm. After the fierce battle, Sect Master Ma Mingchen's control over the divine throne of protection and compassion had become increasingly proficient. The power flowing through his body was free and easy, and he had completely mastered his newborn divine force and cultivation. The two landed from the air and returned to the plaza in front of the hall of the heavenly god. Sect Master Ma Mingchen immediately stepped forward, bowed deeply to Qian Zunzong sitting on the throne, his attitude pious and respectful, his tone full of endless gratitude. Thank you, Master, for bestowing this opportunity upon me. This subordinate swears allegiance to you for this life, and will never betray you. Beside him, Chief Guest Mo Hingchuan nodded slightly, his gaze approving, and he commented sincerely. The divine throne of protection and compassion is truly the ultimate defense in the world. Qian Zunzong smiled, then said, pass the order. From now on, Sect Master Ma Mingchen, you are the city lord of Tianshan City. You will manage the affairs of the city and guard the heavenly god state. Chief Guest Mo Hingchuan, you will be the dean of Douluo Academy, in charge of the academy's affairs. Ma Jinyan, you will lead the judgment knights and be responsible for the initial protection of Tianshan City. Jiyu Zhenyanyan, you are responsible for setting up the formations in various places in Tianshan City. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming will control the Spirit Tool Research Institute in Tianshan City, specializing in researching spirit tools. We respectfully follow your orders, Master. Everyone cupped their hands and responded. Shen Yi, have the Imperial Guards notify Shen Wanson and He Shen to quickly open up the trade routes between the Heavenly God State and the continent and start trading. Qian Zunzong continued. Yes, Master. Then Qian Zunzong looked at the expectant Gui Mei and Yu Guan, thought for a moment, and said, as for you two, just go to the Flood Crocodile clan and have them guard the waters around the Heavenly God State well. No ships that are not from Tianshan City are allowed to enter the Yunan Sea area. Yes, Master. Gui Mei and Yu Guan quickly agreed, but suddenly realized something was wrong. Wait. Going to find a group of crocodile uncles. Holy crap. Chapter 49, discussing the agenda, economic development direction. 3 days later, the council hall opened. All core subordinates gathered to discuss the grand plan for development after the city's construction, finalizing the 4 core development directions for Tianshan City: economy, influence, education, and technology. Inside the hall, those seated were the top core members under Qian Zunzong. Ma Jinyan, who had just broken through to level 94 title Douluo and completed his spirit nirvana rebirth, Sect Master Ma Mingchen of the former Lian sect, whose injuries were fully healed and whose cultivation had returned to its peak, Jiyu Zhenyanyan, who was proficient in formations and spiritual plants and had single-handedly supported the transformation of the mimicry secret realm, Shen Yi, who was responsible for guarding the master and leading the imperial guards of the manor, Gui Mei, Yu Guan. A group of core personnel stood on both sides, their expressions solemn, waiting quietly for the discussion. On the main seat, Qian Zunzong sat lazily, his posture relaxed and casual. His golden robes draped down, and his brows and eyes were handsome and indifferent. Although he did not deliberately release any pressure, he carried a transcendent aura of overlooking the entire domain and controlling the universe. The foundation of Tianshan City has been established, and the framework is formed. What is most lacking now is the development path, interpersonal network influence, and circulating economy. Qian Zunzong spoke slowly, his voice clear yet extremely weighty, resounding throughout the council hall. I have summoned everyone here today to finalize the subsequent development layout. Everyone must perform their duties in advance steadily so that Tianshan City can firmly establish itself and radiate across the entire Douluo Continent. Upon hearing this, everyone bowed to receive their orders, their eyes firm. The rise of a new city is first and foremost about its economic lifeline. Without money and resources, no matter how perfect the plan or how top tier the talent, it is all a castle in the air with no way to land. Before anyone could speak, 2 figures in brocade robes with distinct temperaments walked slowly into the council hall, guided by the imperial guards. The person on the left wore a plain white brocade robe, his face gentle, his brows and eyes shrewd and transparent. He carried the calm demeanor of a great merchant, and his every move was measured. He was the first merchant through the ages, Shen Wanson. The person on the right wore a black brocade shirt, his face fair and elegant, his eyes lively and slick. He was well versed in the ways of the world and the art of gathering wealth. He was He Shen, who was best at planning resources, revitalizing the economy, and gathering wealth. Both were top talents obtained by Qian Zunzong through previous check-ins. They had been dormant, waiting for orders. Now that Tianshan City had officially launched its development plan, it was the best time for them to come out, make contributions, and take charge of the economic lifeline. Subordinate Shen Wanson pays respects to the master. Subordinate He Shen pays respects to the master. The two bowed in unison, their attitudes respectful, neither humble nor arrogant. No need for formalities. Qian Zunzong raised his hand slightly, his gaze falling on the two. I summoned you two here today for one core task, to revitalize the economy of Tianshan City, open up the trade channels of the continent, and allow Tianshan City to accumulate massive wealth in the shortest possible time to support the operation and development of the entire city. We obey, the two replied in unison, then stood up and looked at each other, instantly clear about their responsibilities and direction. Shen Wanson stepped forward first, his gaze steady, and spoke clearly. Young master, looking at the top forces of the Douluo Continent, Spirit Hall, the 2 great empires, and the 7 great sects, all of them rely on trade circulation and resource monopoly to stabilize their foundations. Our Tianshan City has newly risen, and our foundation is still weak. If we want to establish a foothold quickly, we must open up internal and external trade channels to achieve resource interoperability and wealth circulation. He Shen followed closely, his eyes sharp, pointing directly to the core drawbacks. Brother Shen is absolutely right. The Douluo Continent has vast territories, complex land routes, and numerous checkpoints. With the 7 great sects in the empire setting restrictions layer by layer, land trade has huge losses and extremely low efficiency. Only by opening up sea routes and building cross-regional trade fleets can we connect all parts of the continent and reach overseas regions, continuously absorbing wealth and resources. The two spoke back and forth, quickly finalizing the economic development main line centered on ocean trade. Their thinking was clear and their planning long-term, which made the core members present nod repeatedly, full of admiration. But just when everyone thought the fleet construction plan was about to be finalized, Shen's tone suddenly changed, his face showing a solemn expression as he poured a bucket of cold water. However, building a large ocean-going trade fleet costs a terrifying amount. Shen frowned and calculated carefully. The construction cost of a top-tier warship is as high as tens of thousands of gold coins. To build a complete fleet capable of crossing the four seas, resisting the harassment of ordinary spirit beasts, and carrying massive trade materials, the scale must be at least 100 ships, covering transport ships, escort ships, supply ships, and reconnaissance ships. If you count all the materials, labor, spirit tools, and formation engravings, a conservative estimate for the starting cost is no less than 1 million gold coins, and subsequent maintenance, repairs, and personnel support are like a bottomless pit. 1 million gold coins. As soon as these words came out, a faint gasp sounded in the hall, and many people looked moved. Ordinary spirit masters struggle all their lives, and their accumulated wealth is no more than dozens or hundreds of gold coins. 1 million gold coins is a terrifying huge sum that is enough to support the operation of a first-class sect for decades. Shen waved his hand, his attitude firm and unhesitating. This strategy is too costly and not worth the loss. I am the first to disagree. Building a fleet takes time, effort, and money, and the deep sea is unpredictable. There are countless sea spirit beast groups, with 10-year, 100-year, 1,000-year, and even 10,000-year sea beasts emerging one after another. Even if a fleet is formed, it is very easy to be attacked and destroyed. The risk is huge, and it is absolutely not advisable. He had been in charge of financial power all his life and was best at calculating and avoiding losses. Such a project with high investment, high risk, and low fault tolerance really touched his bottom line, and he would definitely not agree. For a moment, the hall fell into a brief silence. Everyone was thoughtful. The trade route must be opened, but the ocean fleet has many drawbacks and terrifying costs, and the land route is too restricted. For a while, there was no perfect countermeasure. Just when everyone was at a loss, a gentle and clear voice sounded slowly. There is no need to build a fleet. I have a strategy that can open up the land and sky channels at a low cost and connect the four regions. Jiyu Zhenyan stepped out slowly, his expression indifferent, full of confidence. Now, under the careful cultivation of Qian Zunzong, he had learned many top-tier formation secrets and had been studying spiritual plants, formation paths, and spatial mysteries for many years. His attainments in formation paths had long been the best in the continent. What is the wonderful plan? Tell us quickly, Shen Wansen asked quickly, his eyes full of anticipation. The rest of the people also looked over, waiting for the following. Jiyu Zhenyan spoke slowly, every word clear. I can set up a super-large cross-boundary teleportation array in the core area of Tianjin City. The main array will be rooted in the heavenly god state, and the sub-arrays will be spread across the core territories, trade hubs, and key passages of the sects of the continent, directly opening up the spatial channel between Tianjin City and the entire Douluo Continent. Teleportation array. Everyone was slightly stunned, and then their eyes widened with intense light. That's right. Jiyu Zhenyan nodded and continued to explain, his tone determined. Although setting up a top-tier cross-boundary teleportation array requires a significant amount of funds, materials, and manpower in the early stages, it is only a one-time investment. Once the formation is formed, it can be used permanently. Subsequent maintenance and energy replenishment are all that is needed. Compared to the ocean-going fleet that costs millions of gold coins, requires annual losses, and is easily destroyed, the cost is reduced by more than 70%. In addition, the teleportation array travels through spatial channels, completely avoiding sea risks, not subject to sea spirit beast harassment, not subject to weather interference, not subject to road blockages, and can reach thousands of miles in an instant. The efficiency of trade transportation and the speed of personnel mobilization are far superior to the fleet by 100 times. It saves financial resources, avoids danger, and improves efficiency. It kills 3 birds with one stone, and it is far more reliable than building a fleet. Chapter 50. Academy Enrollment Planning, Spirit Tool Technology Preparation. These words were clear, logical, and clearly outlined the pros and cons, instantly waking up everyone present. Shen's eyes suddenly lit up, and he nodded repeatedly in full agreement. Brilliant, truly a brilliant plan. This strategy perfectly avoids all drawbacks and is highly cost-effective. It is the optimal solution to revitalize the economy. This subordinate fully agrees. Shen Wansen also clapped his hands in admiration. Spatial transmission commerce breaks regional shackles. This is an epic-making layout. With this grand formation, our Tianjin City's commerce will surpass the 7 treasure merchant house within a few years, radiating across the entire continent. The difficult problem of economic channels that had troubled everyone was instantly solved. Qian Zunzong nodded slightly, a flash of approval in his eyes. This strategy is feasible. Jiyu Zhenyan will be fully responsible, and Zhou Heng will lead the entire engineering department to cooperate. Mobilize all resources, materials, and manpower to push forward the setup of the super-large cross-realm transmission formation with full force. It must be stable, precise, and meticulous, preventing any errors. This subordinate obeys. Jiyu Zhenyan and Zhou Heng bowed in unison to accept the command. With the issue of economic channels settled, the next core challenges were power expansion and manpower reserves. The rise of a mighty city cannot do without a steady stream of talent, combat power, and population support. Without enough manpower, no matter how perfect the infrastructure or how top-tier the layout, it will ultimately be an empty shell. At this moment, Sect Master Ma Mingchen, who had been standing quietly to the side, stepped forward slowly. He bowed and spoke in a calm and experienced tone. Young Master, this subordinate has a strategy that can quickly absorb top-tier combat power and strengthen Tianjin City's foundation, and it won't require too many resources. Oh, tell me in detail. Qian Zunzong raised his eyes and signaled. The Earth 3 sects have been on friendly terms with my Leon sect for generations. They are family-friend sects, namely the Battle Soul sect and the Undying sect. Sect Master Ma Mingchen slowly revealed the secrets of the continent, his tone carrying a touch of emotion. The world knows of the upper 3 sects and the lower 4 sects, but they do not know that the Earth 3 sects also have a deep foundation. They just act low-key and do not strive for fame and wealth. They have been suppressed by the 7 great sects all year round, making their development extremely difficult. These 2 sects are in a similar situation to my former Leon sect. Both have fatal drawbacks. Their sect spirit is passed down through a single line of succession, making inheritance extremely harsh. It is difficult to produce a top-tier powerhouse in decades, and there is a severe gap in the sect's high-level combat power. In addition, suffering from the resource squeeze, power suppression, and territory encroachment of the 7 great sects all year round, the sect's foundations have been consumed year by year. With withered talents and scarce resources, they have been declining day by day. Within a few decades, they will inevitably face the crisis of dissolution. The Battle Soul sect excels in close quarters combat, and its disciples are all fearless of death with fierce combat power. The Undying sect excels in life sustainability and precise support. Both sects have their own strengths and decent foundations, but they have declined day by day due to inheritance drawbacks and external suppression. Now that our Tianjin city is newly built, widely recruiting talents and treating the strong well, it is the best time to win over the two sects. The sect masters of the two sects are both far-sighted people who keep the big picture in mind. Knowing their sect's plight, they will surely be unwilling to watch their 1,000-year-old sects perish completely. As long as someone goes to lobby them sincerely, promising resources, a future, and protection, the two sects will definitely be willing to submit and merge under our Tianjin city. This analysis was precise and thorough, pointing straight to the core, instantly pointing out the direction for Tianjin city's power expansion. Everyone present nodded in agreement, their eyes full of approval. The Earth 3 sects were not weak to begin with, they were just born at the wrong time and restricted by drawbacks and suppression. If they could be fully absorbed, Tianjin city's overall combat power would surely skyrocket, instantly making up for the shortcomings in close combat, sustainability, and physical combat power. This method is very good. Qian Zunzong nodded slightly, then looked at Sect Master Ma Mingchen. But you are currently restricted and cannot go. Sect Master Ma Mingchen showed bitterness upon hearing this, bowing and cupping his hands. Please rest assured, Lord. This time Jinyan will step forward, leading several elders to negotiate. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's eyes fell on Ma Jinyan beside him. Ma Jinyan currently had a cultivation of a level 94 titled Douluo, with heaven-defying combat power. After his Nirvana rebirth, his character had become increasingly calm and experienced. Having followed his father since childhood, he had friendships with 2 generations of the Earth 3 sects and knew the secrets, sect rules, and temperaments of the 2 sect masters well. He was undoubtedly the best candidate for lobbying. Seeing this, Ma Jinyan actively stepped forward, bowed, and accepted the command. Young master, leave this matter to the subordinate. I know the inner workings of the 2 sects well, and I will definitely be able to convince the 2 sect masters to lead the Battle Soul sect and the Undying sect to fully submit to Tianjin city. /. Good, Qian Zunzong agreed indifferently. This matter is fully entrusted to you. Act as you see fit. Promise them a future and grant them protection. There is no need to coerce them excessively, just treat them with sincerity. This subordinate obeys. Ma Jinyan solemnly accepted the command. Besides power expansion, talent cultivation and fresh reserves were also of paramount importance. For a power to last long and never decline, it never relies on temporary top-tier combat power, but on a steady stream of fresh talents. Only by building a complete education system can the foundation remain evergreen. Qian Zunzong's gaze swept over everyone, and he spoke slowly, immediately launch the planning and construction of Douluo Academy. The academy will cover 5 major departments: Spirit Master Cultivation, Spirit Tool Technology, Formations and Spiritual Plants, Combat Training, and Strategic Planning. It will recruit students from the entire Douluo Continent. First, go to Spirit Hall to complete official registration and obtain legal school running qualifications. Then publicize it extensively. There will be no restrictions on the enrollment scope. Commoner children, noble descendants, sect disciples, and rogue spirit masters, as long as they have talent, perseverance, and a heart to learn, they can all enroll. The enrollment scope covered the entire continent, regardless of background or family status. Such a grand vision instantly shook everyone's hearts. Ordinary sect academies only admit their own direct descendants and children of affiliated forces, with strict family status and heavy barriers. However, Douluo Academy opens its doors wide and embraces all rivers, with a vision far exceeding that of the major forces on the continent. The enrollment publicity matters will be fully handled by Gui Mei and Yu Guan. The 2 of them have followed me for over half a year, possess outstanding eloquence, and are familiar with various forces on the continent. Allocate several adjudication knights to accompany them, and draw some elite disciples from the original Leon sect to assist. Travel through all major cities, sects, and towns on the continent to fully publicize Douluo Academy's enrollment rules, benefits, resources, and prospects. Make sure it is known to everyone on the continent. Gui Mei and Yu Guan stepped out of the ranks upon hearing this, bowing solemnly to accept the command. This subordinate obeys. We will definitely not fail the young master's trust. With the education system landing, the development of spirit tool technology was also put on the agenda simultaneously. On the Douluo Continent, spirit tools are the general trend of future development. Top-tier spirit tool technology is enough to subvert the battle situation, check the strong, and stabilize a power, making it one of the core trump cards for a power's rise. Qian Zunzong looked at an elegant middle-aged man in a grey robe in the crowd, who was precisely the top spirit tool master on the continent, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming, you will oversee the overall affairs of the Spirit Tool Technology Institute. Yes, Master Soul Guide Kong Deming stepped out quickly, bowed to accept the command, his eyes full of determination. Immediately prepare basic spirit tool textbooks and compile a series of books such as Introduction to Basic Spirit Tools, Detailed Explanation of Spirit Tool Formations, and Structural Principles of Low to Mid-Tier Spirit Tool Machinery to systematically sort out basic spirit tool knowledge, formation carving techniques, and machinery building processes. After the textbooks land, immediately open the Spirit Tool Academy and Douluo Academy to officially start classes and teach, cultivating exclusive spirit tool talents from scratch, building a spirit tool technology system belonging to Tianjin City, and gradually realizing the independent research, development, building, and iteration of spirit tool machinery. This subordinate obeys. Master Soul Guide Kong Deming accepted the command, his heart already boiling with hot blood. Previously, he had a top-tier mastery of spirit tools but no platform to display it. Now, highly valued by Qian Zunzong and in full charge of the Spirit Tool Technology Institute, he could establish a school, teach, and deeply cultivate scientific research, which was exactly what he had sought all his life. Chapter 51. Signing in again, Shanghai Tower. With various affairs being arranged steadily and the framework becoming increasingly clear, Sect Master Ma Mingchen spoke up once again, offering a key strategy that filled the final gaps in economy and student recruitment. My lord, I have one more strategy that can rapidly stimulate the economy, attract talent, and bolster our reputation. Sect Master Ma Mingchen had a far-sighted gaze and a determined tone. Many sects of the support system on the Douluo Continent have inherent weaknesses. While their support capabilities are unparalleled in the world, they severely lack offensive and defensive means and self-preservation capabilities. Their combat strength is weak, making them extremely vulnerable to bullying and plunder. Among them, the Undying sect and the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School are the most typical examples. Especially the latter, the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School possesses the world's #1 support spirit. The 7 Treasure Glazed Tile trading firm covers every corner of the Douluo Continent, monopolizing most of the high-end commercial resources. They have immense financial power, vast connections, and a very high reputation. Their only weakness is that their disciples have absolutely no offensive or defensive capabilities, their actual combat strength is weak, and they have no power to protect themselves when encountering lethal conflicts. Our Tianjin City is currently deeply cultivating spirit tool technology. In the future, we can mass-produce offensive and defensive spirit tools, defensive formations, and sect-protecting equipment, which can perfectly fill the fatal weakness of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. We can show goodwill to the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School and use top-tier spirit tools, defensive formations, and sect-protecting resources as bait to win them over or reach a deep cooperation with them. First, we can leverage the commercial network of the 7 treasure glazed tile trading firm that spans the entire Douluo continent to completely open up the economic framework of Tianjin City and rapidly increase our wealth and income. Second, we can utilize the reputation of the 7 treasure glazed tile school on the Douluo continent to drive traffic and student recruitment for Zulu Academy, attracting talented disciples. Third, we can win over a top-tier support force to reserve top-tier support combat strength for our Tianjin City. This strategy was precise and hit the vital points, instantly opening up the triple development channels of economy, student recruitment, and combat strength for Tianjin City. He Shen and Shen Wansen's eyes lit up instantly, and they praised it repeatedly. This strategy is excellent. He Shen clapped his hands and said, the 7 treasure glazed tile trading firm monopolizes the high-end commerce of the Douluo continent. By cooperating with them, the resources and goods of our Tianjin City can instantly cover the entire Douluo continent, saving us decades of hard work. Shen Wansen also nodded in agreement. The 7 treasure glazed tile school has top-tier connections and an extraordinary reputation. With their help, the credibility of Zulu Academy's recruitment will instantly be maximized, and we won't have to worry about talented disciples coming to join us. Everyone present fully agreed, and no one had the slightest objection. Qian Zunzong nodded slightly, a flash of approval passing through his eyes. It is feasible. Note this matter down for now. Once the teleportation array is established, the academy classes begin, and the Spirit Tool Institute is formed, we will proceed to contact the 7 treasure glazed tile school to discuss cooperation matters. At this point, the 5 core development plans for Tianjin City, economy, influence, education, technology, and cooperation, were all arranged, with clear division of labor, everyone performing their duties, and a clear framework. Perform your duties and advance steadily. There is no need to be impatient, just proceed step by step. Qian Zunzong waved his hand and said indifferently, if there is nothing else, everyone may withdraw and proceed to implement your respective affairs. We obey. The core executives all bowed in salute, then exited the council hall in an orderly manner, rushing to their respective posts to begin methodically implementing the various city building plans. The large council hall instantly became empty and quiet, with only Qian Zunzong left sitting on the main seat. A cool breeze passed through the hall, stirring up the faint spiritual energy within, and the surroundings were quiet and leisurely. Qian Zunzong raised his eyes to look at the grand and vast scenery of Tianjin City outside the hall. The 100-mile territory was filled with spiritual energy, with towers and pavilions standing tall and formations hidden within. It was a scene of a prosperous new city, and he felt relaxed and content. Qian Zunzong's lips curled slightly, and he thought to himself, system, sign in at Tianjin City. Ding, detected that the host is located in the self-built peerless majestic city, Tianjin City, with a solid foundation and prosperous fortune. Sign in successful. Sign in cooldown for this location, 5 years. Reward, top-tier force, Shanghai Tower. Sign in cooldown for this location, 5 years. Force details, Shanghai Tower, a top-tier secret organization with dual core functions of assassination and intelligence. Its concealment ability is unparalleled in the world, its investigation range covers the 4 corners of the world, its assassination methods are unsolvable, and its infiltration capability is unmatched. Affiliated personnel configuration, total of 20,000 people, with a well-regulated structure, clear division of labor, and well-trained, divided into 2 core branches, the assassination department and the intelligence department. Combat strength configuration, 5 titled Douluos, 40 spirit Douluos, 300 spirit saints, and several remaining elite spirit masters. There are no weaklings among them, and no mediocre soldiers. Force characteristics, absolute loyalty of all members, bound by divine soul, never betraying. They can hide between heaven and earth, avoiding all investigative spiritual senses and detection formations. Their ability to infiltrate, assassinate, and gather intelligence far exceeds that of forces of the same level on the Douluo continent. A series of system prompt sounds rang out one after another, and the massive information about the force instantly flooded into Qian Zunzong's mind, clear and distinct. In an instant, the airflow between heaven and earth shifted slightly. 20,000 invisible figures quietly took root in every corner of Tianjin City, soundless and traceless. Their aura completely merged with heaven and earth, so that even super Douluos like Qian Daoliu and Grand Elder Qian Shichen could not easily detect them. 5 titled Douluos, 40 spirit Douluos, 300 spirit saints, and 20,000 elite spirit masters. Such top-tier combat strength, and it is a secret force specialized in intelligence and assassination, the value is terrifying. Subordinate Helian Yi pays respects to my lord. A man wearing black and red armor appeared, and his identity information was also displayed in front of Qian Zunzong. Name, Helian Yi, age, 90, identity, Shanghai Tower Master, spirit, destiny severing heaven spear, level, 97th level peak Douluo. Spirit rings, yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red. Spirit bone, full set of 6 spirit bones. Evaluation, ruthless methods, strong strength, unique vision. His subordinates are divided into 2 branches, assassination and intelligence gathering. Loyalty, infinity. Not bad, rise. Qian Zunzong was very satisfied with this. The Imperial Guards are skilled in protection, supervision, internal affairs control, and concealment, while Shanghai Tower is skilled in intelligence investigation, infiltration in foreign regions, secret assassination, and covert layout. One bright and one dark, one internal and one external, the 2 top-tier forces cooperate with each other, complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses, instantly filling the intelligence and assassination gaps of Tianjin City. Not bad, powerful enough. A flash of rich surprise passed through Qian Zunzong's eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. With Shanghai Tower and the Imperial Guards in hand, from now on, every movement on the entire Douluo continent, the secret plans of various sects, the military and political trends of the 2 empires, and the whereabouts and backgrounds of various powerhouses will not be able to escape his investigation. Any hostile force, hidden danger, or disloyal person can be secretly wiped out and precisely eliminated by Shanghai Tower, soundlessly and without leaving a trace. Order all members of Shanghai Tower to immediately enter the Douluo continent, fully connect with the Imperial Guards, and jointly lay out plans. Qian Zunzong thought for a moment and secretly issued an order. Pass the order. The Imperial Guards are to be in charge of internal security, territorial supervision, and concealment. Shanghai Tower is to be in charge of intelligence investigation and secret assassination. The 2 forces will work together to cover the entire Douluo continent with an intelligence network within 3 months, infiltrating various sects, empires, and cities to achieve no blind spot investigation. Yes, my lord. At the order, the 20,000 Shanghai Tower elites acted instantly. Countless hidden figures scattered like specters, quietly leaving Tianjin City, rushing to all corners of the Douluo continent, taking root in every corner, and silently building a super-intelligence giant network covering heaven and earth. In the shadows, the Imperial Guards force responded simultaneously, perfectly connecting and seamlessly cooperating with Shanghai Tower, weaving light and dark, and linking internal and external. From this point on, the most terrifying, most comprehensive, and most secret intelligence and assassination system on the Douluo continent was completely formed. Just waiting for one swing of the blade to reveal its sharpness. Qian Zunzong sat on the main seat, overlooking the thriving Tianjin city, his eyes lazy and casual, but his heart was full of confidence. Economic channels, force expansion, talent cultivation, technological development, intelligence and assassination, and commercial cooperation, the entire layout has taken root. 46 years of advanced plot foundation, coupled with the support of the heaven-defying system, 2 top-tier forces in the light and dark sitting in town, and countless top-tier talents serving. His path to godhood has already been paved with a smooth road, the path ahead is wide, and the general trend is promising. Next, he only needs to develop steadily, lie dormant quietly, and wait for Tianjin city to rise. Chapter 52, Registering the Academy, Phase